be inspiring for these Russian men when they're told that men with poor eyesight will just be on a buddy system to help them aim their guns. Wow. The next clip might be the most insane thing I've ever seen coming out of this mobilization, and there's a lot of crazy stuff on the internet right now. But here is a medical brief being given to recently mobilized Russian men, I'm guessing from either a doctor or a nurse. And look at her honestly explain to these Russian mobilized men what's awaiting them in Ukraine.
Это все свое, мальчишки. Вам форму, все что вам броню, вот это все, что касаемо военного. Этого ничего. Нет, наших мужиков писали все это вдоль. По медицине.
So what she's saying is that the only thing that the Russian military will provide you is uniforms and armor. Everything else is your responsibility. A sleeping bag, a mattress pad, any kind of medications. And this is when she mentions tourniquets.
Тоже. Отсрачки, то есть на пирамиде, перекись водорода, обязательно. Жгуты. У меня на вас на сердце буквально мужиков. А? Аптек.
So she's saying that the Russian military has run out of tourniquets and they can no longer issue them to all of their mobilized soldiers.
Прокладки обязательно, ну дешевенькие. Понятно? Вам туда все сгодится, сейчас сырая погода, у меня там мои друзья, мои товарищи. То есть всю информацию, там скидывают это. По возможности, ребята, то-то, это медицина. Мужики, сами о себе позаботьтесь, пожалуйста.
So this Russian military nurse is briefing these men that there's no first aid kits, there's no tourniquets, we're out of medicine. If you want this to not die, you need to ask your wives, girlfriends, and mothers to send you pads and tampons to stop the bleeding, not if you're shot, but when you're shot in Ukraine. Holy cow. Not only is the Russian military telling them to buy pads and tampons, they can't even provide it themselves. They can't even financially acquire it and then issue it to these men instead of proper first aid kits. So for that reason, there are lots of Russian men trying to flee the country. This story aired on Russian state TV, but Russian state TV is bragging about their domestic surveillance system, tracking down draft dodgers using facial recognition software in the public metro. So they're talking about how they're finding men trying to avoid mobilization. And the punishment is not go to jail. The punishment is you get mobilized and are sent to Ukraine. Russia is still going to use these men. So for that reason, the border crossings at Finland, Georgia, Mongolia, Kazakhstan, a week later, the queue of cars trying to get across the border is still kilometers long. Here's a video from yesterday of the Russian-Kazakhstan border. It stretches out over the horizon of Russian men trying to flee mobilization. Here's a joke in Georgia, a Georgian man holding a sign saying, "Welcome draft dodgers" at the airports. It is ironic that Russia invaded Georgia in 2008 and killed their people, and now these Russian men are seeking protection or refugee status in Georgia, a country that Russia attacked only 14 or 15 years ago. And I think a lot of these residents of these former Soviet states are recognizing the leverage they have over these men, these Russian men fleeing mobilization. Here's an interaction between a Kazakhstan individual and then Russian men who have just come to his country to avoid mobilization. So he decides to have a little fun with it.
Не скажи, кто хотел россиян. Не скажи, Чей. Ты скажи. Чё? Очко да вот. Гутлера боитесь, да, своего? Чё ж ты полосатый, да? Вот, смотрите.
So these Russian men are entering these other countries on tourist visas. With countries like Georgia, you don't have to go to an embassy and fill out an application for a visa. You can get visa-free entry to get into the country, but you can only stay so long. So these Russian men do not have protected refugee status. So once they're in the country, such as Georgia, Mongolia, or Kazakhstan, if they break the law, or they get in trouble, or they have a dispute with citizens of that country and the police get involved, they're just going to be deported back to Russia. They're not being protected. And if they get deported back to Russia, you can only imagine what Russia's going to do to them, knowing that they were in the country to avoid mobilization. They'll probably just be sent to Ukraine. Here's a picture of a flight from Istanbul to Moscow. All of the plane rides out of the country are booked, and the tickets cost thousands of dollars. But for anyone who wants to fly into Moscow, you can probably get a good deal on a one-way ticket to get on this plane. Russian YouTubers have also seen the writing on the wall. I was pretty shocked to hear that Konstantin, a Russian YouTuber who operates the channel inside Russia, he's fled the country, and he's gone to Tashkent, Uzbekistan, to avoid, I'm assuming, the possibility of being mobilized and sent to Ukraine. I just wanted to point out the irony that a guy who operates a channel titled Inside Russia is now outside Russia. Every man within this age category, doesn't matter their health status, they feel at risk, and it's true, they could be mobilized and given paperwork to go to Ukraine at any time. Another Russian YouTuber, Natasha's Adventures, she's got 369,000 subscribers. She gave up last week and also decided to permanently leave Russia until there's a change in the government or a change in the situation. She's currently in Baku, Azerbaijan. Nikki from Russia, he's actually live on YouTube right now as I'm filming this video, and the title of the video is I Left Russia. He was living in St. Petersburg, and he actually was assaulted on the streets. I don't have the video clip up, you can find it on Twitter, but just because he was live streaming and speaking English, a Russian man who heard him speaking English decided to assault him, so I'm sure that motivated him to also consider the possibility of leaving his home country. I'm sure for all of these individuals, this is hard, not as difficult as the daily lives of Ukrainians suffering at the hands of their military, but it's just tragedy all around. And here is Putin's best friend, Lukashenko, deciding to console his friend about all of these Russian men fleeing the country. This is what he has to say to Putin.
Ну хорошо, пусть убежали. Ну, 30 тысяч, ну 50 тысяч. Ну они что, если здесь остались, они что?
нашими людьми бы были. Ну пусть бегут. Я не знаю, как вы к этому относитесь. Я особо не переживал, когда в 2020 году несколько тысяч выехали. Просятся назад. Большинство просят, заберите назад. И эти приедут. Только надо принять решение, что с ними делать.
So I don't actually think this is Vladimir Putin. I think this is Vladimir Putin's body double that goes to public events. I think the real Putin remains in his bunker under the Kremlin and doesn't leave that often. But Lukashenko is telling his body double, hey, don't worry about these millions of Russian men trying to avoid service, trying to get out of the country. They'll come back crawling on their hands and knees someday, ready to get back into the country because Russia is so great. Real quick, I just have to mention these sham referendums. Obviously, there's no legitimacy or legal basis for them to be anything. But of course, Russia is claiming super high voter turnouts with 98 to 97% of people voting to join Russia in the Kherson, Zaporizhia, Luhansk, and Donetsk oblasts. But this is how bad Russia is, even at their own propaganda. This is an actual clip that aired on Russian state TV. And they're showing how the votes are being counted. And this woman counting votes is literally just flipping through blank ballots. They've not been filled out at all. And she's not even looking at the pieces of the paper, so she doesn't even realize what she's doing as she's counting yes votes to join Russia.
Ну, вот председатель комиссии Наталья Шуна сейчас демонстрирует всем журналистам и международным наблюдателям стопки с результатами референдума. Мне кажется, ей сейчас не позавидуешь, потому что слово «да» она будет произносить еще очень много раз. Если мы посмотрим стопки, где ответ «да», они гораздо больше, но есть также, кто проголосовал против. Вот на столе, сейчас покажу, попрошу оператора показать, есть два, пока только.
So it's pretty easy to have 90% voter turnouts with 98% voting in favor of joining Russia when all of the ballots are blank and they're just counting them as yes votes. This is how Russia operates. Let's wrap up this video with some true heroes. These are two Ukrainian soldiers in the trenches singing the Ukrainian version of a World War II anti-fascist Italian resistance anthem, Bella Ciao. I think I'm saying that right. But this clip is about a minute and a half long.
Ніхто не думав, ніхто не бачив, яка насправді була українська люта, чи проклятий, звичайно мочі, якщо на нашу землю. Та чи проклятий, звичайно мочі, якщо на нашу землю пруд. А на кордоні найкращі хлопці, самі народі воюють, у наших ЗСУ і джавеліни, і байрактари за Україну б'ють русню. І джавеліни, і байрактари за Україну б'ють русню. А наші люди, а українці, проти русні об'єднали вже цілий світ, і скоро зовсім русні не буде, а буде мир на всій землі. І скоро зовсім русні не буде, а буде мир на всій землі.
That's all for this update video. Glory to the heroes, glory to Ukraine. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support my channel. Comment.
We are heading back on Cookie, and Wrath is just around the corner, guys. We need to farm some honor, and there's the perfect way to do it. Warsong Goals Weekend. Let me tell you guys, this is absolutely insane. If you guys like these videos, please make sure to check. If you haven't subbed, and then do it. And enjoy, guys. Let's start off the show today, guys, by just doing the Brewfest stuff. Okay, a little bit Brewfest. We'll talk about what we're gonna do, and then we'll do it. I think we're gonna make a little Brewfest group, do Corn Dire Brew, so we can hopefully maybe get the quota today. Okay, we have the RAM. We're gonna get the quota too. Also, I heard some crazy wonky news about Warsong Goals, right? It's Warsong Goals Weekend right now, so you get a buttload of honor from Warsong. So I think it could actually be quite a smart idea for us to head inside of Warsong and maybe do a little bit of honor farming as well. So maybe we're gonna get together a nice ethical group of gamers and do a little Warsong. You know, could be good because I have 9k honor, and the cap for honor is set to 75,000 for rounds, right? So if you want to prepare the big cookie for that could be a good idea, right? Okay, surely today will be the day where we get the mount. I'm positive the coda's gonna drop. Right, yeah, kill station, you go first. Oh, frick, I'm supposed to tank. I forgot, sorry. Yo, Liebe, can you please heal as well? Yeah, please heal. I'm so sorry, I forgot we didn't have a tank. Please make sure you avoid the whirlwind, okay? Yeah, make sure you heal me as well, okay? Just keep me alive, and then we're good. Well, okay, let's rest up the dead. I'm frost presence now, so I'll tank. Just make sure you keep me alive, yeah? Okay, here's the Kodo, guys. Here it is, right now. Hold, 2 items, but not the 2 items we wanted. We wanna get the Kodo. Alright, Ludo, go next. Surely, this is the one, guys. How many more items do we have? We have 2 more after this. We have 3 more.
It's too far away. That's still recharging. I'm out of range. That's still recharging.
Attempts with this one. Good job, guys. Good job. It's a good trinket, but I have it already, right? Okay, leave it go next. I'll go last. It's gonna drop 100%. That's not the Kodo. That's a dark iron smoking pipe. But we have one more attempt, please. This one. Surely it's gonna drop now, guys. Here it is, guys. No shot. Well, no Kodo today, guys. There's always a day tomorrow. No flipping Kodo. I think what I would like to do, guys, actually, is do a little bit of a war song. Just get a little bit of honor here. We are missing a trinket. Oh, also shoulders. Maybe I should get this actually, because I'm using shoulder pads of the everlasting pain, right? Brutal could be better, but I also really want trinket. You know what? Let's buy the trinket and let's do a little bit of war song so we can buy some shoulders as well, because I'm only missing like 2.7k honor for shoulders. So we'll do it like that. I think that is a stellar idea. Okay? Yeah, maybe Rectory should go for the flag, because you're juicy. Let's go get some gear, guys. Cookie needs some new shoulders. Okay, we need to go in and pump these. Oh, look at this guy. Look at little Cook. Oh, Cook is like, oh my god. He has so little gear, mate. He's probably gonna die to death in decay, honestly. Alright, this guy's spinning. Warriors have like a thing where they love to just go in and spin on everybody, and they just die doing it. But it is what it is, I guess. Like they just charge in, spin on everybody, and if they die, they die. Gonna stop on my gargoyle as well on this guy, and then we just pump. Dude, that death in decay was actually the play. Okay, Rectory, you just go for flag, and we camp them, and then we win. We gotta get the flag back though, guys. We're having some complications here. Yo, Cookie, can you like don't do that? What the hell? Okay, we have a shaman here as well. Let's pop like a few defenses here and keep living like this. Should be fine, nice. He's gonna disengage. Yeah, bring him back in. Bring him back in. Back into the meat blender. He's gonna die to my dot anyway, it's fine. Alright, I'll bring him back next flag, guys. DKs have really grown on me, guys. I won't lie. What the? That's a little Sap Suspenock. Oh, he's gonna blink out. I might die actually. Yeah, I'm dead. I couldn't live that. There was a little bit of CC. That little Cook guy to CC me. He died though. We should have like a druid invitation to like, you know, Rectory take the first flag and second take the next one. You blink? You wanna blink or something? Oh my. I guess he doesn't wanna blink because he's goddamn dead. Like Jesus Christ. Okay, we have a smart coming here. Gonna stun this guy. My gargoyle's coming as well. Arms Warriors feels like they're so squishy compared to Prod, man. It's like not even comparable, man. Yeah, this honor gain is ridiculous, actually. How much you can get from this. So I have 5.6k, so we're gonna be like, oh my god, we're gonna get so much. Like, Jesus Christ. Dude, enhancement shamans are so annoying. They summon the little pet and they just get the Sunis, man. It's so annoying. What the fuck, man? I'm dead. Okay, are you guys RP walking the flag? Guys, just turn in the goddamn flag, okay? You don't need to RP walk in the flag. We are farming honor, guys, okay? This is an honor farm. Okay, 9 minutes for 3k honor. Are you crazy? Oh, that's because it was the first win. I mean, we get like 1,000 less honor now. But that's still a buttload of honor, though. Alright, let me get the shoulders, guys. I'm gonna buy the shoulders. I do need to put some sockets in these bad boys. You know, I'll put the sockets in after this BG here. Alright, I'll pick these up. I'll pick these up after this BG, okay? Here comes the bubble, man. Dude, that's why I hate paladins, man. They just instantly bubble. It's so annoying. Alright, we're just cleaning these guys up. Just like full on kill them. This guy has 5. Look at him. Oh my god, he's so cute. He has no health. Oh no, he's so cute. Oh my god, it's 5,000 health. Okay, let's go. Kill this guy as well. Dude, we're just like a wrecking ball, man. Oh, that's a flag. We need to defend that guy. Hey, what is this guy, man? Owned by. What do you think you're doing here, mate? I love pumpkins. I guess he's gonna say the same thing about DKs. Okay, I'm gonna go in and get ready for the next flag. Okay, guys, you guys just keep doing your thing. Let's go. We're running it down, little guys. Like old school PvP Swift video. Incredible Cookie tricks. That's the video. Incredible death knight tricks. That's how we're doing it. Nice, easy clap. Okay, 1.9k honor. Okay, how did you guys? Oh, that was your first win. I was wondering how you got so much more. 2k honor in 10 minutes though. That's still ridiculous. Like, that is actually like crazy good honor. Okay, let's do this for a little while, guys. Let's farm some honor, yeah. Alright, let's throw this in my brutal shoulders. We're looking good. How much more health is this? Oh my god, that's a lot. 20 more attack power. I get 2 full percent crit. Okay, Cookie is juiced out the wazoo, guys. Cookie is ready for wrath. Alright, let's farm some honor, boys. Let's blast some BGs. Okay, these guys seem to be pumped to come. Yeah, kill the boomy. Actually, kill the boomy. That boomy deserves to die in World of Warcraft. I really thought he was a really nice person, okay, but in World of Warcraft he's gonna die. Okay, that guy forgot to bubble. It is what it is. I'm gonna pop my defensives and run away and hopefully live. Jesus Christ. Dude, this guy's getting like dragged all over the place, man. It's such a big difference having death knights in PvP now compared to like before. Still, he's gonna disengage. He's gonna not disengage. He can do that. Hey, I wanna kill him. That's mine. That's mine, man. Stop, dude. Dude, we are just destroying everybody, man. Holy crap. They're just running these guys down. I am getting the flag through as well, which is nice. I'm gonna start like chain fighting people. That is like the most obnoxious thing DKs to do. Spamming chains of what the hell? Spamming chains of ice on everybody. I don't know what just happened to my brain. It's like the most frustrating thing. It's just like it's the most powerful slow in the game. It literally makes you immobile. You turn into a goddamn like a scout tower, greasy tower defense, walk a 3,000 map, right? It's so ridiculous how much it slows you. Jesus Christ. Alright, let's kill everybody, guys. Bring the flag through, and then we can get some honor. Yeah, the faster we win the BGs, like the more honor we get. Like we just need to like shut it in. Because like we have 400 honor gained. Bam, 1800. Warsong experience. Win a Warsong Gulch in under 7 minutes. We are straight up just farming, guys. 4.2k honor already. What the hell? I just bought like the medallion and I bought shoulders, and we already have 4.2k again. Maybe I should actually get like honor cap before reset. Like if we just do this for a little while, today and tomorrow, we'll definitely be honor cap. This is mine, by the way. This one is heart reserve for Cookie, guys. Heart reserve the circuit buff. Okay. Oh my god, I'm pumping. Oh god, that was so good. Oh, dude, I love Warsong Gulch. I love Warsong Gulch, guys. Let's get a W. Get some honor, baby. This guy's level. Oh my god, you're so good. You actually did on my screen right now. Mate, it's not even fair, man. It's straight up just unfair, man. How strong Cookie is now, guys. Can I kill this guy? This guy's a lot of health. We'll do it. Okay. Man, DK's tanky though. When he pops like in this, he's a beast. We are on a roll right now, guys. Literally. Oh, this guy's so dead. Holy crap. Okay, I didn't even get to spend the seasons. Dude, it must be so sad getting just graveyard farmed like this. I feel bad a little bit. Not really, but still, it must suck, man. Queuing up is just getting absolutely destroyed. Yeah, I don't feel that at all, actually. I'm having a lot of fun. This is like really enjoyable to me. 7 kills and 0 deaths. I'm gonna keep dragging people down, killing them. Well, that's another 2k honor, guys. 8 minutes for 2k honor. Dude, the honor per hour is ridiculous. Okay, we'll farm 20k honor, guys. Once we have 20k honor, then I'll go on my booming, alright? What's your take on black licorice? Woo! Oh yeah, it's so good. Oh, dude, it like transformed my voice. Puts me into purity. Wait, how did they all just decide to fuck me? What the hell? Alright, let's go. We gotta get the flag. Easy clap. Alright, let's keep winning, guys. I'm gonna kill the boomy. Boomy time. Typhoon, you won't. Spam death card. Whenever in doubt, guys, just spam death card. That's how you win. Oh my god, I'm so dead. I'm dead. Flip me, flip. Man, now I wanna eat another one of these. I only have like 5 left. I usually don't snack that often, but if I do have snacks around my apartment, I eat it all the time. Okay, they actually killed the flag, guys. We need to focus up, you guys. Yeah, we just focus up and kill these guys. Oh, this guy's like, look at him. He's so cute. Oh my god, he's backpedaling as well. Blink. Any blinkers? There it is. I love it. Oh, I love it. Okay. We should probably help our flag, right? Oh my god, this guy. Scheiße. Not optimal here. This is definitely an L. Alright, we just get the flag, guys. Okay, I'll go with Victory and we get the flag out, okay? I'm coming, okay? Oh my god, they're all in here, man. I got you, mate. I got you, man. If there's someone who has to, it's me, man. It's me. Dude, they are full on defense. Did you get the flag? You took the flag, right? Oh mate! Milk Bucket, that's a nice name. I'm gonna think, like, you know what, we do it old school. We do it old school, baby. Old school, just like running it down mid. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. Run it down mid. It's like a goddamn Tyler 1 stream here, guys. Let's go. Down mid we go. Let's go, big brother. Oh, maybe he's like a nice guy. I don't think he's a nice guy. Okay, you wanna challenge me, mate? Gonna set my gargoyle on that person? You're just dead to death, Pearls, literally. Alright, let's go. Okay, guys, you guys just cap the flag whenever you're ready. I'm gonna stand here and just dance. You guys do your thing. Look at that, guys. This is the true Wars and Goals experience, guys. Damn. Ah, you're crazy! What the hell? Go ahead. Oh shit! Wotlk was naked. We can't do it. Oh god damn it. Okay, dude, that was happening like the time of my life. Drag this guy down, kill it. Just kill it. Oh my god, that's actually scared me. It's like I'm playing a goddamn horror game, man. Okay, we're good to go, guys. Can I go back to my BG enjoyment? I'm gonna go back to enjoy my BG. Hi, brother. Yeah, I think this guy wants to be my friend or something. I love BG. Look at that. This is epic BG gaming, guys. Are you crazy? Show your face. I dare you. Oh, do it again. Do it again. I dare you. Do it again. Do it again. That's what I thought. Yeah. Take that. Easy clap. Oh, we did it. Woo! Let's go, gamers. That is a W. Easy clap. All right, not too bad, guys. I think that's probably it for now, guys. We got so much stuff, though. I got both. I got my medallion, PvP trinket, and I got the shoulders, plus 17,000 honor. That was a successful honor farm. I would say so. All right, not too bad, guys. I think that's probably it for now, guys.
People don't know how bad it was. They don't know how far we've come. They're never taught that. They're not taught how terrible things have become in many places in the 20th century. Like my students in my personality class, these are smart kids at the University of Toronto. They were well educated by comparative standards. None of them knew anything about what happened in the Soviet Union or in Maoist China or in Cambodia. No one ever taught them. And so I think, young people, they see inequality in the world, and they see some of the painful consequences of inequality, because there are painful consequences, and then they're enticed into finding a quick source of blame that requires no thought, and also enticed into manifesting a moral virtue that is neither moral nor virtuous. And so here we are. And instead of, I've thought for many years, decades, that whenever I walk out on the street and things aren't on fire, I'm pretty damn thrilled at how stable and peaceful things are. I don't take electricity for granted. I don't take the integrity of the supply chain for granted. I truly think these are miracles. I don't think the fact that the default interaction between human beings in the Western world, broadly speaking, the default economic transaction is based on trust. I don't take that for granted. That's a bloody miracle. It took us, hardly any society has ever managed that, and it took us thousands, tens of thousands of years to produce that. But I think our children are so badly educated by people who have no idea. They have no idea about economics. They have no idea about history. They have no idea about privation or suffering. They're looking for easy answers and people to blame for the remaining catastrophes of the world.
Well, here's the question I love to ask my students: is what would I have to pay you for you to never use your iPhone and the internet again for the remainder of your life? And I've never been able to get a student to do it for less than $5 million. It's like, you have this $5 million thing that you own. you're all 5 millionaires because you get to walk around with these devices.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You are so prosperous, so rich compared to anybody that's come before you. How could you not be anything other than just hyper grateful for the life that we have?
Well, I think that one of the things we need to do about this is we need to start training young people to think about themselves as possessed of more possibility than they know what to do with, and then encouraged to harness that. So I say, well, look, you have all the food that you could have, and you have all the information that there is. You've got it all in front of you. Now that you have it all in front of you, what's the most noble vision you can bring forth to make use of that possibility? No, and I know some of the research I've done on helping people make vision for the future authoring program, we show pretty clearly that you can motivate students who drop the dropout rate of boys in community college 50% by just having them sit down for 90 minutes and develop a vision. So you say, look at what's in front of you. Way more than anyone's ever had in history. And some people might have a little more in front of them than you, like certainly, but when you have more than you can ever use, how much do you need? And then who should you be to live up to that? Well, that's our collective problem at the moment, trying to solve that, and hopefully solving it before we let bitterness and resentment and historical ignorance get the upper hand, because it's kind of a battle at the moment with our computer technology. Every single child, I would say on the planet, but certainly in the states where everyone has access to computational equipment, every single child should be an expert speed reader, because computers could train children to automate letter, phoneme, and word recognition perfectly rapidly, because computers are great at mass practice. And if the faculties of education had an ounce of integrity, they would have been working diligently on the problem of getting children over that hump, because there's a hump in reading comprehension, because to begin with, like there is when you're learning how to play music, you have to automate letter recognition and syllable recognition and word recognition and then phrase recognition, so you get the phrase at a glance. As soon as you've got that, you can start to read for meaning. It's no longer effortful. And then as soon as you can read for meaning, of course, it's just as engaging as watching a movie, which people obviously don't have to be taught to do. And so there are all these problems that are laying out there in the world, and people have a set of problems that bug them that they could be working on fixing. And they have all this technology to fix it. It's like, that's what we want to do, is figure out what you think needs to be fixed, and then take all this wealth that you have put at your disposal and fix it, man. You don't have to hang your head in shame because you're ruining everything. Quite the contrary. That's actually wrong. It also is counterproductive in relationship to the stated goals of the people producing the anxiety. Because what happens to men who are demoralized, young men who are demoralized, is that because they lose hope and then don't put in effort and become cynical, that their relationships get fractured and they have no productive activity, and so their lives get more and more difficult and cynicism inducing as they withdraw into this sort of nihilistic negative Buddhism in some sense. And then they get bitter, and then they get resentful, and then they get angry, and then look the hell out. And so, because if you push people into a corner by demoralizing them about like the very nature of their existence itself, or about existence itself, it isn't that they're just going to wander away quietly and disappear into the woodwork like mice. Some of them will do that, but others will turn into unbelievable monsters. And we always throw up our hands and wave around when we see something happen like happened in Buffalo. It's like, well, why did that happen? It's like, well, if you wanted to know, you could know, but you don't want to know. Sit on your bed one day and ask yourself, what remarkably stupid things am I doing on a regular basis to absolutely screw up my life? And if you actually ask that question, but you have to want to know the answer, right? Because that's actually what asking the question means. It doesn't mean just mouthing the words. It means you have to decide that you want to know. You'll figure that's out so fast it'll make your hair curl. There's no better pathway to self-realization and the ennoblement of being than to posit the highest good that you can conceive of and commit yourself to it. And then you might also ask yourself, and this is definitely worth asking, do you really have anything better to do? And if you don't, well, why would you do anything else? If you orient yourself properly, and then pay attention to what you do every day, that works. And I actually think that that's in accordance with what we have come to understand about human perception, because what happens is that the world shifts itself around your aim. Because you're a creature that has an aim. You have to have an aim in order to do something. You're an aiming creature. You look at a point and you move towards it. It's built right into you. And so you have an aim. Well, let's say your aim is the highest possible aim. Well, then so that sets up the world around you. It organizes all of your perceptions. It organizes what you see and you don't see. It organizes your emotions and your motivations. So you organize yourself around that aim. And then what happens is the day manifests itself as a set of challenges and problems. And if you solve them properly, then you stay on the pathway towards that aim. And you can concentrate on the day. And so that way you get to have your cake and eat it too. Because you can point into the distance, the far distance, and you can live in the day. And it seems to me that that makes every moment of the day supercharged with meaning. That's because if everything that you're doing every day is related to the highest possible aim that you can conceptualize, well, that's the very definition of the meaning that would sustain you in your life. Well, and then the issue is, well, back to Noah. Well, all hell's about to break loose and chaos is coming. It's like when that's happening in your life, you might want to be doing something that you regard as truly worthwhile. Because that's what will keep you afloat when everything is flooded. And you don't want to wait until the flood comes to start doing that, because if your ark's half built and you don't know how to captain it, the probability is very high that you'll drown. Ask and it shall be given you. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you. For everyone that asketh receiveth, and he that seeketh findeth, and to him that knocketh it shall be opened. That sounds pretty optimistic again. But again, I think it's a description of the structure of existential reality. And by which I mean, when I'm in my clinical practice and I observe, and this is also the case with my students, is let's say people's lives aren't what they would like them to be. And so then you ask, why? Well, forget about tragedy and catastrophe, because that's self-evident, and we're not going to discuss that. Although the degree to which you bring about your own tragedy is always indeterminate. But I would never say that every terrible thing that is visited on a person is something they deserved. I think that that's a very dangerous presupposition, especially because everyone gets sick and everyone dies. But one of the main reasons that people don't get what they want is because they don't actually figure out what it is. And the probability that you're going to get what would be good for you, let's say, which would even be better than what you want, right? Because you might be wrong about what you want easily. But maybe you could get what would really be good for you. Well, why don't you? Well, because you don't try. You don't think, okay, here's what I would like if I could have it. And I don't mean in a way that you manipulate the world to force it to deliver you goods for status or something like that. That isn't what I mean. I mean something like, imagine that you were taking care of yourself like you were someone who actually cared for. And then you thought, okay, I'm caring for this person. I would like things to go as well for them as possible. What would their life have to be like in order for that to be the case? Well, people don't do that. They don't sit down and think, all right, let's figure it out. You've got a life. It's hard, obviously. It's like 3 years from now, you can have what you need. You've got to be careful about it. You can't have everything. You can have what would be good for you, but you have to figure out what it is, and then you have to aim at it. Well, my experience with people has been is if they figure out what it is that would be good for them, and then they aim at it, then they get it. And it's strange because it's a strange thing. It's not quite that simple because, you may formulate an idea about what would be good for you, and then you take 10 steps towards that, and you find out that your formulation was a bit off, and so you have to reformulate your goal. So you're kind of going like this as you move towards the goal. But a huge part of the reason that people fail is because they don't ever set up the criteria for success. And so since success is a very narrow line and very unlikely, the probability that you're going to stumble on it randomly is 0. And so there's a proposition here, and the proposition is, if you actually want something, you can have it. Now the question then would be, well, what do you mean by actually want? And the answer is that you reorient your life in every possible way to make the probability that that will occur as certain as possible. And that's a sacrificial idea, right? It's like, you don't get everything. Obviously. But maybe you can have what you need. And maybe all you have to do to get it is ask. But asking isn't a whim or today's wish. It's like, you have to be deadly serious about it. You have to think, okay, like, I'm taking stock of myself. And if I was going to live properly in the world, and I was going to set myself up such that being would justify itself in my estimation, and I don't mean as a harsh judge, exactly what is it that I would aim at? And so the issue is not so much the blindness of others, even though there's as much blindness among others as there is for you. But the issue here, the advice here, the description here is, you should be concerned about what's interfering with your own vision first. And you should leave other people the hell alone in relationship to that. And so if your motive being in the world is, if you would just act better, things would improve for me, or if you identify the evil and the catastrophe as something that's outside, that someone else needs to fix, or that someone else is responsible for, then you're not going to fix that. You're going to remain blind to the things that you're doing and not doing that make things not go well. And so it's just better to think, all right, I'm probably blind in many, many ways. And maybe there are some ways that I could rectify that, because it's highly probable that you're blind in all sorts of ways. I mean, in fact, it's virtually certain. And so it's just more useful to think, how is it that I'm wrong in this situation? I'll tell you something that I learned to do when I was arguing with my wife, which happened quite frequently, because when you actually communicate with people, you find out that there's many things that you don't agree on, and that's because you're actually different creatures. And so if you're actually going to have a truthful conversation, then you're going to find out that you don't see things the same way, and then you can either pretend that that's not the case and gloss over it and then end up in a 30-year silent war, or you can have the damn fight when you need to have it and see if you can straighten it out. So now and then we'd get in a situation where we were at loggerheads, we couldn't move. And, it would spiral up into hate speech, let's say. Yeah, everyone laughs because they know they manifest plenty of hate speech towards those they love. So one of the things we learned to do was, when we hit an impasse, was to separate and to go our own ways and to go sit and think, okay, look, we're in this unpleasant situation. We can't figure out how to move forward. I'd always think, of course it's her fault. Obviously it's her fault. At least 95%. But maybe there was something I did that contributed like 5% to it. If you do what it is that you're called upon to do, which is to lift your eyes up above the mundane, daily, selfish, impulsive issues that might beset you, and attempt to enter into a contractual relationship with that which you might hold in the highest regard, whatever that might be, to aim high and to make that important above all else in your life, that fortifies you against the vicissitudes of existence like nothing else can. And I truly believe that that's the most practical advice that you could possibly receive. The way that you fortify your faith in life is to assume the best, something like that, and then to act courageously in relationship to that. And that's tantamount to expressing your faith in the highest possible good. It's tantamount to expressing your faith in God. It's not a matter of stating, well, I believe in the existence of a transcendent deity, because in some sense, who cares what you believe? I mean, you might and all that, but that's not the issue. It's not the issue. The issue, it seems to me, is how you act. The issue is not what you believe as if it's a set of facts, but how you conduct yourself in the world. The purpose of thinking is to let your thoughts die instead of you. It's a brilliant notion, and so the idea is something like, you can conjure up a representation of yourself. You can conjure up a variety of potential representations of yourself in the future. You can lay out how those future representations of yourself are likely to prevail or fail. You can cull the potential yous in the future that will fail, and then you can embody the ones that will succeed. You do that while simultaneously conjuring up a representation of your current state and determining for yourself, because of your undue suffering, which elements of your pathetic being need to be given up so that you can move forward into that future. And the goal, what is it that you're aiming at with that work and that sacrifice? That's the ultimate question. What is it that you're trying to do? You're trying to improve the future. We believe that the future can be improved. We believe that it can be improved as a consequence of our sacrificial work. And so, once again, what are the limitations? What are the limits to that? What are the necessary limits to that? I would say we don't know. We conjured up this remarkable idea. The future exists. We can see it even though it's only potential. We can adjust our behavior in the present in order to maximize our probability of success in the future. How best to do that? Well, the idea is something like, don't hesitate to offer the ultimate sacrifice if you want the future to turn out ultimately well. What is it that you could contract for, let's say, if you were willing to give up everything about you that's weak and unworthy? The proper sacrificial attitude produces a psychological state, and then a social state that's a manifestation of that attitude that decreases the probability that the world will careen into hell and increases the probability that people will live high-quality, meaningful, private lives in a society that's balanced and capable of supporting that. And none of that seems to me to be questionable, really. I also don't think it's anything that people don't actually know. People have told me many times that when they listen to me talk, they're hearing things that they already knew but didn't know how to say. It's something like that. And this is one of those things that I think is exactly like that. I mean, I think it's at the very core of our moral knowledge, which is our behavioral knowledge and our perceptual knowledge. I mean, let's get this straight. Moral knowledge is no trivial matter. It's knowledge about how it is that you orient yourself in the world. There's no more profoundly necessary form of knowledge. Well, it's predicated on something that's exactly like this. We know that we have to make sacrifices. We know that we have to aim at what's good. So then why isn't that we don't aim at what's best and make the sacrifices that are necessary in order to bring that into play? I think it seems to me that in some sense that's self-evident. The question is why we don't do it, but there's answers to that too. Life is hard, and it hurts people. It's rife with limitation, and some of it's arbitrary, and some of it's unjust, and some of it's worse, some of it's malevolent, which is even worse. It's not surprising that that combination of vicissitude can turn people against being. But I think even when that happens, and even when people have the kind of history that if they reveal to you, you would say, well, it's no wonder you turned out that way. The people who turn out that way still know that it's wrong. They still know that however deep their own suffering, however arbitrary their own suffering, however much that's caused by the malevolence of others, as well as the tragedy of existence, that does not in any way justify their turning away from the good. And I believe everyone knows that. I believe that They know it implicitly, even if they don't allow themselves to know it explicitly. And I believe that if they violate that idea, then they violate themselves, and that they end up in Cain's position, which is the position of the man who's been given a punishment that is too great to bear. Now, we're capable of making sacrifices in abstraction, right? To conceptualize a future that we want, to let go of the things that are stopping us from moving forward, and to free ourselves from the chains of our original preconceptions. Pursue pleasure. Follow your impulses. Live for the moment. Do what's expedient. A mountain is something you have to climb, and you have to climb to the pinnacle of a mountain. And the mountain is up, right? And the mountain stretches up to heaven, and it's a long journey to specify the right place on the highest pinnacle. And that's symbolic, because of course it's a pinnacle that you're always trying to reach, just like you're always trying to aim. You're always trying to climb upward. At least that's the theory. It depends to some degree, of course, on your definition of upward. You're supposed to, again, to act out the highest good of which you're capable. Now that'll transform your life to some degree into an archetypal adventure. There's no way around that, because as you attempt to climb a higher mountain, let's say, or to aim at a higher target or something like that, then the things around you will become increasingly dramatic and of import. That happens by necessity, obviously, because if you're aiming at something difficult and profound, and you're really working at it, then your life is going to become perhaps increasingly difficult and profound. But that might be okay. That might be exactly what you need as an antidote to the implicit limitations that face you as a human being. The good father is precisely someone who is willing to sacrifice his child to the ultimate good. You have a moral obligation as a parent to encourage your child to go out into the world, right? And to be whoever they can be, to be the best they can possibly be. And in doing that, you're encouraging them to pursue the good. You're sacrificing them to the good. You're not keeping them for yourself selfishly. You're telling them that they can go out and live their life and live it properly. You don't want for your son what it is that you want for him. You want for your son what would be best for him and for the world. And you let go in precise proportion to your desire to have that happen. When you have an infant, you do everything for the infant because the infant can do nothing for him or herself. But as the infant matures and is increasingly capable of doing things for him or herself, then you pull back, right? You pull back, and every time the child develops the ability to do something, you allow them or encourage them to do it, and you don't interfere. So if your child is struggling getting dressed, well, obviously there's sometimes that you help them, but mostly you let them learn so that they can know how to do it in the future. That's better for you, and it's certainly better for them. There's a rule if you're working with the elderly in an old age home, and the rule is something like, don't do anything for any of the guests, let's say, that they can do for themselves, because you compromise their independence. And so as a mother, you pull back, and you let your child hit him or herself against the world, and you fail to protect them. But by failing to protect them, you encourage and ennoble them to the point where you're no longer necessary. Now, they may still want to see you, and it would be wonderful if that was the case, but the point is that you're supposed to remove yourself from the equation by encouraging your child to be the best possible person that person can be. And you sacrifice your desires, all of your desires to that, your personal desires, even your desires for your child in relationship to you, because you want them to move forward into the world as a light, right? As a light on a hill. That's what you want, if you have any sense. And so you don't get to keep your children at home because you need them. How do we come to know ourselves in terms of our personalities and, more importantly, potential? One of the first ways to come to know yourself is to understand that you don't. You can learn to kind of watch yourself like you're watching a stranger. So you have to understand that you don't know who you are. And that's not easy to understand because you think you know. But then, you remember, you can't control yourself very well. You're not very disciplined. You're full of flaws. Maybe you don't know yourself as well as you think. But it's hard to get low enough to understand how deeply it is the case that you are ignorant about who you are. Now, there's an upside to that, too, which also is that you're also ignorant about who you could be. And so the discovery of that, is some reward for the horror of determining who you actually are. Then you watch yourself. You watch yourself like you're watching a stranger. You watch what you say and you listen. You think, what sort of person would say that? And how am I reacting emotionally when I'm communicating in that manner? Is that making me feel stronger, weaker? Is it filling me with shame? Is it helping my confidence? Am I laying out a lie? Am I deceiving myself and other people? Am I adopting this personality at parties that is designed to impress and to amuse and comes across as nothing but self-centered narcissism? What are my dark fantasies? What are my aggressive fantasies? What is it that I'm willing to do? What am I interested in so that I'll spontaneously pursue it? What do I procrastinate about and why? What am I unwilling to do? What do I think is good? What do I congratulate myself for accomplishing? And what do I berate myself for failing to confront and to implement? Those are all incredibly complicated questions, and you don't know the answers to them. So that's the start. And then, in terms of potential, well, you'll discover a little bit more about your potential as you discover who you are, especially the darker parts of yourself, because then you discover your potential for mayhem. There's some real utility in that. The discovery that you're dangerous is such a useful discovery. It's actually something that strengthens you, because the first thing that a realization like that can, in fact, produce is the ambition to incorporate that danger into a higher order personality, and that can make you implacable. That can make you someone who can say no when you need to say no. That can make you someone who won't avoid necessary conflict. And so that's unbelievably useful. And so that's one of the potentials that you might discover. The other thing you do to discover your potential is to, you challenge yourself. It's like, take a bit of a look at yourself and think about what's not so good, that you could improve, that you should improve by your own standards, and that you would improve, and set yourself a little goal. Maybe you're not studying at all at your university, or maybe you're at work and you've got this stack of paper there, and you haven't looked at that damn stack for like a month, and you know that you should be, and you're bothering yourself at night because you're avoiding that. It's like, maybe think, I've avoided that stack of paper completely for 1 month. I'm quite a coward when it comes to whatever snakes might be hidden in that stack of paper. How about tomorrow I just put that stack of paper in front of me on my desk and I glance through it for 15 seconds, see if I can do that. It's like, well, you set yourself a goal of improvement. It's a humble goal. There's things you can do to improve, and you know what they are. And there's small steps that you could take, that you might take, that would put you in that direction. And then the question is, are you big enough to take those small steps? Are you capable of grappling with the fact that you're fundamentally flawed to the point where you have to break things down into almost childlike steps in order to manage them? And the answer to that is, yeah, you are. Most people have things they avoid, and they're afraid of. So I would say to some degree, it's the lot of everyone. People vary in the degree to which they've conquered that. And you do meet people from time to time who are extraordinarily disciplined. But most of the time, they've got discipline in exactly this manner, through slow incremental improvement. And then you challenge yourself. It's like, well, could I do this? That would be better. And you find out, and then you think, well, is there something slightly larger and more challenging that I could do that would be better? And you try it, and you find out. And as you try it and you find out, generally you get better at it, and you can take on larger and larger challenges. You take responsibility for yourself. That's part of standing up straight with your shoulders back. It's like, take on the world, man, but only at the level that you can manage. When you're ignorant and biased and deeply flawed and immature, it's where everyone starts. You don't want to bite off more than you can chew, but it doesn't mean that you can't wrestle with part of reality. You know, some part that's small enough so that you have a good shot at victory. And then you attain victory over some small part of the chaos. And then you're the person who's victorious over chaos. You're just a beginner, but that's who you are. And then maybe you can get unbelievably good at that. And you do that by challenging yourself humbly at the level that you're able to function. It's easier to understand if you think about a child that you're trying to rear properly, and you want to make that child, help that child reveal their highest potential, whatever that is, whatever that means. And what you do is you don't set them a series of impossible tasks in the hope of undermining their self-confidence. You form a relationship with them that is predicated on your interest in their highest mode of being. And then you offer them challenges that are precisely optimized to their ability, right? So they can do them, but they have to stretch. The two elements of their ability would be what they can do and how much they're capable of transforming what they can do. And an optimal challenge stretches you to the end of what you can do and then into the domain of how you can transform. You have to be humble and wise enough to understand that you might have to aim pretty damn low, especially in those places where you're not functioning well. And it might be so embarrassing that you can't bring yourself to fathom that that's actually who you are. You need the loss of that arrogant ego because it's precisely what's interfering with your movement forward. You know, it's part of the adversarial process, mythologically speaking, that stops moral progress. You're too proud of who you think you are to notice what you're like so that you can change properly. You don't want to sacrifice that part of yourself. It's probably associated with some delusion that helps you maintain a positive, although very fragile self-image, you know, in the absence of genuine effort. It's not to be recommended. So you know yourself by watching and paying attention. It's not thinking. Exactly. It's not imagination. It's watching like you're a snake. Because a snake watches like cold-bloodedly with no emotional reaction, just to see what's there. It doesn't allow what is wanted or desired to interfere with what is observed. So you watch yourself like that, as if you don't know who you are. Well, that's the beginning. And then you challenge yourself continually to see how far past yesterday you can push today and tomorrow, and to continually experiment with expanding the domains not only of your competence, but of your ability to increase that competence. The upper limit to that is proportional to the moral effort that you put into it. The more that's guided by the highest of all possible visions, right? The alliance with the highest of all possible conceivable good. The more it's accompanied by truth in speech and action, the more you will develop your potential. And I believe that potential to be as unlimited in the upward direction, more unlimited in the upward direction than it is unlimited in the direction that brings people to the political and social hells that so often characterize the world that we inhabit. And so you also, I suppose, have to be willing to undertake that as an adventure, because it's a hell of a thing to bear that kind of responsibility. It takes a person out of the ordinary. It takes them out of themselves. But there's deep meaning to be had in it, and it's...
Do you think he does nothing? Do you think school could run without a budget? We live in a greedy capitalist society, which you probably don't get. Guilt with this about economics.
The deflection.
Hey, hello.
I cannot hear you. I gotta change my settings.
Testing 1, 2.
Can you try again?
Hey, hello.
Hey, I hear you. Just off, I guess.
Oh, well. How's it going, buddy?
It's going pretty good. I just got off work. What's up?
Not much. I saw you responded to my TikTok video. I gave you a holler, and here we are.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, so, I mean, yeah, what did you think?
Well, I mean, I would say disagree with everything. That's why I reached out to talk, right?
Yeah, right on. So I made two. Are you a friend of the Andrew Tate one, or I honestly forgot the other one, man?
One had to do, I think, with the value of labor. I don't remember what the Andrew Tate one was, but yeah, we can run through both if you want.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so value of labor.
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like, I think the question was, how do you, like, what is the value of any of labor in an economy is generally, like, what people are willing to pay for it? Which usually correlates to the, like, supply of people that are able to do that particular job, and how many people want that particular job done. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but I feel like there's just so much more we're missing, right? Like, I feel like even just like geographically, if you're doing the same job in a different country, like your labor is going to be a different price.
Yeah, it could be, because the demand for that particular job might be different in different parts of the world, right? Like, let's say I'm a really good, like, ice fisher, and I move to Florida. I'm probably not going to get paid much for that job in that location, right? Supply and demand can change depending on where you're at geographically, changing, like, how much, you know, like, what time period you're in, or what the current demands of the economy are, right?
I mean, yeah, sure. I got to ask, are you streaming right now?
Yeah, sorry, I'm already streaming. Based on...
Okay, where are you streaming on?
YouTube.com.
I got you, okay. Yeah, I don't know, if I remember correctly, from the TikTok...
I can just play this down, it's like a 40-second one, or 45 seconds, so I can know exactly what you said, and then you want to do that?
Okay, sure stuff.
Okay, yeah, let me play it real quick, compensated based on the demand for your particular set of skills.
Why, what a great point, Destiny. Let's ignore every other material factor that determines the price of wages. Let us also avoid the topic of class analysis and inherited wealth. Looking at material conditions and the relationships of people and the means of production is just far too fucking complicated for this Twitch streamer. Jeff Bezos gets paid because he's super fucking skilled, and no one else could probably ever even do his job, ever. Dad used to decide who's the richest man in society.
Oh my god, your chat is so funny, bro.
Don't worry about chat. We don't worry about that right now.
And who's the richest man in society? That was old and archaic, and now we have a market which is new and innovative. And totally different. The market is rational and justified. Ignore any similarities to feudalism.
You don't get compensated based on power.
Okay.
You get compensated
I remember more about
based
this.
on okay, so it seems like in general, there's like a common talking point here. People feel like CEOs are paid too much, or that CEO jobs aren't harder than like.
Yeah, that's exactly my point. Yeah, actually, I'd like to further. I think anyone could do Jeff Bezos' job. I think in theory, like if you're given the resources and the time, you could. There's nothing stopping anyone from doing what Jeff Bezos does. There's nothing unique about Jeff Bezos.
Well, why doesn't everybody just start a multi-billion-dollar company?
Because not everyone has the means that Jeff Bezos has. I mean, correct? Like just.
Do you know how much money Jeff Bezos had when he started off with Amazon?
Off the top of my head, no, I could not name that figure.
Well, sure. Like my understanding, and I could be wrong, but way back in the day, Amazon just sold books. Like it was a small. It's not like he started off with like Donald Trump, like $100 million.
Okay, and again, I think like geographically, like okay, you're selling books, like in the United States, in the imperial core, like the geographic lends itself to another advantage, I think.
Well, I'm just saying, I think that Jeff Bezos was able to accomplish something that was relatively unique, even for somebody who was able to attend college and everything, right? I don't think you could say like everybody could be Jeff Bezos, right? It's probably not a fair statement, no?
I mean, I think anyone given the same resources and circumstances could in theory become Jeff Bezos. Yes, if you're born at the time he was, for frontlining the industries that he was, indeed, yeah. If you had the upstart, if you had the capital like he did, then yes, you could do it. What I'm trying to point out is that he's not particularly special for doing this. I don't think so whatsoever. And especially when you take into account like the actual work that goes on at Amazon, like I don't see him coding the UI on Amazon's website. I don't see him moving boxes. Like he's not actually doing the productive labor whatsoever.
Well, yeah, but all those productive jobs are a lot easier to learn than probably managing a multi-billion-dollar company, right?
Oh my god.
What?
I mean, I don't know, man. I think I'd rather be in Jeff Bezos' position. I think I'd have an easier time as an occupation as Jeff Bezos than working at one of those fucking shithole warehouses.
It's not about an easier time, or it's a matter of like how many people could theoretically do a given job. If training somebody to drive a forklift or be like a front-end designer or developer is probably easier than getting somebody that's competent enough to make decisions, the correct decisions for like a huge company. That's probably a significantly harder thing.
Dude, what decisions? What groundbreaking decisions is he making? See, I think you have this fable of what CEOs do day to day. Uber and some of these other very large tech companies have ran successfully without CEOs, without present executives.
Okay.
If you can have an entire company that's working, right, that's functioning, that's making money without a literal CEO, what is the purpose of a CEO?
Okay, well here's a question. If you think that a CEO has no purpose, why do companies have CEOs with public boards? If you've got a board of investors, why would they pay CEOs so much money to do anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think that question, there's a lot to that question, I think.
Well, let's think about it. So an investor sitting on a board gets money based on how well the company does. Why would they throw away money towards a CEO that gets paid a lot when they could just split that money amongst themselves?
Because in part, you know, like being paid to not do anything is central to the American economy.
Wait,
labor that is ultimately unproductive gets paid a lot more. This is from, again, I know you don't do books, Destiny, but this is David Graeber's Bullshit Jobs. That's a book that covers this topic kind of in detail, where there's a lot of jobs in this economy where you don't actually produce anything valuable, but you still get paid.
Okay, so that wasn't my question. My question was, let's say that I'm sitting on a board with like other people,
Okay.
and we're trying to figure out like how do we want to make the most money? Because let's get a little bit more fundamental. Do you agree that a board of people that all have ownership stock in the company, they just want to make money, right?
That is indeed one of their motives, is to generate capital,
Yeah,
yes.
So if they want to make money, why would they waste money on a CEO when they could just divvy that money up amongst
Why do
themselves?
companies waste money on middle managers, man? There's so many companies, banks, hospitals, universities have bullshit jobs. They have jobs that all across the country, there are companies that have jobs that don't produce anything, yes.
I'm gonna ask this question a third time.
My
I'm trying to
university-
ask, I'm trying to ask, why would a board have a CEO? Why would they pay money, exorbitant money, or give shares to a CEO? Why would they dilute their own investment? Why would they hurt their own pocketbooks to hire a CEO if they didn't do anything? Why would they do this?
I mean, in part, this is the organization of companies in the U.S. Yes, like
No, you don't have to have.
It's
You
like
don't have to
one
pay them a lot of
reason,
money.
I mean,
No, you don't have to. There's nothing demanding you to do that. You have to have a CEO for like certain. You have to have a CEO if you want to file like a C corp. Sure, you don't have to pay them a lot of money. You just pay them $1. Just make a random dude CEO, right? So I'm asking why, but CEOs get paid a lot of money in the United States to run these huge companies. Why would a board of investors pay money to a CEO if their incentive is to just make money themselves? Why would they pay money to a CEO?
Dude, I feel like I could answer this question at a better time, to be honest with you. But like, I still don't see this as a point of, you know, we're talking about CEOs not doing anything. That doesn't actually, you know, counter my point. You're asking why would they pay someone? Well, okay, I don't have the whole story of like why do CEOs get paid such ceremonious amounts?
Well, the answer, I'm gonna give you an answer.
In that capacity. But what's your answer? Okay.
The answer is because these are people that are in charge of leading companies and making like incredibly costly decisions that could either be massively beneficial or massively detrimental to how the company functions or operates, right?
Okay. And if again, if a CEO is so vital and necessary to the function of a company, explain to me how a company like Uber runs without multiple executives. Because
I know what you're talking about. So Uber has a CEO. I know what you're talking about.
Yes, right now, but I'm implying they went through a period without multiple executives.
You can probably have some period of time where you're looking for new executives, but ultimately you want some. I mean, a car will run if the driver passes out for a few minutes before it drives off the road. Like, what do you mean? That's not an argument for me.
Okay, a driver passing out again is a lot different than an entire company working, right? There's a lot of moving parts there.
Yeah, the CEO
a lot of cars in the case of Uber, a lot of cars.
The CEO of a company isn't like running the day-to-day like line level stuff of a company. I'm sure the company could run for a while without, just like a restaurant could probably run for a little bit without a supervisor. It could run maybe a bit longer without any managers, probably a bit longer without any store owners, right? The higher up you go, the longer you could like have that person theoretically step away before noticing. But like
what do you think happens when like the boss leaves, man? Like everything just falls to shit. Like I find workers are often competent enough to carry out their own tasks.
But their own tasks aren't enough to keep everything running.
Evidently they were in Uber's case.
No, because it wasn't just line level employees. There were probably still a lot of VPs and everything working in that company.
Okay.
We can use a restaurant as an example if you want.
Okay, I'm just gonna. The specialty of my knowledge here is specifically at universities, and universities run on a similar organization and basis as a lot of corporations in the U.S. The university pays presidents, college presidents, exorbitant sums, executives, exorbitant sums for people. Again, these are people who don't do much. And in the case of a college and a university, it's being able to say, well, this is our mascot. It's being able to provide patronage positions to people. That's one of the reasons, right? And that's a reason you can see at corporations as well.
Okay, are you? Well, you're going to university right now. What year are you? You're like freshman, sophomore, junior?
I'm a junior.
Okay, this is what I would suggest. Ask a professor and administration to write a letter to the school president and say, hey, what do you do for your job? I think the answer would surprise you. It sounds like you think they just sit in an office all day and stand in a chair.
I know what he does for his job.
You clearly think all he does is ask, just because you listen, but you don't know anything about what the jobs are of the people around you.
Okay, so are you saying you know more about the day-to-day life of my university president than me? And then again, have you read on this subject at all?
No, I know how businesses run.
Have you read on this subject at all?
No, but I know how businesses run. So
okay, so Jesse, I'm going to ask you, I have one question I really wanted to ask you since I came on here.
Yeah.
And that is, when was the last time you read a book cover to cover?
The last time I read a book cover to cover, I think a couple weeks ago, I read a book called The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis. And the week before that, it was Mere Christianity by the same author.
Are any of the books you read of political philosophy, political history, Destiny?
I just got a book on Wittgenstein I'm going to read. I've read Problems of Philosophy by Bertrand Russell. I read a book called Lying About Hitler that had to do with the David Irving case. I read a book called Against the Backlash that had to do with Boston and federal politics in the 60s. I mean, I don't know, I read random shit. Sometimes I read a lot, but what does that have to do with anything though?
I mean, I'm just saying, bro, because it's like you're telling me like you know more about what college executives do, and not only am I again living experience, like I know intimately, right?
Well, but you don't. I'm telling you without making weird appeals like what books you read. I'm telling you that if you don't think a school president does anything, you don't know. That's like a fact. I'm not asking you what books you read. You just don't know.
I'm not saying like literally anything, right? I'm not saying they wake up and then like that they just do whatever they want. But I'm saying a lot of their functions are ultimately hollow and I think unnecessary.
Okay, if that's the case, then why don't you start a school with no school president and make more money than anybody else, right? This is gonna go back.
Okay, so there's a lot of reasons, right? There's a lot of reasons. One of them is patronage. In the case of universities, you will see people receiving these positions because of patronage. I can give you a very specific example right now. Is that we have a Purdue University's president was a former governor of Indiana. How did he get on board how did he become Purdue University's president? But previously being the Indiana governor, he got that because he put the people at Purdue University's board of trustees on the board. It's political patronage sometimes. It's you're paying someone off.
That's my question is, what does he do as a job? Do you think he does nothing? Do you think the school could run without him?
I'm saying as a function. That's you asked what would be the function, right?
Yeah, so I'm asking, like, what do they do as a job?
You're paying someone a lot of money for not doing work. You asked me what was it?
Yeah, I don't know why you would pay. Like, these people could all be, if we live in a green capitalist society, which you probably could do, then why would people waste money paying like bullshit jobs in middle management?
Again, I invite you to read a book, Bullshit Jobs. If you want to understand why you would pay somebody, because I'll be honest, I don't know.
Bullshit jobs is like, that's like a pop econ book. Why would you appeal to this?
Okay, a little low key, yes, but it's certainly a great read on the economy. It's by a very acclaimed anthropologist, David Graeber. But like that's where I'm coming from, Destiny. And I'm like, you're just saying idealistic truisms.
I'm not talking. Wait, what am I talking about? Idealistic truisms.
You're just like, well, if we live in a capitalist society, and if everyone is out to make as much money as possible, well, the only thing that they would do is the thing that makes the most money as possible. And of course, there's so many other factors. And one of the ones I'm trying to bring in again and again is patronage, right?
Hold on, that's not the case. There can be reasons why people don't act like that. We haven't even begun the conversation. I'm just trying to ask if you had any reasons why. So like somebody could say, for instance, if you go to your job for more hours, you can earn more money. Don't people want to earn more money? So then why doesn't everybody work 60 hours a week? And you might counter, well, yeah, people could earn more money, but some people value other things like spending time with friends or family more than earning money. That's why they don't all work 2 jobs or 60 hours a week. And I go, okay, that's a good counter. So my question for you was, if you have a board of investors that represent people that own stock in a company, why would they choose to throw millions of dollars away at a CEO that's just costing them money when they just talk about money? There's got to be some reason why. And I'm asking you what that reason is. You don't have an answer, and you just don't know. But maybe you do have an answer, and then that would be like the next part of the conversation. We can talk about that answer.
I just told you one, for patronage, right? In the case you want to pay the university exec did something nice, so you pay him back.
I don't know how to engage with that. Can you give me an example of this?
I just gave you one. The president of Purdue University right now.
So you think that the president of Purdue University like doesn't do any work? He's only there because he gave the school something?
Bro, okay. Let's define like colloquially work, right? I really wouldn't consider it work if my job was board of trustee meetings, meeting with alumni, throwing parties, doing speeches, showing up to fundraiser and student events. That's not really like work. You know what I mean?
So you don't think he adds any value to the school that justifies him being the president? I don't know anything about it.
I think he adds significantly. I think university presidents across the United States and CEOs and executives of all kinds add very little to their organizations compared to how they're compensated. Yes, obviously.
Then why do people waste money on him? Oh, you said it because of patronage.
Well, I mean, one reason, but the other reason is like explicitly like this is a capitalist hierarchy, right? There needs to be people.
That's not what the capitalist hierarchy is. There's nothing to do with capitalist hierarchy.
That has nothing to do with capitalism. People getting paid more for not doing work.
No, there's nothing to do with capitalism.
Like that, the economic system. Let's be clear. The economic system of the United States has nothing to do with how people are paid. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, paying paid more to do less work is not capitalism.
That is capitalism. Yes, you're paid more to do even less. Please read a book, Destiny.
Can you give me an example of a book that you've read that's not a pop econ book written by an anthropologist about economics?
I mean, plenty, man. Like, I think I made some videos about Vosh, but
wait, hold on. You're appealing to an authority you don't have. I don't know why you keep doing this to me. We can have a discussion about economics without having to cite a book. And when you're giving me a pop econ book written by an anthropologist, it's pretty controversial. And then you're trying to like pull that as
controversial. You haven't even read.
Any pop X book is going to be controversial, probably for oversimplifying.
Dude, David Graeber's work is you're questioning his integrity without knowing a thing about the author. You haven't even seen the cover of the book and you're judging, bud.
I'm not judging. I'm asking you to give me.
David Graeber's History of Debt. I mean, like that book is conclusive. I don't know, bro. Like he has good work. I value his work. You should go check it out before you're gonna sit here and bullshit me and say, oh, well, this pop econ book. That's so like what?
What is your major?
The deflection.
You just like the whole conversation. I'm just gonna major in.
Sociology and political science.
Okay, if you're writing a paper in a poli-sci class, you can't just say go read this author. I'm pretty sure it's part of your. I don't know, because I'm a college dropout, so maybe I didn't get this far. And you guys write advanced papers, I don't know. But my guess is going to be that if you have to write in a given class on a given topic, you probably have to cite the ideas and the justifications for those ideas of the authors that you're reading gave you. You can't just say like, oh, what's the answer to this? Oh, well, go read.
Man, you also caught me at 11 p.m. after work. I could go crack open the book.
The fact that you're telling me you have to crack open the book.
I want to do something a little off the cuff, and I'm saying if you want the best, you're gonna have to catch me another time, or you're gonna have to read the source material yourself. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. Okay. I'm not trying to dodge you.
Gotcha.
Be clear.
Okay. Are you in like some Pell Grant stuff, or are you actually paying out of pocket for school?
Do I have to disclose my finances on stream?
You don't have to, but I was gonna say if you're paying out of pocket, you should just flunk school now and don't waste your money on a degree. You're just gonna tell people to read a book because you can't communicate a simple idea to somebody. I don't know why you would go to college and then we have a debate against somebody that's a college dropout. Your appeal is, well, go read this pop book. It wasn't even assigned in any of your classes. I don't know why you would appeal it. Like, if you're a junior in college and you're doing a sociology degree, why don't you tell me an educated person that can give me an educated answer? Well, I don't understand. I'm just saying save the money, read Wikipedia, do what you do.
Hey.
Okay, what a fucking waste of time. Which means the only way to deplatform him would likely require imprisonment or death. Hey, if you see death threats about me, you should report that too. These people are fucking insane. But keep in mind the difference now between what you were saying before and after, right? Before it was I woke up to an assault rifle in my face. Now it's I was in custody before they ever even came to my apartment.
She was woken by barking orders of a police officer.
Oh no! Jesse didn't know this! Oh no, wait, did you not know? Brianna's gotten plenty of opportunities to come to stream. She's a bad faith actor. She has no desire for actual conversation. All she's done is take cheap shots at me on Twitter for like the past week without having any clue about what she's talking about. She's had plenty of opportunities to come on chat. She'll never take any because she knows she's wrong. Keffel said that she didn't want to come on chat because she'd make money off of me. I offered to donate $1,000 to any trans charity of her choosing, except for Keffel's. If she would come on chat, and they all avoid it. Like it's pretty obvious when people are just operating in bad faith. When you say bad faith for you guys just think it means somebody that disagrees with you. But I mean like intentionally propagating like disinformation with no desire whatsoever to be even remotely accurate. She's just like peddling a narrative. You know what Keffel's is basically telling you threatening to dox her family? Yeah, basically anytime I say I'm going to cover anything related to her story, she always tries to get out of it by saying like, oh, by talking about this, you're spreading information about like Kiwi Farms or my docs or anything, so you're trying to dox me. That's how she just always has it like angled that way. Do you think these people actually know they're wrong? You know what? For a lot of them, actually, I think they do. For the leader people, like I think Brianna, no, they do. I think I said this before. If I'm trying to figure out how what a person thinks, I try to envision like what would they do if they had another state of mind. So if I think of the Brianna Wu person, like let's say that she does know that she's correct and she knows she's right. Let's say that I assume that she really does know that. What would you do if you were Brianna Wu, right? Initially she offered to talk to me. I think she's pretty attention hungry. They all are, right? Why wouldn't you jump on my stream and shit on me? Like she's already like a semi-public figure. She's kind of been before. She's on Twitter doing it. Like it seems like that would be pretty reasonable to like jump in and engage. If you're gonna do that much on Twitter, maybe no. But when you do these things, where you take like, what if she wasn't lying? Or I'm sorry, what if she wasn't being honest? What if she thinks that she actually might be completely full of shit? Well, then what would you do? You know, well, you probably just take some cheap shots at Twitter and find every possible excuse under the sun to avoid an actual conversation, while you just continue to shitpost about it. Probably would be my guess. So I think like when I try to conceive of like possible states of mind, I'm pretty sure she knows that she's lying. I know that Keffels knows that she's lying. Keffels' behavior. I think that's why every single time I get on Twitter, notice that Keffels is immediately like spam. Notice that Keffels is immediately like spam tweeting about me, like incessantly. Like I think the last time she did it, she even said she was stepping away from the computer for a few hours, and then I started tweeting. She comes back immediately and tries to like spam report my thing. I think the reason why she's doing that is because she knows that she's like caught herself in a ton of different lies. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Keffels knows. There's other information too that kind of points to the obvious fact that she knows she's lying as well, but that'll come out later. Why did she even agree to the conversation in the first place? I think because she only seen a little bit of stuff, so she probably thought that she was in the right, but then when people started linking her stuff, she probably quickly realized that she only had like half of the story and decided to shut the fuck up. You think the video she's going to do about her controversies was getting her manifesto? Yeah, she's petrified every time I start tweeting. I didn't realize now until we've compiled like so much stuff behind the scenes. It's actually astounding how much she lies. I think Kevin is probably the worst person I've seen on the internet that's gotten to this level of fame. In terms of like amount of lies and like destructive tendencies towards other people. I don't know if any Nazis I've dealt with or anybody else has even approached this level of like insanity. It's actually wild. I'm hoping that like I think having everything in one place I think will show like the depravity of this. But yeah, I don't know if I want to say anything else for now. Will the document never foresee new information? Well, I never foresee new information. Well, one, it's going to decide on how much I publish and what I've received privately that I trust. And two, I think there's a lot of stuff about Keffels. The thing is there's so much stuff out there that I don't know who knows what's true or what's not true. Or I don't know if people know what's true and what's not true, so it's probably all out there, but it hasn't been like put together in a coherent format yet. I don't fully understand, is alluding to the website abandoned because it might look like the sub is using it? Because what Keffels is going to do is Keffels is going to try to get people in my community to link to or refer to that website, and then once they do, she's going to be able to link logs of my chat saying, oh my god, look, they are trying to dox me. That's her goal. That's what she wants to do. So anybody that's alluding to or anything like that, I'm just going to permaban. Anybody that's asking anything like that. What makes you think the document will be so undeniable that they won't be able to ignore it and not address it in any meaningful way? A couple things. So one, internet strategy. So Keffels is actually a relatively low impact person. She just manages to stir up a lot of drama around her narratives, but she is unbelievably unlikable. And she's a bad communicator, and she's pretty stupid. So do you see how she's lying? Why would you lie about this? Like, why would she avoid bringing up the website? There's two huge problems with this. One, as we're gonna see, is you might get caught in a lie, which is really scary. So like the way that this carries over is like she stirs up a lot of attention on Twitter because of the narratives that she sells, but she doesn't really have like a big dedicated following anywhere else. Like she doesn't get any YouTube engagement. Her streams are like pretty meh. She's like 1,000 viewers, which isn't horrible. But yeah, the only way she really stays relevant is through conflict that is heavily identity-based. Like, nobody gives a fuck about Keffels. People care about the trans activist who's getting doxxed and harassed. But they don't actually care about her. They don't like her, know her. And when she talks, she's like just very stupid. She's like stumbling over herself constantly. So I think that Keffels tries to keep herself alive through conflict. And I think as the conflict kind of ebbs and flows, she's basically always like seeking new targets. Like she's looking for new people to glass, basically. Because if she's not like destroying something, then she just has nothing. So I think with that being said, I think that I need to make more of this shit. What was the question? The question had to do with oh, how will this? Oh, I think having all this information. Oh, I'm sorry. I've watched the way that she appears in other communities. It even happens in Vosh's community, and it happened on H3H's community. I think that this is part of my new Hopium arc that I've been on for like the past few months. I think there are a lot of people. I think that when we look at certain narratives, especially around like trans activism, we kind of assume instantly like, oh, it's all lost. Oh, trans narrative, we lose, right? But I don't think that's true. I think especially around the Keffel stuff, I think there are a lot of people that genuinely just want to know. There were a lot of people in H3H started. I can see in Vosh where people are like, so why do people hate her so much, or what's going on? I think people are genuinely asking these questions. I think if you could point them to something and say like, hey, like here you go. I think it would actually be really helpful. And I don't think that type of thing exists right now. All you can really point to are like tweets or random Reddit posts or random YouTube videos, and it's not very satisfying, I don't think. So that's another reason why I think having like all the information like compiled in one area I think would be really helpful. You think even Alan video would be too long to capture widespread attention? My goal is not to capture like super widespread attention. Or I think that'll happen, but it'll be a byproduct of what I'm doing. Well, will it capture widespread attention? I'm not sure. I just want to have something out there. I don't think I need widespread attention. Like, I'm trying to think if I should reveal my goals. I don't really have to be like secretive much because like the truth is out there. I don't really need to it's not like I'm hiding anything. We've already archived like almost every single thing she's been involved in, so it's not like she can. There's nothing for her like lose her way out of. I will say I'll give away one of my 3 goals because I've already kind of mentioned it before. Who just joined?
Unsolicited advice time. Did you already say it?
What? Oh fuck. Say what?
You already say what you were deciding if you could say it or not?
Well, I just don't know how much I want to be for entertainment.
Okay, then I would. Oh, is it only for entertainment? Is like you're not worried about that massive army having the chance to build a counter narrative?
That's not possible. Okay. When you guys talk about like narratives and counter narratives and all that shit, she's just wrong. Like there's nothing that she can do at this point. Like everything's already been said and laid bare out there. It's just a matter of me putting together the story. She's lost at this point. Like I'm bragging that I'm gonna like do a crack effort to get this done in like 1 or 2 days. But the hard part's just gonna be like writing it, making it sound good. Like that's it. Like all the information is out there and it's like super parallel. Like she's lies about everything. Like yeah, so I'm not worried about them like getting ahead of anything. There's a reason why there's a reason why you can kind of tell. I'll get away this much, okay? There's a reason why every time I start tweeting, she gets like fucking jihadist about like trying to shut me down on Twitter. Like tweeting people, please don't talk to them. Tweeting people like please ban them, please ban them, please ban them. It's because she's fucking petrified of anybody saying anything against her. Like I don't think she'd be acting that way if she wasn't like ultra fucking paranoid that like her shit's gonna get fucked.
Yeah.
So no, I'm not worried about her like getting ahead of me. She can't get ahead of me. This one. It's too late for her.
Did you wonder how that Brianna Wu moment played out? Like, do you think someone called her, texted her? Like, do you think
Brianna was already predisposed to hate me. Here's what I think happened. I can't tell 100%. So she's already predisposed to hate me. I probably already get like associated with a lot of like Gamergate-esque stuff. But when she initially heard about me, she probably had a whole bunch of really wrong information. She started tweeting out way too confidently, as a lot of these dipshits do. And then as soon as I started to respond, other people started to reply. She realized that she was probably wrong about almost everything. So from there, she latched onto one stupid claim, which was like, you said this was the most progressive police force. Like that's the only thing she wanted to talk about. And then 2, she started to avoid all conversations with me because she probably realizes that she's full of shit. And now her goal is to just like meme, disengage, meme, disengage, meme, disengage. And that's all she wants to do.
Oh yeah, but I was more talking about like Keffels herself. Like, because remember she had tweeted sometime.
Keffels might have tweeted and DM'd her, but I don't know how much that would have mattered. I think that like Brianna Wu even was like talking to people in emails and shit, trying to say like, oh, like I'll talk to Destiny, but it's not gonna be about the Keffel stuff. Like the total fucking loser.
Right, but then Keffels appears, right? Because you just said I'm going offline, I'm logging off, blah blah blah. So
she appeared as soon as Brianna Wu and I started fighting, I think.
Right, which is like I'm wondering if someone like was texting her or people just started tagging her saying, hey. hey, Brianna's about to talk to Destiny. I want to know how like she found out and what her reaction was.
Oh, I imagine she's probably the same as me. She's got a ton of people that like send her DMs about stuff going on online. Like anytime somebody's tweeting about me, I'm getting like Discord messages, Twitter DMs, emails, like all the time. People always keep me alert and shit.
Yeah. Do you see my DM? Don't say it out loud.
Kind of please start getting a statement. I'm not gonna reveal any of that stuff. Seems Vash's sub is turning on Keffels now. It's always hard to tell. Vash's sub has always been kind of iffy on her. I can tell, but there's a couple ultra dick riders there that push Keffels shit really fucking hard. It's super cringe. I know the guy's name, or like I know his profile pic if I saw it. Oh my god, it might be a mod. I don't know, but Jesus Christ, he rides so hard. Oh wow, wait, maybe Keffels went too far even for this person. Holy shit. I know I recognize your name. Oh no. Wait, is this a psyop or is Keffels going? Because I know I've seen this person shitpost about a ton of Vash's subreddit. Looks like the sub got looks like this thread got raided by Spam's lame. The two both are shared on the polar opposite of DGG. That's true. I know I recognize your name, true. But doesn't mean I haven't seen it. I would take her word over Destiny's any day. I generally trust this acquisition I was proof for, even for my closest friends. Ooh, uh-oh. Was her claim about leaking her docs in reference to anything, or was it just a complete lie? If Keffels doesn't post proof of something, you can be assured that what she has said is a total lie. That is par for the course for her. She lies about almost everything. When Keffels talks about me leaking her docs, what she's referring to is when I posted her a link to her Kiwi Farms thread in my chat in response to accusations that my chat was harassing and doxing her. I've only posted in my chat one time. I didn't even post to the page with her docs on it, but that is the only thing she could ever possibly refer to. I've never posted her docs. I've never referred to her docs. I've never told people the site that it's actually posted on. I've never threatened to do it, like anything like that ever, never. So whatever she's referring to there, it's always just related to that bullshit. And the only reason she does it is to try to get me silenced, is because she's scared of me opening my mouth. That's why. A post that was made on my subreddit was just calling out how ridiculous it was that people accused our communities of having crossover, because my community is like very pro-trans. I got a ton of trans people in my community. And it was people were just saying that, like, Kiwi Farms is a fucking insanely transphobic place. It's crazy to think that people think there's a huge crossover between that community and my community. That's why
I never swear what Keffels was saying with what I see.
Yeah, of course. Well, and also, here's my comments in my chat. This is exactly what I said when Keffels is saying, like, I'm linking to her thread. This is why I was making those comments. So I'm just reading my logs. If she wants to blame my community, go for it. But she's actually fucking schizophrenic if she thinks even 1% is coming from us, aside from reporting shit. It's 100 million% obvious that the harassment is coming from there. And then I link to her thread, not to like directly to a doxing, but I just link to the thread. And I say she has over 400 pages of thread on her Kiwi Farms. She has zero evidence, because at this point she was accusing my community of being the one harassing her, when she obviously has a huge KF thread where all the harassment is coming from. That's why I was like talking about it in that context. I wasn't just linking it like, oh, go here, go dox or whatever. Blah, blah, blah. Like I would never do something that fucking stupid.
I have made a Keffels thread, March 26th.
Also, she's saying that other journalists are aware of the actual site that doxed her, which I'm going to reiterate, we're not doing that. We're not even going to mention the site, and if you ask her, you can get banned. But I believe that she's lying about that as well, because every time journalists are referring to her getting doxed, they only refer to Kiwi Farms. They never seem to refer to any other websites that might have been behind it. After previously sharing my docs, oh, that's fake. Jesus. There's one problem. Destiny's prolific ban evader, which means the only way to deplatform on him would likely require imprisonment or death. Hey, if you see death threats about me, you should report that shit too. These people are fucking insane. Do you think your doc will have any slam people's opinions of Keffels? I think people just need a cohesive narrative to understand why she's like an actually like horrible human being. Especially I think with like the 8chan founder turning against her. I'm quoting a little bit here, or I don't know 100%, I don't follow this shit, but supposedly that 8chan founder is like a huge, do I want to say SJW? But apparently since leaving 8chan, he's like made it his like mission to like fucking take down hate sites or something, or he hates like Kiwi Farms and shit. So the fact that it's a guy, right? The fact that that person is like now I think anti-Keffels, right? After his tweets about her like backstabbing or whatever, who are her biggest allies? Keffels has no allies right now. I kind of got a little bit. We got a little bit blackballed in the media for a second, but I don't think I'm actually super blackballed in the media. I think the issue is, I think the problem is, she has like 2 or 3 close journalist friends. One was that Taylor person, and there's another copywriter, I think. I'll get more into this in my talk. But I think it's just like 2 or 3 shitty people in the media that were like friendly with her, and I think through those people, she was able to springboard a whole bunch of really favorable coverage from other outlets. I think that if those people are forced to retract or rescind or clarify parts of their stories, I think that she loses a lot of her kind of like grip of the media. He literally made new accounts on Twitch and even tried to butt in on other streamers trying to work his way back in. He's done this for multiple levels, he's done it for multiple platforms. When have I ever done this before? Is there any way for us to help in general? Yeah. If you see something, say something. Unironically, if you see people spreading bullshit or lies or misinformation, you should post about it. Or call them on Twitter. Say, hey, that's not true. Or do the Vapor thing. Say, source. Do that. Hit him up with that source. Why not ask during the Medicare Josh stream coming up? Because as much as people try to say, I don't like Kiwi Farms. Don't like them, don't necessarily support them. I'm not like a big fan of them. I don't know what Medicare or Josh are planning on talking about. I'm not there like trying to help rebuild the site or anything like that, even though that's what Keffels try to paint me as. So if they want to try to do stuff, that's fine. If I have something relevant to talk to Josh about in the future, I would. Like if he wanted to, if there was something to talk about, but I don't think he likes me very much because I think he thinks I'm a pedophile. And I don't care for him that much because I just don't know. Josh said he'd never talked to you? Well, how long ago was that? 'Cause I think he might have been reconsidering it, but...
So,
oh my God.
one of the last things that I want to address, people were trying to say this was not swatting because they did not do a dynamic entry, meaning they didn't break down the door and rush in, which I never said they did. They did not go into my apartment until after I was in custody, and they had a search warrant signed. They spent 8 hours searching my home while I was in custody. And the reason that they couldn't do that to begin with is because they needed proof there was actually a firearm. If there was actually a firearm that they saw when that initial interaction occurred, they would be a-okay to just go in and raid the place.
What is she even talking about? If they saw a firearm before the interaction occurred, what if they X-ray vision it through the door? Can somebody translate what she's saying? Maybe I'm just not paying attention. I'm sorry. Let me listen. I don't know what she's even saying right here.
They did not go into my apartment until after I was in custody.
Also, keep in mind, fuck. Well, I'm gonna bore you guys with the manifesto if we do all of our criticism right now. But keep in mind the difference now between what you were saying before and after, right? Before was I woke up to an assault rifle in my face. Now it's I was in custody before they ever even came to my apartment. Right?
They had a search warrant signed. They spent 8 hours searching my home while I was in custody. And the reason that they couldn't do that to begin with is because they needed proof there was actually a firearm. If there was actually a firearm that they saw when that initial interaction occurred, they would be a-okay to just go in and raid the place.
I don't even know what she's saying here.
That said, that's not what swatting is. Swatting is simply deceiving the police, so they dispatched their emergency response unit.
It wasn't an emergency response unit that showed up at the door, though. It was police officers with a fucking search warrant. It was police officers with a search warrant. It was an emergency response.
It has nothing to do with getting raided or not. That said, that's not what swatting is. Swatting is simply deceiving the police, so they dispatch their emergency response unit. It has nothing to do with getting raided or not. So like in here, responding officers conducted the initial inquiries, which culminated in their attendance at Miss Sorrenti's residence. Officers did not conduct what is sometimes referred to as a dynamic entry into Miss Sorrenti's residence. Rather, they knocked on the door, announced themselves as police officers, and occupants answered. Any attempt by uninvolved third parties to suggest otherwise is inaccurate and irresponsible.
Ooh, that's her, by the way.
And with that said, I would actually like to bring on my fiance, who was involved, who was the person who answered the door.
Yeah, no, I answered the door, and they make it sound like a very normal interaction. They, them, pronouns, by the way. So it wasn't quite that they knocked on the door and I answered. Rather, I was getting ready for the shower, and there was a tremendous pounding on the door. And I approached the door, and the keyhole was, or sorry, the peephole was blocked. And so there was this huge pounding, and I could not look out in the hallway. But they shouted out, they called out, and identified themselves as police. So I did not really have much of a choice but to answer the door when they're barking the command, "This is London Police, open up." And so, yes, I opened the door after they had banged on it. And as soon as I opened the door, they had bound it with a rope, so it could only be opened a little bit, but I saw lasers from rifles trained on the front of the door, inches from my face.
Hold up. What? How can you see lasers on the front of the door? If you're behind the door. Destiny, big mad that his narrative was dying. MacD, welcome to the Power Band Club. See you later, my dear. I'm also super curious. How do you see the front door inside the open door? Yeah. Do they use laser sights in Canada? Or does this person think that, does this person think a red dot sight will leave an actual laser? If you have a rifle with a red dot sight on it, there's not an actual laser being shot out of your gun. I'm so curious. Fuck, I really want...
And so it became this game of, Simon Says, stick your hands out into the hallway, walk out slowly, etc., etc. And I did, obviously, I complied. But the idea that they simply knocked and I answered is really not accurate. They pounded on the door, and they told me at gunpoint to exit the apartment. They were wearing all kinds of gear, and the only reason...
I imagine this could easily be debunked. I would assume they must have some sort of laser something, because there's no way that I don't know if I can say this person would just completely make that up, right? That would be so stupid. They couldn't possibly just make that up, right?
They didn't do dynamic entry. They brought the battering ram, the handheld battering ram. They brought that, but our building superintendent pleaded with them not to break down the door. So that's the only reason they didn't do a dynamic entry, which they very well may have. So...
Yeah. I'm really glad that you could say this part of it, because I wasn't awake. I was still asleep when all of that happened.
Yes, and so I had to wait in the hallway, and I knew immediately what this was about, because it had happened only a few weeks prior in Toronto. And I tried to tell them this, that there was no conveying that. And so they went to go get Clara, and I told them, she's asleep right now. She sleeps like a bag of bricks. You're not going to get her up. They actually had to go inside the apartment, like in our front foyer, almost right to our bedroom door, and they yelled at Clara while she was in bed. So she got up. They were saying, "Clara Sorrenti." Note they did not use her dead name at this point either. They said, "Clara Sorrenti, we know you're in there. Come out with your hands up." And she had been totally asleep. She got up and came out of the bedroom door frame, and at that point, she saw a rifle pointed at her. She had been awake she was woken by barking orders of a police officer. And so, yeah, someone did not wake her with a rifle pointed 3 inches from her face, but essentially as soon as she woke up...
Was I in a state of undress? I was naked, and I had to put on a pair of pajamas that was, like, on the floor before I could even go out to see the police officers.
They were graceful enough to allow that. But, yes, they most certainly had a gun pointed right at her within seconds of getting up.
Yeah, and it's just been really frustrating seeing this misinformation campaign about this, where, Clara's partner just opened the door. The police didn't barge in. They didn't have guns. They weren't aggressive.
Oh, yes, and when I saw them coming for Clara and they went inside and were yelling for her, that was probably hands down the scariest moment, because she was totally taken by surprise, and I knew she would be, and she screamed. And in that split second, I was like praying in my heart, please don't shoot her, because she was... she jumped. She was making a sudden move, and I was like, please, no.
She jumped. She was making sudden... How does this guy know all of this? Didn't they say they were outside? How do they know that she jumped and made a sudden move?
Did you end up calling the police?
I also like how she dropped the dead name part, too. So where does the dead naming come in? Because I'll do this when I do my manifesto, where we go side by side to compare, because she's got like 3 or 4 different versions of the story up now. Where I thought she said they came in and they were dead naming her immediately, but now it's, they rehearsed the story. Yeah, obviously they rehearsed it, yeah. But...
inquire about me?
My sister had while I was at her house, and, yeah, they had, they misgendered you while conveying information about you being in cells, except they actually couldn't tell us where you were basically all day. They couldn't tell us if you were at the courthouse, the police station, at the detention center. I saw you get dragged off, and I literally did not know where you were in the justice system.
Yeah, I still remember being in custody, and they were telling me that I would probably have to stay overnight in prison, because I needed to go to a bail hearing, but then they let me go. But I had no way of knowing this and no way of contacting anyone until they let me go. The allegations as to how Miss Sorrenti was addressed during her time in London police custody, using an incorrect name, her dead name, and gender. It's important that he said, well, I cannot confirm any conversations which might have transpired during Miss Sorrenti's initial arrest. And that's when it happened. The activity in the holding cells is monitored.
Well, but now hold on. I hope she's gonna get into this, because Alex, the person that she has on the line, said that they didn't misgender her when they initially entered the apartment. They called her name. Clara, come out with your hands up.
And I never made a statement about any bad things that happened while I was in custody. I would absolutely assume that when the police know that these things are being recorded and can be part of public record, they would be more careful with how they go.
Wow. So what, is she assuming that the cops were being transphobic because they knew they weren't being recorded? even though supposedly, according to Alex, they used your correct name and pronouns when they first entered?
About their business. Some people were saying the reason that my name got into the system in the first place was because prior to the age of 16 or 17, when I legally changed my name, I had a rap sheet, which is not true. This was my first arrest in my entire life. I have never been charged with a crime.
Well, then the police were just lying. Then I guess the police chief, whatever you call this guy, he literally just lied, I guess, when he made the statement then. Because I'm pretty sure that came directly from him. The reference to Mr. Rente's former name appears to stem from existence of prior police reports. When an individual comes in contact with police for a reason, entries made into our records management system using the name provided at the time. This report is merged with prior reports. Oh, or maybe she's gonna say it wasn't like a criminal charge, it was just an interaction I had with the police or something. She might say something like that, actually. Maybe. That's exactly what she's gonna say. It wasn't because of a charge or whatever, it's because of an interaction I had with cops in the past. That's what she's gonna say.
I've never been arrested before or spent time in a cell. And in the statement itself, it says, when an individual comes in contact with police for whatever reason, an entry is made into our record management system using the name provided at that time. That report is merged with prior reports, if any, involving the same person with the same date of birth. And I think I understand why it got in the system in the first place. Because I was going over, I was trying to think, okay, when is a time when a police officer took my information? And when I believe it was when I was 17 years old, before I had legally changed my name, I attended a pride parade, and I had a super soaker. I saw that there was like a hate preacher standing with a sign about gays burning in hell. So I started spraying him in the face with a super soaker. And he took the sign, he covered his face, so I started spraying his crotch with the super soaker. And a police...
In the United States, this is assault, by the way. I don't know. But so now it's starting to sound like she did have a kind of rap sheet, or she was at least arrested for something, but okay.
Police officer ran over to me and said that that's assault.
It is.
Give me your information. So I had to give the police officer my information. And I think that's how it got into the system, because I can't think of another time that I had to interact with police before then.
Wait, so she's saying that a cop took her information but didn't arrest her or anything? I guess it's possible. Do cops, I don't know, I can't speak to Canadian cops. In the United States, if they're putting your shit in a database, they're arresting you, at least. Or who the fuck would just take information and type it in somewhere and not do anything with it? Dude, where's Mantis at? Do you guys ever do this? Not always in the US. I know they'll sometimes ask for an ID and shit, but would they really write a name down and like enter it in some kind of database? If they're not making an arrest?
So, yeah, it's not assault. They let me go because it's a really silly thing to press assault charges for.
Well, I mean, it is assault.
Literally a super soaker.
Oh, I guess it could be for like a written warning or something, maybe. Who knows?
God, it was really dumb. So like, as far as I know, is there anything I missed, Alex?
I think that's really the main gist of the arrest portion, which was really the most traumatic in terms of, you know, having the guns pointed at us, the misgendering that occurred. Yeah, that whole arrest.
Wait, so when was the misgendering? Because I'm hearing different stories. Alex said that when they first entered the apartment, they didn't misgender. Pethel said that when she was in the jail cell, they never misgendered. Are they gonna get to the part where the misgendering happened? Now, supposedly that was when they'd written on the bags of evidence, but I don't think they've said that yet.
That is how it happened. It wasn't straight up dynamic entry. They didn't knock the door down, but they didn't come politely knock, and then I answered the door, and I did not say, oh yes, officers, please come in. That's not at all how it happened. And the police statement might lead you to believe that, but it was arguably a really substantial omission on their part.
Yeah, I mean, their statement is a PR statement at the core of it. I don't expect them to acknowledge how bad the situation actually was, and there's no way of verifying it besides first-person testimony because there's no body cams in the London Police Service. Yeah, but that was like basically it. Everything that people are saying is just more misinformation. When the police chief himself is referring to it as swatting, when the deputy chief of police is saying there was no child pornography on the hard drives, and when it's already confirmed, I talked to a reporter with the London Free Press before I even started this stream, there is no body cam. There's no body cam footage. And I never at any point stated that I experienced transphobic harassment or any sort of abuse by the police while I was in custody.
Wait, does anybody have a link to her direct statement initially? Because I thought, like, the first one about, like, help, I need 100K, whatever the fuck. I'm curious what her verbiage was in that first statement. Also, where the fuck? There's, like, gonna be, like, one alien on this planet that's, like, cucking me out of clearing. Lakin just got shot down. You guys aren't looking at timestamp, are you?
On August 5th, I was woken up by London Police Services, pointing an assault rifle in my face at my home. I was told later that 6 a.m. that morning.
It's right at the fucking beginning. It's the first thing she says.
I'm asking when she talks about the misgendering part. It's right at the beginning?
Yes.
How long in the beginning?
2 minutes.
What?
In the first 2 minutes.
For 2 minutes. Okay.
Wednesday, Ontario, stating that I'm a legal firearm, that I killed my mother, and I plan to go to City Hall and shoot every such gender person I see. I was shown an email while I was being interrogated in police custody. Well, the emails were riddled with mad players and had more than something controlled to say than something I would sincerely say. The police took it seriously. Not only that, the email said my name was Clarence Renty, but also stated what my dead name was. It was not because the police humiliated me. During the arrest, the police officer referred to me by my dead name. I was booked in the station under my dead name.
During the arrest, they used my dead name. Does that not just contradict exactly what she just said? Am I crazy?
That I experienced, even started this stream, there is no body cam. There's no body cam footage. And I never at any point stated that I experienced transphobic harassment or any sort of abuse by the police while I was in custody. So I think that's it.
Okay. Yeah, that's all that I remember from the arrest. So I'm really glad I could be here to help clear the air because there's been a lot of bullshit speculation around this.
Yeah, it's really upsetting, and I already said it. It's just a speculation. It's people who only really have a vested interest in drama, and they're completely outside of. Most of them aren't even Canadian. They don't have any clue how any of this stuff works. I think one thing that was interesting in the same article where Amar interviewed the deputy chief of police, he talked to a criminal lawyer in Toronto for the past 15 years and said that, well, the show of force from the London Police Service is not uncommon. Given what was available to police, they should not have shown up at Sorrenti's doorstep. They were dealing with a massive threat here that they perceived as real, but they definitely should have been more diligent. And it looks like if they did a couple of computer checks, or if they made a couple of phone calls, this could have been diffused and discovered to have been false. So that being the case, I don't think it should have even occurred.
How? What is that? What do you mean when she says that? Like, The FBI have shown up to my house 3 times, but I don't blame them. Like, if you're getting people sending you videos saying I'm gonna kill conservatives and have guns and all this shit, and people are saying I'm like fucking kids or whatever, like, I don't necessarily blame them for showing up and asking questions. Like, even Ludwig was smart enough to say that he understands why when they get swatted, he knows why the cops show up in force the way they do. They kind of have to. Like, does she expect, if she really is making terroristic threats, does she think the cops are gonna call her, hey, just check, you don't plan on killing me, right? And she's like, no. Like,
Moreover, the lawyer noted that anytime you have this type of show of force, someone could get injured, someone could get killed. So it was a very serious situation. Yeah, Alex, thank you so much for clearing the air.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
This is going to be a long and complicated episode, Katie. I'm going to explain some things to you, and one of the things I'll explain by the end is why we just did 5 seconds of silence for the Queen.
We just had a huge argument about whether or not we should actually do this. I vociferously argued against 5 seconds of silence in the podcast. This better be fucking good, Jesse.
I just want for everyone listening to know, in terms of how difficult you are to work with, I was like, Katie, off mic, let's just do this, and then I'll explain. And then I think we did 15 different takes where you just, it was like playing the quiet game with a 2-year-old. And Katie Herzog, stay quiet for 5 seconds.
It's a podcast. People do not want to hear silence on a podcast. That is like death on a podcast.
It's like jazz. It's like jazz. It's the words we don't say.
All right, we fucking did it. You guys are right. This better make sense in the end.
Let's just get all the bullshit out of the way. Katie, what is the name of this increasingly cryptic podcast?
This is Black and Reported, and I'm Katie Herzog.
And I'm Jesse Single. Katie, what do you know about Keffels, Twitch, Destiny, Kiwi Farms, the Ulster Volunteer Force, the Irish Republican Army, and Cloudflare?
I am pleased to say all of these were you can be speaking Welsh to me. What the fuck are you talking about?
Okay, yeah, this is going to be a complicated one. So for the last month or so, a hashtag has seized the imagination of Twitter and the journalists who steal all their story ideas from it.
Journalists do that? No.
Never. Not us.
Not
other
us.
journalists.
Yeah.
We would never talk about a Twitter controversy. Anyway.
That's not real journalism.
The hashtag that stole journalists' imagination is hashtag drop Kiwi Farms. Katie, I take it you have some knowledge of this hashtag.
I do. I have seen it, yes.
Katie, Kiwi Farms has come up before on this podcast. It's a very hot button subject where if you say the wrong thing, people get mad at you on Twitter. So I'm going to ask you to explain what it is to our audience.
So Kiwi Farm.
why is Destiny allowed to just play the people's content? John Loney, I'm not actually. I'm stealing it. Vociferously. Report me to them.
It's basically a series of message boards. It is, like, visually, it is sort of difficult to explain. Like, get in a time machine and go back to, I don't know, 1998 and picture a website. That's sort of what it looks like. I've always found it difficult to navigate. It's a collection of gossip, rumors, oftentimes proven correct, and the users of Kiwi Farms, they're frequently, I think, mislabeled as right-wingers, as reactionaries, because they oftentimes, their targets will be, for instance, trans people, or like hyper online leftists, but they really aren't they're equal opportunity haters. And there's some, like, there can definitely be some bad shit on Kiwi Farms. I know a woman, someone I used to be friends with, who was doxxed on Kiwi Farms, and the reason she was doxxed is because she was married to a dude that Kiwi Farms hated. In this case, I will say, the guy she was married to was a Canadian,
ew.
Yeah, he was a Canadian white nationalist, like an actual white nationalist, and she was like incredible, she's like a trans activist, incredibly.
Wait, we must know who this is, no?
She's long been involved in trans activism. I think he sort of unveiled himself as a white nationalist during the course of their wedding, or the course of their marriage, but in this case,
during the wedding. If anyone else has any reason.
Yeah. So in that case, their target was this like legit white nationalist, but she also they doxed her house for some reason, and I saw it myself. So there are definitely some innocent people who get caught up in Kiwi Farms bullshits. But that said, it is also a place that you could go to get really pretty accurate dirt on other people, especially your enemies.
So so I'll quibble with a few things just because I've had to mainline this site in the last couple days to prepare for this. So that story you told of a trans activist being doxxed because her husband, the white nationalist, was doxxed.
And I should say she's not trans herself. She is.
You said trans ally. Yeah. Sorry, pro-trans activist. These guys love to make fun of people they find ridiculous on the internet. And
lol cows.
They call them lol cows, laugh out loud cows. Their whole ethos is you can milk them by just watching them and observing them and ridiculing them. And the ridicule comes in the argot of like places like 4chan and the darker corners of Something Awful. It's just riddled with slurs. The slurs often.
And Something Awful is
a very famous, very influential internet forum that like a huge amount of internet culture flowed out of Something Awful. It had like a front page.
It no longer exists.
Yeah, if you go to it, I mean, the last post was July 4th, 2020. There's all this backstory involving the founder, and I knew it growing up as like they often just like post comedy stuff to the front page, but there were all these forums I weren't in where a lot of big name internet celebrities in like weird Twitter spaces came out of the Something Awful forums. Anyway, Kiwi Farms, if you go there, it is just these forums making fun of people really viciously. There's also, I guess, normal like sports and politics and discussion forums, but like the main reason anyone knows what Kiwi Farms is they have these threads devoted to lol cows that are solely devoted to making fun of their every move. And like you said, there's also doxing involved. They will post their personal information, they'll post photos of their houses,
oh my
try to figure out where
God.
they live, do the same thing to their family members. It's like a pretty shocking and alarming place, especially if you're not used to the way, that 4chan lingo. As you also said, once in a while, they target people who should have dirt dug up on them. You can question their tactics.
Wait, you think only once in a while the people they target should have dirt?
Yeah, because they have like long threads on mentally ill internet micro celebrities whose only like harm they've done is posting weird shit to Twitter. This whole thing came out of an obsession with a guy named Christian Weston Chandler. Now I guess Christine Weston Chandler. It's impossible. You just need to Google it. Kiwi Farms was born out of an obsession with tracking this like very weird mentally ill guy who did. So
that's why Kiwi Farms started, was to track that one guy, or sorry, that one lady.
It was born out of the folks who tracked that one guy, and I think and
this guy this lady she's on trial right now, right?
I don't know. I don't want to say what you say what she's accused of.
Raping her mother. This is a trans woman, and I think probably like pretty disabled.
This is like a really absurd person who the folks on Kiwi Farms have like tracked and ridiculed for years. It's this weird thing where some of the folks who track it and make fun of him also claim to be. There's like
not funny. I don't know. There's a long story on this.
I'll call her her, but like there's some debate over that. But this is sort of the kind of thing Kiwi Farms does. That's like the internet celebrity that gave rise to all of this. So I think a small number of the people they post information about and dig up dirt on deserve it, and I'll get to that. But there's a huge amount of why do you have 1,000 threads on this micro celebrity on Twitter? So that's what Kiwi Farms is. It is not a friendly place. It's very toxic, but especially if you're someone who writes or talks about.
Wait, I need to issue a correction.
Yeah.
Chris Chan is not being tried for rape. This person is being tried for felony incest.
She was
That's a felony?
disabled?
Yeah, like an elderly demented.
Yeah. this really is the best place to start if you want Kiwi Farms. Anyway, the reason normal people end up there, I think, is if they're interested in like some weird Twitter or Instagram influencer or micro influencer. There's a lot of people where if you enter their username, you will find no information on them except Twitter and Kiwi Farms. So Kiwi Farms.
And this information tends to be pretty accurate, Jesse. Is that your sense?
Yes and no. We're going to get into that too. Often, yes, because most of what they do is just, or a large part of what they do is they just post people screenshots. Like they don't. One thing they don't do is like make up screenshots or make up utterances. They are fastidious and obsessive about like documenting everything and archiving everything. Sometimes they spread false information, and I'll explain the context for that in approximately 8 hours when we get to the second half of this podcast. So okay. This story of Kiwi Farms centers around Keffels. Keffels, whose legal name is Clara Sorrenti, she's open about that, is a trans politics streamer on Twitch who is very, very online. We'll talk about how online she is soon, but what matters for our purposes is that on August 5th, she was swatted at her home in London, Ontario. Okay, what's swatting?
That is when somebody calls in a false threat or something like that to the police, or there's a hostage situation at this house or something like that, and the police, like a SWAT team, will show up and you know, I suppose like they probably, I don't know, do they knock on the door or do they just like bust down the door, something like that?
Well, I keep saying we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Someone posing as Keffels, I'm just going to call her Keffels rather than Sorrenti. She goes by Keffels. Posing as her sent a really juvenile email to a bunch of local politicians in London, Ontario, claiming she had killed her mother and was going to go on a mass rampage killing cisgender people. It's a ridiculous email. It's crazy they fell for that, and assigned a pretty shitty law enforcement.
And this did happen, and Keffels didn't send an email?
There's no reason to believe Keffels sent the email herself, no. Okay. That has happened in the past. People fake their own swattings and harassment, but not here. Apparently someone else with a similar name, like Sorrenti, an older man somewhere else was also swatted. Luckily no one was hurt. So Keffels, that happens August 5th. August 9th, Keffels posted to YouTube a video titled, "My life is in danger. I need your help." The first thing she says in the video is that she was woken up to an assault rifle in her face, which is the scariest situation imaginable. Just wake up and there's an assault rifle in her face.
Don't you feel like you would like wake up before the gun is in your face?
We'll get to that.
Heavy sleeper.
Keffels is taken into custody. She says she's dead name. That is, the cops use her name from before she transitioned, and they take all her electronic equipment and hold on to it for a while. Apparently, like cloning some of it to sort of electronically search her. So this YouTube video she posts, "My life is in danger. I need your help," is accompanied by a fundraising appeal on GoFundMe.
And what's the fundraiser for?
Say it with me. We'll get to that. Keffels also launches this campaign to get the site that she believes is responsible, Kiwi Farms, taken offline. She really goes to war against them. There's a lot of tweets. Various other activists and journalists pick up on the cause and it gains traction. It isn't hard to know who to root for here, because on the one hand, you have a trans Twitch streamer who's an outspoken progressive and who was terrorized by having an assault rifle shoved in her face. And the other, you have, according to basically everyone, a bunch of like far-right, mouth-breathing terrorists. They're referred to as a terrorist website who despise trans people and seek solely to drive them to despair and suicide.
They call them troons.
They call them troons.
The Kiwi Farms parlance.
Troons, that's like the slur. I don't know if it's a slur. It's a derogatory name. They use it.
I think it's cute.
They use that to refer to someone, including Keffels, who they think is like trans for clout. In Keffels' case, it's a really ridiculous accusation because she's open about the fact that she had like surgery at a young age. So if she's chasing clout, she's doing so in a very expensive, medically intensive way. But yes, troons are what they view as clout chasing trans people. So
how old was she
when she transitioned?
Oh, yeah, I think we could pivot here to find out if young people are getting surgeries. She minor?
I believe she was 18. So yeah, here's an example of the sort of thing she tweeted from August 22nd. Julie Terryberry, Chloe Sagal, and David Neerginder, or Geiger, I'm not trying to pronounce it, were targets of severe online harassment from Kiwi Farms and took their own lives as a result of it. Then she tweets at Cloudflare and its CEO, Matthew Prince, and says, "Honor their memory and drop them."
What is Cloudflare?
Okay, Katie, this is a long episode. I don't want to skip the suicide thing. Let's get back to that at the end because it's complicated. But yeah, Cloudflare is basically a company that provides a layer between someone's website and its users that gives a bunch of performance and security services. So hashtag drop Kiwi Farms is directed at Cloudflare, like, why are you hosting these guys? Right. A lot of people around this time seem to think that if Kiwi Farms lacks the protection Cloudflare provides against so-called distributed denial of service attacks, that's when you just like shoot a bunch of fake users at a website. They think Kiwi Farms will get attacked very easily if it isn't being protected by Cloudflare. So without Cloudflare, Kiwi Farms could be in trouble. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, but it also doesn't make sense because like why go through? It seems to me like they're targeting Keffels is targeting the bouncer rather than the venue itself. Like why not go after the host? Why go after the company that provides security?
Right. Well, that's good because they want to go after the host, but it's like you need to kill the bodyguard to kill the guy inside the club, basically.
Okay.
As you know.
Yeah, I definitely know.
Live show's coming up.
Oh God.
So as this is going on, Keffels says she feels she's no longer safe at her home after the London swatting. She moves into a hotel. She posts to social media just to let them know, "I'm safe. Here's my cat. I'm in a hotel."
I'm confused about that. Why isn't she safe? Because she thinks that the cops are going to come after her again, or like because she's been doxxed and she thinks somebody's going to show up at her house?
I can see. Well, I think once the.
I mean, like Tim Pool gets doxxed like I think daily. I think it's like every day at noon he gets doxxed and he doesn't like move to a new location every time.
I think it's reasonable. If your address is out and the sorts of people who would dox you have your address, why wouldn't you go somewhere else for a little while?
This is maybe I'm just not security conscious enough, but this idea of like if I were doxxed, and please don't dox me, but if I were doxxed, I don't think I would change anything about my behavior. I really don't, because I think
there's a challenge to the many people who be pissed off by this episode.
Don't dox me, but like it's easy to find like we used to have phone books, right? Like this idea that the address that somebody lives in should be privileged information. I think it's pretty fucking new, and because I grew up in a time where you could open the phone book and find out where anybody lived, maybe just my attitude is different about that. Also, it's hard to get to my house because it's surrounded by water and alligators and orcas. I mean, I could be totally wrong about this, but to me, this like doxing sounds terrible. But I'm curious about how often somebody who's been doxed, somebody actually shows up at their house and it's like in a threatening manner.
Yeah, I don't know. I think especially if this hasn't, I can see that being very scary, especially after an actual swatting. Like, anyway, she goes to her hotel, she posts from it. Her online stalkers, including some at Kiwi Farms, proceed to use the pattern on the sheets and the fact that she's in a hotel in this town to figure out what hotel she's in from Google images of the hotel rooms.
Okay, so I've interviewed a number of people who have had like very credible threats made against them, and like I'm thinking of some ex-Muslim activists that I've spoken to, and I've asked them, to talk to me about this, talk to me about the threats. And when you talk to people who've had real credible threats against them, they do not publicly talk about it because that's the advice that you get from the FBI.
Because you don't want to make it credible and everything.
Because talking about these threats
and other people
tends to make them worse. It tends to exacerbate them. So I also have a little bit of a knee-jerk, like, okay, I've talked to people who like have real fucking threats against them, and they will not talk about it in public. So this idea that you should like post photo, like if you're in danger, that you should be posting photos from your location, to me just doesn't make any sense.
It's so stupid. Why is she posting any pictures at all? It's never gonna end. This one bug. It's never gonna end.
It's definitely, so this was just a photo of the sheets, but yeah, it's not good OPSEC, like operational security, especially if you feel
It sounds like she's never talked to an expert in this, like in the shit.
Either way, on August 21st, she tweets, "Hi, at Uber support. My account was hacked and had the password and email changed. Hundreds of dollars worth of food showed up on my doorstep. Can you please message me so I can remove my payment info from the hacked account and get reimbursed first? There's a photo of a lot of food, so now people are hacking her personal information and charging stuff to her."
And again, she does this publicly. She doesn't contact Uber directly, or does she? And that doesn't work.
She doesn't know this is
public.
there's no sign she contacted privately. Everything with capitals is public. She's a very public person, very members. She announces in that same tweet storm that as a result of this, she's expediting a planned move to Europe. In another tweet, that's part of the same thread, she again appeals directly to Cloudflare. At East Dakota, that's Matthew Prince, who's the CEO of Cloudflare. "This is why I want you to drop Kiwi Farms from at Cloudflare. Even speaking up about it has meant retaliation for me. They're going to keep trying to track me down, and you have the power to end this."
Okay, so all right, guys. So she's saying if Cloudflare drops Kiwi Farms, then Kiwi Farms will be like inundated by whatever threats, and then it'll go off.
She thinks. I mean, the weird implication here is that someone will attack them, which I think is illegal. But people seem to gloss over it. But yeah, she's saying I'm going to keep getting doxxed and harassed and like sent food that I didn't order and shit unless Cloudflare pulls down their protection for Kiwi Farms.
And this is of course all happening publicly. She's not going behind the behind the scenes to do this. This is all public.
As far as we don't know what's up with the behind the scenes stuff. But yeah, this is all public. It's a very public hashtag appeal. And then
of course,
not long after the hotel incident, another woman who's as far from Keffels as possible on the political spectrum, Marjorie Taylor Greene, is also swatted.
And this is because of Kiwi Farms.
The person who swats her gives the name of a Kiwi Farms user. It says like, "It's me, I'm swatting you."
Okay, so Kiwi Farms is good now.
Here's a segment featuring Greene on everyone's favorite cable news network, Newsmax.
But also the police report states something else fairly alarming, that the suspect claims that he or she is connected to this website, which is a site that actually supports cyber stalking. The suspect even gave police their username. So basically, as you pointed out, this is a suspect admitted to intending to do harm via cyber stalking. You said you fully want to prosecute whomever did this, and I'm assuming that suspect is still at large, right?
Yes, there's an investigation underway, and there's even an investigation into whether that's really the person that did this. But isn't it concerning that such a website exists? Like, why does that even exist? That website needs to be taken down. There should be no business or any kind of service where you can target your enemy. That's absolutely absurd, and this is the type of lawlessness that Democrats want all over the country. You know, the Democrats are the party of defund the police, which has created crime that is going out of control all over the country. But it's also failure of our government and failure of our law enforcement to not take down a website like that. Like, all of these types of groups need to be completely eradicated. They should not be allowed to exist. They should not be able to abuse police resources like that. And police officers, we need more police officers. We don't have enough right now. They need to be able to respond to traffic accidents, real emergencies, and calls where they've got to save someone's life, not be part of a prank or a potential, way to kill someone. So, that has to...
I absolutely love this. The Democrats are the party of Kiwi Farms.
Clearly.
She definitely knows what she's talking about here.
But this likely amped up the pressure on Cloudflare, because now it's like both a trans Twitch streamer, but also Marjorie Taylor Greene.
It's bipartisan. Everybody can agree.
The elephant in the room here is like, we'll get more into this too, but Kiwi Farms gets in a huge number of fights with like far right weirdos, but we'll get there. Anyway, initially, Matthew Prince holds firm. On August 31st, Cloudflare posted a long article by him and Elisa Starzak, head of public policy at Cloudflare, laying out his policies and explaining why it wasn't going to be in the business of denying protections to websites that request it. It read in part, "Some argue that we should terminate these services to content we find reprehensible so that others can launch attacks and knock it offline. That is the equivalent argument in the physical world that the fire department shouldn't respond to fires in the homes of people who do not possess sufficient moral character. Both in the physical world and online, that is a dangerous precedent, and one that is over the long term most likely to disproportionately harm vulnerable and marginalized communities." So they just lay this out as like, this is not a political thing. We can't be in the business of picking winners and losers in terms of who gets basic protection against internet attacks, which is like sort of, an echo of the classical liberal free speech position, right?
Yeah, that makes total sense to me. And also, I mean, it would seem like it would be a good business move, but I'm guessing that they got a ton of pushback from this.
Yeah. Wait, hold on real quick. If I do this F4 menu, check show enemy expansion candidate chunks. This will show you what an SR. Is that cheating? Wait, I don't even see what that is. That feels like cheating.
I mean, they did. There's a whole campaign to get them to drop Kiwi Farms, and it's important to point out that this is like a whole other level of the discussion about free speech on the internet, because it's one thing to argue whether Graham Linehan should be on Twitter or Megan Murphy or what Facebook's policy should be about scientifically questionable coronavirus stuff. Those questions, like whatever you think about them, and we're on the more liberal side of those, I think, those questions do come down to private companies making decisions about like who is allowed to be in their community. The folks who are okay with those forms of moderation or censorship or whatever you want to call it, they'll often say something like, if you can't follow the terms of service, Graham Linehan, go start your own website. Go find your own community where you can be as toxic as you want. But this is different, because when you get...
And then they try to get that one shut down too.
A, true. B, this thing with Cloudflare is different, because when you get into the territory of pressuring a company like Cloudflare to withdraw its protection from websites you don't like, Cloudflare is one of the backbones of the internet in a certain sense, and you're taking a very, very big step in the direction of like certain people just aren't going to be allowed to be on the internet at all.
Yeah, this reminds me more. I think it's more analogous to like pressuring Amazon Web Services to take a site like Parler offline than it is, Twitter kicking James Lindsay off of the platform.
Yeah, they're two different levels, but this is like a serious escalation of the potential threats to free speech from like big companies, unaccountable companies.
Yeah.
Okay, so August 31st, Cloudflare is holding steady, not going to drop Kiwi Farms. Then 3 days later, total 180. Washington Post headline: under pressure, security firm Cloudflare drops Kiwi Farms website. I'm going to read a little bit from that article. As Kiwi Farms has felt more threatened, they have reacted by being more threatening. Matthew Prince told the Post, "We think there's an imminent danger, and the pace at which law enforcement is able to respond to those threats we don't think is fast enough to keep up." Now, please keep that second sentence in mind for the rest of this episode. We think there's an imminent danger. The pace at which law enforcement is able to respond to those threats we don't think is fast enough to keep up. After Cloudflare's announcement, if you went to Kiwi Farms, you were blocked, and you got this very alarming note: due to an imminent and emergency threat to human life, the content of this site is blocked from being accessed through Cloudflare's infrastructure. That's intense.
Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning here that Cloudflare did hold steady until some mainstream outlets started reporting on this, and this is something that Glenn Greenwald has pointed out. NBC, they have their misinformation team. They published an article about this, and really quickly after that, Cloudflare gave it.
How is it so hard?
I didn't follow that side of the timeline as closely, but that wouldn't surprise me at all. Let me read a little bit more from an article on Ars Technica, which is like one of the leading tech websites in the world. We definitely had complaints coming in. Alyssa Starzak, Cloudflare's VP, global head of public policy, told Ars. But if you were watching even mainstream social media over the weekend, what you saw are some things that were really direct threats, some very specific information about things that were planned. That escalation is what started to worry us, she told Ars. That's really what prompted us to act over the weekend. This is now back to the reporter's voice. There was no time to involve law enforcement and allow for due process, Cloudflare decided. Again, everyone listening, keep that in mind too. There was no time to involve law enforcement. This was a new level of violence unlike that seen in prior high-profile cases. In those instances, Cloudflare waded through a legal process before blocking similarly hateful forums like 8chan in 2019 or the Daily Stormer in 2017. Then it quotes Matthew Price again saying there's an unprecedented emergency and immediate threat to human life unlike what we've previously seen before.
Okay, that's impossible.
There's a sense from Cloudflare that this is an absolutely unprecedented situation, almost historical on the internet. This is basically one of the most dangerous websites they've ever come across, and they had no choice but to yank it immediately without involving the authorities.
Okay, well, what happened? What were they talking about? What sort of threats were these? What were they planning on Kiwi Farms?
There's almost a complete absence of detail, with a couple exceptions I'll get to in a minute. But either way, this just continues as this like rolling or snowballing, or whatever you want to call it, panic, and it just gets more and more intense. So on September 6th, Keffels announces, quote, Kiwi Farms has been removed from the Internet Archive. The archives of all the threads that people made on Kiwi Farms are gone.
That's a huge fucking shame.
Under Keffels' tweet, the top response by @faceplant00, wait a minute, what? I don't even know what this Kiwi Farms story is about, but it seems like within a week the entire site was erased, deplatformed, depersoned, and even removed from the Internet Archive. Is anyone else concerned with the amount of power being wielded here? To which my only response @faceplant00 is, wow, way to be a literal fucking Nazi.
Yeah, right. Hey, I think we should probably explain what the Internet Archive is for like my parents listening to this right now.
Okay, yeah, the Internet Archive is basically, it's what it sounds like. It's the site, the Wayback Machine that you can use to check old web pages and how they look at different times. It's like a really important resource, and it is incredibly unusual for them to just wipe an archive. My understanding, and I did send them an email for comment, is they usually only do this if like you own a website and you don't want it archived. They'll honor those requests.
Yeah, I've done that.
For what?
For a blog that I kept in my 20s.
Oh, what was the name of the blog? Where can we find
I'm
it?
fucking telling you. Yeah, I had to take the whole thing down. Which,
Cringe alert.
From a journalist perspective, the Internet Archive is a really valuable and important resource because, for instance, like major outlets will stealth edit their articles, and you can go back to the Internet Archive and find them. This is a really important resource. From a personal perspective and the perspective of a blogger who made some questionable decisions in their 20s, being able to hide those archives is also really valuable. And there's some real tension here, you know. And I'm sort of torn about it because, from a journalist perspective, I absolutely don't think that that you should be able to sort of unilaterally decide that these things are not going to be archived. But from a personal perspective, and somebody who's you know interested in things like cancel culture, I can also see why there are things that are online that people don't want.
Now I'm going to try to track down. I bet the website was like, "This is America. We speak English here.blogspot.com."
It was killthewall.com.
I love that response from Faceplant because it's just so naive. It's just like the most basic, like, yeah, this is kind of weird how quickly this is happening. But I feel like among the journalists writing about this, it was hard to sort of, I mean, it's Twitter. It's always hard to like disagree with the crowd, but there's just very little questioning of any of this. And
yeah, Taylor Lorenz said that after it got taken down from the Internet Archive, it was a massive W, a massive win.
Yeah.
That is, and I do think that you can acknowledge the contradictions and the conflicts between like wanting to preserve information, but also thinking that people should have the right to some privacy in some cases. But from a journalist, to see journalists championing this was really disturbing to me.
It's strange because like as a journalist, you want access to information, and you should err on the side of keeping information available, especially in a case like this where no one at Kiwi, Josh Moon, who's the head of Kiwi Farms, will get to. He didn't want to take it down. So I think the idea is just it has so much harmful information that it had to go. But
by the way, Taylor Lorenz also she has also gotten her tweets wiped from the Internet Archive as an aside.
Really?
Yeah. You can just anybody can do it. You just write them and you say don't archive this, and they will not archive it. Anybody can do it.
It doesn't even stop with the Internet Archive. Like Saturday morning, I get an email that ISNIC, I guess that's how it's pronounced. That's basically the Icelandic internet, like any site with a .is suffix. They've booted Kiwi Farms, which had been running from the kiwifarms.is domain lately, although up and down. So this is now venturing like well outside my areas of expertise, but this is extremely unusual. Like in the case of ISNIC, the only times they've done this in the past involved the Pirate Bay, which like explicitly did illegal activity by like music and
dark web selling shit.
I thought the Pirate Bay, I thought they just like movies and music and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Right?
The Pirate Bay is just a torrent.
Yeah, it was like Napster. Yeah.
Okay, Napster is people's amazing. Not that I've ever used it. Other
Now
examples.
you just like search it on Spotify and it's free. You don't even need Napster.
Exactly. Yeah, other examples are like the Daily Stormer and literal Islamic State propaganda. So in this case, like Kiwi Farms is literally getting lumped in with terrorist websites. That's like the storyline. That's how dangerous things have gotten, and that's how evil and violent Kiwi Farms is.
And Kiwi Farms, they briefly reappeared under like a .ru name, right? That's a Russian domain name.
There was .ru, there was .top. They also put it.
What's TOP?
I don't know. They had a so-called Onion site, which is like a dark website you can only access via. I had to fucking download Tor for you people. I still don't know what Tor is, but I had to get to the website. You had to enter this like unbelievably long and random string of characters, and then /, and then it was just like the normal. It was so it's been. And sometimes very hard to access the site. So it's been sort of this.
And what were people saying when you were able to access it?
Interestingly, Josh Moon, who is like the most defiant, fuck everybody type of guy, which he doesn't help his cause with that, he shut down the threads about Keffels because he's just like, we're not going to respond to Twitter drama. He basically like, he was communicating with other Kiwi Farm folks through Telegram, which is, you can't really shut anyone down on Telegram, I don't think. And he basically just said they were in a precarious situation. And, you know, everyone,
so he's trying to save the site.
He's basically trying to save the site, yeah. And this is a site that has like survived past takedown attempts because they probably have more enemies than any website that isn't like part of a, you know, sectarian movement or religious movement. It's like loathed by probably thousands of people who have been victimized by it in certain senses.
And Jesse, so that quote from that the Cloudflare people gave to the Washington Post, this idea that there's this uptick in violent, imminent threats on Kiwi Farms, was that real?
I really don't think so. This is where everything gets even weirder. As far as I can tell, folks can only point to 2 posts on Kiwi Farms out of like 50,000 literally about Keffels that were violent during this period. 2 posts. Both of them are highly sus, as the kids say. That's the thing, right? Being sus.
Does that mean suspect or suspicious?
Are those synonyms?
I guess so.
Let's take them one at a time. Matthew Prince announces he's changing course on September 3rd, late in the day. Earlier that day, Keffels posted the following. Ellen, I should have said this, Ellen Murray is also a Twitch streamer. That's the friend she's staying with.
Did you just talk to her?
No, this is all public. That's the friend in Belfast she's staying with, or was at the time. Ellen is live on Twitch and told her chat she was planning to take me to a poutine shop in Belfast so I can see how Irish poutine holds up. Kiwi Farms users already mapped out every poutine shop in the city, and one of them posted this. She includes a screenshot of a post that shows a Kiwi Farms user referencing a URL to a poutine place and saying, just rang up a couple of lads down in Belfast and asked them.
Wait, you should moderate this Mr. Go convo. It's a dumpster fire? Hold on, go detour.
I feel like what I'm saying is this conversation is fucking retarded, and that Ariel being black means nothing to me, and it shouldn't mean anything to you. That's what I'm trying to get at, essentially. And this is really frustrating.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
Okay, I think the interesting things we could talk about are why do I want to empathize with conservative white people? And how am I empathizing with them? What do I think about this? Like, that's not a conversation many people are having. I think that's probably why people are watching. They're like, well, I want to see what Max is going to say. Like, you know, I'm left-leaning. I'm a Jew, and yet and what ways people say Jews will not replace us, like these people hate me, right? But still, I still have empathy for them, and I want to talk about that. I want to talk through that. I want to explain what I see. I want to validate what they're seeing, because I see some of the same trends and certainly some of the same values that they're seeing. It's not couched in the same like racist conspiratorial way as the far right, but like kind of normal conservatives who are white but I don't think are racist are still having a bad reaction. I want to empathize with them without lumping them in with. Like,
I empathize with people who are anti-woke and think that this is a cash grab. Like I said earlier.
Okay, I think that's one interesting thing we could talk about, but it feels like you don't. But I feel your palm pressing into my nose on the pillow.
I feel the same way with what you're doing to me.
The topic we agreed to talk about was my concerns about the Little Mermaid being black. We're not doing that. Wait, you're actually preventing that from happening.
Yeah.
Every time I say I have a concern, you say I shouldn't, or that the thing I'm concerned about isn't happening. You bounce back and forth between the two, alternatingly saying this isn't happening. Okay, it is happening, but you shouldn't be upset. But here's what I think's happening, and here's what. None of that is actually you listening to anything I'm saying. Or
because this whole time, I feel like it's been over an hour. You just got me to like agree to you with what you feel like is the overall progressive monolith, and you're like just setting all this stuff up, and it's not a conversation. It's just not.
Yes, this is just me laying down the premise before I've even started saying much of what I actually think. Because it took you half an hour to agree to the premise that progressives have a value, that whiteness that the urge to preserve whiteness is a bad thing. That is obviously a progressive value, and it's just like you're not even letting me lay out the premise of what I think. So I haven't really said anything. I think.
Well, you know, listen, I've lost patience with you, and I'm gonna go.
Oh no!
The other thing we could have talked about. Okay, if you start watching the stream after leaving.
Okay.
To plant bombs in all of these places. Also, 3 armed men will be at each place waiting.
That's a joke, right? Obviously, it's a fucking joke.
It's not. I mean, if this was about me, I would be alarmed. I guess the question is, do you think Kiwi Farms or anyone on it has the ability to summon like a paramilitary force to monitor all the poutine shops in Belfast?
Yeah, it depends on how many poutine shops are in Belfast.
I don't think any place outside Eastern Canada is a major poutine center.
It's Canada's only export.
Okay, so this brings us to Josh Moon. He's the guy who founded and runs Kiwi Farms, and he sort of has a supervillain persona that he absolutely leans into. After Cloudflare made its announcement, he did a post arguing that as soon as this threat was posted, it was immediately reported by members of the community, downvoted, and that the author of the post pulled it down just a few minutes after Keffels tweeted a screenshot of it.
So they're self-regulating.
That's what he's claiming. Another Kiwi farmer provided this approximate timeline where at 3:42, this account at Washizu Iwao makes the post. 9 minutes later, Keffels screen caps it. 2 minutes after that, Keffels tweets it. Then the post is deleted 1 minute later. This would mean that the post was up for a total of 14 minutes before it was pulled down. And it was pulled down by the author himself. Josh initially said a moderator pulled it down, but then he crossed it out and said actually it was pulled down by the person who posted it.
And Keffels must spend a lot of time on Kiwi Farms, right?
I think by this point in this conflict, a huge number of Keffels fans were monitoring Kiwi Farms to see what's going on there and to wait for something like this to happen. Because why wouldn't you, right?
Right. Is it possible that Wazuzu Awawao is a Keffels stan who wants to use this threat? Is this what's the word for this?
False flag.
A reverse cowgirl? Is that the word for this?
What?
Yeah, it's definitely a reverse cowgirl dating chain.
A fucking Pierre?
Is that a term?
Moon just basically argues like this person isn't like a real active member of the community. They only commented in the Keffels thread. Quote, this appears to be a sleeper account someone had gotten access to in July and kept on hand to use like.
I think it was a joke.
So that's what Josh Moon is doing with. This is not a genuine member of our community. This is like a false flag type of thing.
Okay, yeah, false flag. That's the word, not reverse cowgirl. Gotcha.
I think they're synonyms more or less. Girl, do you want a false flag? So what here's what right now. The precedent has been set at Cloudflare with enough pressure. A single post by a strange account can be made to threaten a 9-year-old community and the tens of thousands of people who have used it every day for years. I think the evidence at least partially supports the idea that this was some kind of false flag. I say that because you can just read the archive of Keffels' thread if you're a masochist and see that violent threats are not the style of Kiwi Farms. It's all just highly toxic ridicule, frequently using racial and ethnic slurs, often not in a way that fits. Like they will call one another the N-word, even when everyone involved is white. They do seem to have specific norms against interfering with their targets. They call it A-logging or touching the poo. Like you can see this if you just read the post, which I think a lot of people reporting on the site didn't do. It's roughly analogous to how in like 4chan and its spin-off communities, earnestness is a sign of weakness. Like you're a pussy if you have feelings about something.
Peace slur, Jesse.
You're a peace slur. I think you know that like 4chan name is like you mad?
Unironically, call Max Okie. Oh, that was the Okie guy. Oh, he wanted to talk to me. Fuck, I need to return his Twitter DMs. I don't know anything about anybody on the internet, dudes.
Do you know you mad? Like letter U mad?
What's the image of?
I think it's just like this trolly 4chan image. The whole ethos behind you mad is I'm the troll. If I can get you to react,
I got you.
Yeah, I got you. So from the perspective of Kiwi Farms users, or some of them at least, this is what they claim. Yes, we're going to dox these people. We're going to ridicule them. But
let's say you think it was a false flag. You think Chance Capital tried to do the same to GG? Yes, I already did a big speech earlier about that. That like I'm being ultra anal. That if you even jokingly make posts about like bombing anybody or doxing anybody, or you reference the actual website where her doxer post, you're going to permaban from my community. Ultra nuke ban. 1,000,000%. I do think that Keffels and her community will absolutely try to false flag my community. They probably did it to Kiwi Farms. They probably did it to other communities. I expect to see it in mine. If you joke about it, you will get fucking nuked. Just as a heads up. Even if you're a long time member of my community, I will nuke the fuck out of you.
If you fuck with them directly, you're A-logging. You're touching the poo, and that's frowned upon.
They should not do the doxing thing, because if they're just making fun of people, then there'd be no legitimate claim to shut down the site. They kind of fuck themselves on that. Also, it's wrong.
I was gonna say the same thing. Like, like if Moon was just like they seem to like sort of worship this guy. He goes by Null on the site, NULL, whatever he says goes. He seems so obsessed with the idea of being able to get away with everything they can legally, and in the vast majority of cases, it's legal to search for people's public information and post it. That he won't compromise. But you're right. If it wasn't for the doxing, if it was just another site making fun of everyone.
A post on the Vosh Reddit claimed you linked Keffels Kiwi Farms docs. This actually happened. In my chat, I linked Kiwi Farms one time. The reason why I linked Kiwi Farms is because Keffels claimed that she was getting harassed and I think doxed by my community, and I said no, that's not true. Here's a Kiwi Farms thread where she's already got 50 pages in like one day. That's the only time I never linked directly to her docs. I never encouraged people to participate. I only linked that to show that like this is where the harassment's coming from. It's not coming from my community. She's and Kiwi Farms is a banned term in my chat. Most people don't even know what the fuck Kiwi Farms was in my community. I think there are logs in my chat of me linking it. Oh, I'm sorry, it wasn't 50 pages, it was 400. Destiny, today, Keffel said most of the harassment she receives is from this community, so you're gonna play into that narrative. I don't know if she actually believes that or she's trying to throw you under the bus for everything. And I said, at Punished Fury, she's a subhuman cretin fucking filth lying about that. She has zero evidence. She has over 400 pages of thread on her at Kiwi Farms, and then this is the thread. And I said, it's 1,000,000% obvious the harassment is coming from there. This is the only time I've ever linked. I'm not directing people to go there and harass her. But, okay.
People got mad at me, but a lot of these threads are not that different from Twitter, except for the doxing and the slurs.
This is the thing that has driven me crazy about this site, or about the dialogue, the discourse about this site, is that I see people on Twitter talking about how Kiwi Farms, how there's these suicides, how it's death threats, how they dox people. And it's like, you are saying this on a site where that same shit happens.
Yeah, I mean,
Why aren't you trying to get
in
Twitter
some
shut down?
cases, the same people complaining about Kiwi Farms and celebrating getting shut down, I know for a fact participate in what can only be called harassment campaigns against people they hate.
Dude, okay, if people are pissed about Kiwi Farms doxing Keffels, the people who are outraged about this, how do they feel about Kiwi Farms doxing Marjorie Taylor Greene? I would really love to know, because I think they'd be fine with it, because Nazi's bad.
Yeah.
Alex Goldman.
Alex Goldman is a good example. He former host of Reply All, before that show melted down completely in a ridiculous controversy we covered that Alex would not lift a finger to defend his friend over. But he tweeted some shit about, I don't want to make this about our internet beef, I'll be brief, but he was like, oh, Jesse Single's defending Kiwi Farms, which I wasn't. Alex watched...
He also called me your much dumber host. I don't think, I'm just slightly dumber. I do not think much dumber.
Right, that's online harassment.
That's also elitist, just because you went to Stanford and I went to Yale. I think that's elitist.
Jesus, why the fuck are these guys so educated? Fuck me, dude.
Alex watched as all of media Twitter piled on his friend PJ Vogt in the most ridiculous, over-the-top pile-on.
Wait. Okay, has returned.
Like I said before I left, right? You're presenting me this kind of like monolith of progressive and just asking me to agree with everything. And anytime I try and like add any like context or nuance to it, you tell me that I'm changing the subject, right? So, yeah, it was frustrating. And you know, I took a second to kind of breathe and like I feel like I'm alright now. You know? Again, I like your content. You know,
I like your content.
So yeah, no hard feelings, I guess.
Yeah, it's a provocative conversation, and I've been told I'm
and cut the vodka.
Frustrating person to talk to.
Yeah, experiencing it firsthand is different from watching it. I feel like.
Yeah.
But yeah. I'm good to talk about like pretty much like the Disney thing. Like
okay.
Again, like the way I started it when I was talking about like I think that the whole thing.
Now, these are journalists writing under their own names, and they went to good schools, so they're not doxing him, they're not using slurs, but it's the same fucking shit. It's the same shit. They're trying to ruin his life, trying to make him destroy his reputation. And Alex briefly unblocked me, and we had a brief exchange that wasn't toxic. I flipped out because he said that we were gleeful. PJ got fired when we defended. It's the opposite. We defended PJ when Alex and anyway.
I said nothing.
I said a few.
And like, PJ didn't like us. We're not friends with this guy. Alex was his fucking partner, and he said nothing while PJ was being destroyed.
this is already such a complicated episode to follow, and we're adding a whole other thing. Long story short, I said to Alex also said that actually it's good to make fun of people who are racist or transphobic. Well, you know what? They decided your buddy PJ Vogt was racist. That was the claim. PJ Vogt was racist because of some fucking Byzantine Union bullshit at the and half of media Twitter piled onto PJ Vogt in a way where you don't know what someone's mental health is. Like, getting piled on sucks, man. To watch your entire community turn against you, that's the kind of shit that does lead to, it can contribute to at least, things like suicide. We've had instances of people killing themselves. It's not monocausal. You can't say it was because of the online harassment, but it's a contributing factor. So
when it comes to Kiwi Farms, when it's Kiwi Farms, it is monocausal.
Right. So that to me really captured. Watching someone like Alex Goldman, who was first-hand experience of his friend getting brutally raped over the coals for nothing, then saying, no, it's good to harass people online. Like, fuck that. That's why I found there'd be so much hypocrisy from the folks gleeful of this site being pulled down. Like you said, the doxing is awful. It also isn't illegal. And we're talking about the question of whether this site should exist at all, not whether you should go to it or whether we should like it or celebrate it. We're in like a more existential internet area now. Should it be allowed to exist? To me, that's where you get the question: is it doing stuff that's illegal?
And this is not like, go ask a normie on the street what Kiwi Farms is, and they're gonna tell you it's a place where kiwis are grown. That's it. Like, people don't know about this site. It doesn't have until now. It didn't have a high profile outside of hyper online spaces.
Yeah. So anyway, we got an email. I got an email from someone who basically was trying to defend the farms to me. I didn't agree with all that. I'll just read this one. Also, I'm sure you've come across this line already, but it is totally against board culture to interact with the Wotlk house in any way, let alone harass or threaten. Anyone who does post interaction in their thread gets the equivalent of download to hell, and the mods are quick to delete the worst. That said, there's a plausible deniability because you have 2,300 pages of people talking shit. about Keffels, the idea that combined with posting her personal information is not going to lead to some people harassing her is kind of ridiculous, is it not?
Sure, but like some people harassing her, I mean, I think there has to be a really clear line between like credible death threats, things like swatting, and making fun of people online, even if it's cruel, even if it's mean. Like this is shit that happens to everybody who has a large platform. It happens to you, it happens to me, and at some point you have to learn to ignore it, or you turn into someone like Jesse Single, just crazy.
Just tweeting out, demanding satisfaction.
Yeah, demanding attraction.
Anyway, I don't think it's credible for Kiwi. Like, I think it's true that the board culture is against direct harassment, but I think they're a little bit full of shit. Also, I talked to a streamer who I won't name who hates Keffels, and he was like, that's not true. Some Kiwi farms people do harass people. So I think like it would be silly to pretend there's no harassment. That directly comes.
Oh my god,
that's
the thing. Like Twitter is a platform where harassment is encouraged by the very algorithm. Like the trending topics feed you people to harass.
Really. This is who you should make fun of right now.
Right. Like the Queen just died, and Twitter has been 3 days of glee about this. It's not that different from Kiwi Farms.
This is why no matter how like we can try to be somewhat measured with Kiwi Farms. It's a pretty shitty place. It's like harassment. We will never be able to get to a place where we will explain exactly why it's different. Because other than the slurs, which is it's aesthetic, the slurs thing is not really people don't tell themselves because they're slurs. It's because everyone's telling you to yourself, telling you you're a bad person. They're just not that different. And I wish people like grapple that level. When I explain this to Goldman, you're trying to blocking me again. These not, people don't want to hear it. Anyway.
Okay, wait, one more thing about this. Kiwi Farms. So is the idea that Kiwi Farms harassment transcends Kiwi Farms, or is the idea, or does it stay on Kiwi Farms? Right? Because there's a difference between like harassment, like showing up in your inbox and people emailing you, or showing up at your house.
Do you agree? Yeah, I think that at this point, I think that probably over the past like 3 or 4 years, a lot of the progressive communities have become like insane to where like bullying, harassing, encouraging people to like implicitly like kill themselves, remove themselves from the internet, etc. I think it's become a little bit too common in these parlor circles. You're starting to see like body shaming, bullying, dick jokes, anti-male jokes, anti-white jokes, etc. I think that the culture is pretty similar to any like online bullying community, especially when you look at figures like Keffels or like Demon Mama or even Hassan or Vosh. Dude, those Vosh statements, I still can't believe the Vosh statements against that one British girl. Holy shit, that was wild. I think the cultures are pretty similar. The only difference is progressives feel like they have like a moral mandate because of who they bully, so it's a little different for them.
And actually going to the site and looking at like yourself, digging into it.
There's still a difference between people on Twitter engaging harassment and Kiwi Farms being dedicated to harassment. Okay. Where's Abbott say, you're gonna get clipped, bro? Okay, so Kiwi Farms, by and large, okay? This is how harassment comes from Kiwi Farms, okay? Kiwi Farms is not a site where you go to harass people. It's a site where you go to gossip and talk shit about people. That's generally what Kiwi Farms is. You find somebody, they seem like a fucking joke, you make a thread about them, and then you and a bunch of other people gather all the information you can about their life to basically make fun of them. Now, other people will go to Kiwi Farms to dig up information about people to harass them with that information. That's how harassment comes from Kiwi Farms, right? When people want to bug Mr. Medicare, or just even said himself, if you want to know, you want to get dirt on somebody, you go to Kiwi Farms, you say they have a thread. They have a thread, use that information to harass the fuck out of them. Use it to dox them, or they already doxed, use it to spawn, etc. That's how harassment kind of can come from Kiwi Farms. But Kiwi Farms itself is not a harassment board. It feels stupid to say this because if you've ever read a single thread in your entire life, you'll know this. Nobody in threads is talking about like, okay guys, we're gonna hit his Twitter offline here. I'm trying to break into his email account. Somebody should DDoS his fucking stream. He's doing this. Oh my god, we should mass like this. Those conversations don't happen on Kiwi Farms. People don't do that. You might find somebody that stumbles into a thread and does shit like that. But usually they'll get told to fuck off. Or people, we're not your first army. That's a popular 4chan one. People will thumbs down or they have their little fucking flare that they put on threads and they don't like when people post shit. But it's not supposed to be a board where everybody goes to harass people. It's not like a rating platform. Okay, it's not like the X boards on 4chan. You either know or you don't know. Or invasion. Fuck, that was the name I fucked up. It's been a long time. But like, yeah, there's that's just not what they do at Kiwi Farms. So it's when somebody says like, oh yeah, Kiwi Farms is like a targeted harassment hate raid site. No, it's not. That's just not what they do there. Anybody that's spent any amount of time on Kiwi Farms knows that that's just not what it is. But when farmers say shit like, oh, no harassment whatsoever, comes from bullshit. You know there are a lot of people that go to Kiwi Farms to look up those threads, to use those threads to harass the fuck out of people. That's obviously true. Everybody knows that's the case. But it's not like a rating board or whatever.
For 2,000 fucking pages making fun of me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but the whole claim is about the former, about it extending off. It was just on Kiwi Farms.
Okay, that's the question. Is it?
That's the claim that leads to harassment beyond Kiwi Farms, by Kiwi Farmers. So I was surprised at the difference between how the site was being described by a lot of outlets. It really made out to be a place where like a bunch of people gathered together to find a way to kill and assault people. The reality is, it's a brutal and vicious place.
Does Kiwi Farms have any excuse for why docs are posted? What purpose does that serve other than enabling harassment? It's like, think of like the most autistic gossip board you could ever fucking find, and that's why they post it. They want to like meticulously collect any detail ever, because chances are what they'll use the doc, like if you are actively posting on Kiwi Farms, what you're really looking to do with the docs is use that docs to harass or not harass, is to gossip about the person or find more embarrassing details about the person. So something like docs you to find out like you still live with your mom, or something like docs you to find out that like you're paying too much for your house, or that you're lying about which state you live in, or shit like that. That's why they post docs, because they're just artistically and meticulously collecting like every piece of info that they get on somebody's life. But they're not doxing you so that they can like swat you or show up your house or like bully you or shit like that. That's not generally why those are posted. How the fuck is that not harassment? I mean, like, it's because it's not supposed to leave the site. If you want to artistically quibble with me over semantics, you could do that. But like, there's a difference between a board that's made, like an invasion board that you're making to go and set up hate raids, versus people that are like artistically gossiping about you. I don't know if I would consider it, and it's idealized form. It's not supposed to be harassment, but realistically, some of the stuff probably gets taken and used as harassment. Of course, meteor point defense. Wait, that's not what I'm looking for. Or other people go to the boards to find stuff to harass you with. Meteor defense installation. That's what I'm looking for. Would your mind change if some internal messages leaked from like admins and stuff that showed an intent to harass? I don't know. I don't think so, because the boards themselves are fairly self-policing. If the admins wanted to make the intention to harass, they do a really bad job at it, like so bad that it wouldn't matter. I think something that would change my mind is if you could show that there were, and there might have been other threads on that site that like where everybody in it, there's like, we're gonna go harass this person, or we're gonna go and bully this person. That would make me change my mind. But like some secret intent of the admins wouldn't be enough. But you'd have to actually show that there were threads set up for like the purposes, or there were a lot of people in those threads harassing and being supportive of others harassing people, which I don't think that is the case.
They use that way because they do have those pretty strong norms against touching the poop. And again, as soon as this specific threat popped up, 7 users reported it, and it was pulled down by someone after 14 minutes later.
That's the Putin threat, right?
The Putin threat. It's not, don't touch the Putin. Something similar happened with the other threat on Kiwi Farms. On September 4th, 2 days prior to when I just talked about, Keffels tweeted,
do people from Kiwi Farms itself even go after people like that? I feel like anytime I've heard about the site, it's when someone pokes them. Generally, they're supposed to be pretty self-contained. I think that's how they generally fly under the radar too, unless people are actively fighting with them. So no internal messaging from admins would change your mind. Nothing conceivably they could have written to each other privately. No, but you have to show me threads where it's happening. Hate raids and targeted harassment don't happen because admins are talking about behind the scenes. They would come from the users of the site. Now, unless you're saying that like internally the admins themselves were like harassing people. They're like 5 admins like, okay, we're gonna take those and harass me, then maybe. But How much Kiwi farms being directly or indirectly used to harass people, but not from score user, would be needed to convince you? What do you mean by I don't, hold on. Back up, okay? Arjun, okay, hold on. Emotionally unplug yourself for what I'm saying, okay? You have to shut down the lizard part of your fucking brain right now, okay? Because I think you're inside your brain, you're hearing like, Jesse, so many Kiwi farms, I have to fight, I've got a white knight. No, shut the fuck up. Unplug, okay? I've already told you that Kiwi farms is certainly used as a place where people go and find information to harass people. Also, there are probably people on Kiwi farms themselves that probably go and harass people. And almost absolutely, there are probably people on my site that go and harass people. Almost absolutely. But what I'm saying is the general culture of Kiwi farms was not to accept that type of behavior. If you posted on a thread and you said, all right guys, I'm gonna go and get this dude's Twitter, like let's all go and spam shit him, people are gonna downvote you, make fun of you, and call you a loser, and no one should ban you from the thread. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that nobody's ever done it ever. Nobody's ever gone to Kiwi farms and harassed me. I'm not saying that. Obviously there are people on those threads that do that. Of course there are. I'm just saying that it wasn't the general culture of the boards. From what I've seen. Now maybe there are other threads where that is the case. I've only read like 5 or 6 threads on Kiwi farms. And not even all, I didn't read all of Keppel's. There's like 20 million fucking pages. But I mean, I read all of my thread. I've seen Near's thread. I've seen threads on some of the people surrounding me. Ralph, Nick, I don't know if Nick had his own thread. I think we just show up on others, Lauren show up on others. DSP's thread. I think I said Ralph's thread like. So it facilitates harassment, the super facilitates illegal activities so like Silk Road's thoughts. I don't know, but Silk Road would be different because I'm pretty sure Silk Road facilitated actual illegal activity. I don't think there's anything illegal about harassing on the internet. Do you think the culture of Kiwi farms is going to increase the harassment of lolcows? Yeah, for sure, of course.
Death threats to the police has become a regular part of my life because of this campaign. This is the second bomb thread this week. This post read, I'm gonna read the slur, don't get mad at me. This is what the person said. Fuck this dumb tranny cunt. I'm planning to fly to Ireland. Is Keppel still there? I seriously want to shoot that dumb bitch. I will plant bombs around the place they're staying as well. Someone give me the address.
Right, that's bad.
Keppel says, I've had to talk to the police more in Ireland than I have in Canada. This website should be illegal.
I feel like Keppel shouldn't have told people that she was moving to Ireland.
Yep.
This sort of identity problems here.
So this thread was not from Keppel's own thread on Kiwi Farms, it was from the thread on the Drop Kiwi Farms hashtag, which of course there's more people talking shit about Keppel's. If you go to Kiwi Farms, you will see people mentioning this post. The post itself is gone. The first response I can see is someone posting this user's history with their username, which is a furry. This was posted by a furry, because of course at some point this story was going to involve a furry. They only have 2 posts in their entire user history on Kiwi Farms. One is this one, and the other is one claiming that Renton Tarrant, the Christchurch mosque killer, didn't do anything wrong, and that there should be an even bigger massacre against Muslims in the UK.
Oh wow, nice.
So the implication is clear. By this other Kiwi Farms post posting their user history, they're just a troll. They're only here to post like horrific stuff. After posting images of their history, this Kiwi Farms user says, quote, go back to wiping Biden's ass, glow N-word.
You guys say it, Jesse.
No, he doesn't.
Go back to wiping Biden's ass, glow N-word. This was liked by 18 users, and the post was taken down after. The post was taken down by the moderators. Katie.
Okay, what's a glow N-word?
A glow N-word, according to Urban Dictionary, a government agent, FBI, NSA, CIA, ATF, making bait posts on forums and image boards to entrap individuals or gather intelligence. The purported goal of glow N-words is gain potential criminals or gather intelligence from a particular online community to reveal their intentions or beliefs. So you get what's going on with this user accusing the other user of being a glow N-word?
I get it, yes. This person is saying that you're a fed.
Yeah, it's called fed posting sometimes. The next Kiwi Farm user responds, anyone with a join date over a year that doesn't post regularly should be preemptively banned, like as a security precaution. The next user. I honestly believe it's fucking furry. Not even feds go that low on the septic. Here you go, Keppels, with neg rating and everything before you fucking spin this shit. Translated, that means, look at the screenshot I have showing this post has a negative rating before you use it as evidence against us.
So these users, they're like, oh fuck, this is going to be used against us.
Except it's more than just mad because they view it as like a really clumsy fed posting effort. Like, another user. Love how both fed posters chose specifically to say, quote, plant bombs, end quote. So in short, everyone in the thread responding to it starts making fun of the person for the violent threat, treating it as obvious bait to involve the authorities or get Kiwi Farms in more PR trouble. No one supports the post and it was quickly taken down. 2 more quotes. Fuck off, cunt, glow harder. I guess glow means like be a fed. 1 more. Like clockwork. And all the retards on Twitter will eat it up despite it being obvious bullshit.
Arsers.
So those were the 2 violent threats on Kiwi Farms. To put them in context, Keppel's thread on Kiwi Farms, before it was locked by Moon to try to show things out, was about 46,500 posts.
Jesus
one person.
Christ.
When they locked it, even after they locked it, there was no way I was going to. It was just an insane amount of just bilge. There's the separate thread dedicated to the Drop Kiwi Farms hashtag with about 3,500. That's how I got my estimate of more than 50,000 posts about Keppel's or her campaign on Kiwi Farms. That's likely an underestimate. I'm sure they talked about it elsewhere on the site. 2 posts out of 50,000 had violent threats. They both went down within like 15 minutes.
And that's it. That's it. This is just 2 posts. So a tiny percentage of these posts had actual violent threats, and the entire site gets not just taken down, but wiped from the internet archive because of these 2 fucking posts.
I have looked pretty hard. Like I said, it's impossible to read the whole threads too long. I asked on Twitter. I talked to folks around Kiwi Farms, who of course have an agenda, but they gave me other information I needed that didn't always make them look good. No one, most importantly, no one in Keppel's camp has posted other examples of Kiwi Farms issuing violent threats.
Well, what about off Kiwi Farms? I mean, this became such a huge story with their threats on other sites.
Here's where we get to the very weirdest part of the story. So the thread that got the most attention actually involved 4chan rather than Kiwi Farms. It was posted by Keppel's herself on August 31st, mid-afternoon East Coast time. So I'm not sure that was before or after Cloudflare defended posting Kiwi Farms. But she said, yesterday, as I was ending the stream where I gave updates on the hashtag Drop Kiwi Farms campaign, this was posted online just outside my address. Shortly afterwards, Northern Ireland police came to the apartment I'm staying in because someone had attempted to swat me. I'm going to return to this point, but the security here is ridiculously lax, given that Keppel's is at this point on the run for her life. That's what she says. So first, Ellen, the friend she's staying with in Northern Ireland, publicly announces what type of food they're going to get. And poutine, which is probably rare there, like at least fish and chips.
I'll just say we spoil it. It is very rare there. Checked. But Jesus.
And then Keppel's publicly posted an image from 4chan that reveals the apartment building, or at least the neighborhood they're in, because that was the whole point of posting it.
This makes it like harder to feel sympathy for her if she's, because a lot of this does seem to be for attention.
She's giving the 4chan poster exactly what he wants. This is how 4chan operates. Like, look, we got to.
Right. And also here's a picture of the house I'm staying in if anybody wants to go.
It's just unbelievably bad OPSEC. But I don't want to take it. It's undeniably weird and menacing note. Katie, would you like me to read it?
Please do.
Okay. They use Keppel's dead name, the first name from a Portuguese transition. I'm just going to say Keppel's instead. I'm a gentleman.
You're such an ally.
Loyalists against Troons. Keppel's out of our community. Kiwi Farms, all Troons. 38/2022, that's the date. Ulster Kiwi Farms Force. For Sneed and Ulster. Heil Josh the Corn Lord. Ethan Gunt, Ralph told me to do this. Katie, should we start saying called yes, no, perhaps?
This is my level.
Okay, I'm not going to even try to get this whole thing. I'll just try to sum it up. Troon we went over. It's a derogatory term to say, like, basically, like, clout chasing sort of fake trans person. The political stuff, in a Northern Irish context, like, I'm just going to read the Wikipedia pages. Now we're fucking talking about the troubles.
Oh my God.
The late 20th century conflict in Northern Ireland.
Did this guy kill the queen? Or does he like the queen?
We're going to fucking get
We're going to get to that.
Wikipedia. This is the Wikipedia entry on the troubles. The conflict was primarily political and nationalistic, fueled by historical events, and also had ethnic or sectarian dimension. Despite use of the terms Protestant and Catholic to refer to the two sides, it was not a religious conflict. A key issue was the status of Northern Ireland, aka Belfast. Unionists and loyalists, who for historical reasons were mostly Ulster Protestants, wanted Northern Ireland to remain within the United Kingdom. Irish nationalists and Republicans, who were mostly Irish Catholics, wanted Northern Ireland to leave the United Kingdom and join the United Ireland, aka be independent. So that's what the loyalist part of this thread is referring to. This is someone living in or near Belfast who sides with England and thinks Ireland should be part of the UK, and they're likely to be Protestant rather than Catholic. Ulster Kiwi Farms Force is, I guess, a takeoff of the Ulster Volunteer Force. That was a loyalist paramilitary group that faced off against the IRA and naturally was responsible for atrocities. So that's a little bit of recent Irish history. That's what we're at, Katie.
Okay, and who is Josh the Cornlord and Ethan Gunt Ralph? Well, Josh the Cornlord, I can imagine that's Josh from Kiwi Farms.
Yeah, so that's Josh Moon. I don't know what Cornlord is. I almost certainly don't want to know. Ethan Ralph is a fairly gonzo right-wing internet personality. I've been aware of him since Gamergate. He does the Ralph Report website. If it still exists, I don't care. There's a lot of stuff about Ethan Ralph on Kiwi Farms. He was involved in multiple legal entanglements that provided Kiwi Farms with a lot of like bull cow milk. Ethan Ralph fucking hates Kiwi Farms.
Yes,
He's
he
a
does.
writer for a guy who hates Kiwi Farms. If you search Twitter, you'll see that his relationship to them is roughly the same as Keffel's. Like, not a fan. So saying Heil Josh the Cornlord, Ethan Ralph told me to do this is arguably confusing because those two people hate one another. Unless it's like trolling, like I'm false flagging, trying to blame it on Ethan.
Right.
I don't think it didn't really seem like journalists picked up on the weirdness here. I think the folks writing about the story mostly had no genuine familiarity with Kiwi Farms or the sarcastic characters ensnared in this dark corner of the internet. Also, I'm just a pathetic lowlife, so I recognize names like Ethan Ralph when I see them because I wasted my life and have basically nothing left to live for.
Yeah, this does seem to be a continuing issue when news reporters try to understand internet drama, is that you have to spend a lot of time within these communities. They have specific language in these various different communities, and if you just drop in and take things literally, you're going to miss a lot of shit. You're missing a lot of layers.
Katie, how can you expect reporters to learn about a community they're reporting on when it's so dangerous with pulled offline?
True. You know what, they need a furry. They need a furry like Tracy Woodrins to go in and be the bum sniffing dog for them.
So this strange image posted to a website that wasn't Kiwi Farms, it was Fortune, was treated as evidence.
But it references Kiwi Farms.
Yeah, and that was why it was treated as evidence that Kiwi Farms was responsible. Here's how Vice reported it. Serenity found out that someone inspired by the threat on Kiwi Farms had posted a picture of themselves standing outside Mary's apartment while holding a threatening message. Moments later, the police arrived and told her that someone had reported shooting at her apartment, and so on. So someone inspired by the threat on Kiwi Farms. Look, I know the thing says Kiwi Farms, but there's no reporting back that this person was inspired by Kiwi Farms. Would you might respond? You, Katie, being a jerk. But Jesse, they said they were inspired by Kiwi Farms in their note. To which I would respond, yes. And someone emailed the London, Ontario city government and said they were Catholics.
Sure.
Okay, can we shit talk journalism a minute before we continue the story?
Just this once.
Should we have to first just get out of the way?
Yeah, we do have to.
Oh my god, this episode's a beast. I can't wait to edit it. Oh, to be fair, I've been hunched over poor.
You have been spending months on this.
Okay, yeah, we're Blocked Reported, we're a podcast that we do a lot of stories about internet bullshit, blockreported.org. Our subreddit is blockreported.reddit.com. We're doing a live event in Arlington. It's sold out. Tough luck. Thank you for talking about tickets. That's crazy we sold that shit out, right?
I know, very quickly.
October 29th, we put tickets on Craigslist. I bought half the tickets. I'm just going to sell them for $1,000 apiece. We have 2 hopeful live events to announce soon, but that's been the case before, so we'll wait till that's done. Anything else for LCBD?
Yes, we have a subscriber program. If you go to blockedandreported.org, you get 3 free episodes of this podcast every month.
Nope, they're not free if you pay for them.
Oh, right. 3 extra episodes every month. We just recorded a fun one a couple days ago about some drama among a #vanlife influencer. It's quite the story.
That shit was crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, and it's also the best way to support the show. So the reason that we can keep doing this and we don't have to go get jobs at Safeway, which Jesse wouldn't be able to do because they have rules against that sort of thing, is because of our subscribers. So please go to blockedandreported.org and join us.
They do have a staunch no Jesse policy. No Kiwi Farms workers. The other, working on this shit last couple days made me so thankful for our premium subscribers because like that's. Can you imagine if I put all this time into poor? I still don't report it. The other thing is blockedreportpodcast@gmail.com for any feedback. I'm sure our Kiwi Farms episode will generate feedback. Also, we got some great advice entries. Send us an MP3 if you have friend or relationship advice of a non-sexually explicit nature. We'll do a segment or an episode on that. Coming up, because they haven't heard so far, who better to give advice on how to live your life than us?
Yes, speaking of non-sexual content, I also have a little correction to a prior episode. Can I do that here? Okay, we got an email from a listener after our investigative reporting on daisy chains in the last episode. All right, so the listener says the sex act that he's describing, and he in this case is a reporter for Men's Health, Ethical Voice Lab. He's an advice columnist for the magazine Men's Health, and he described a sex act called a daisy chain. And our listener says the sex act he's describing is called a lucky tier. A daisy chain is 3 or more people all performing oral sex on each other, e.g., person A would be performing oral sex on person B, person B performing oral sex on person C, person C performing oral sex on person A, hence a chain. So, correction to that, what we were talking about was a man, I don't want to describe it, to a family-friendly show.
It's fine. You also said Daisy A instead of person A.
Regardless, you can go back and listen to that if you want. Our description of a daisy chain is not.
If you want to, yes. Yeah, which I'm sure you
So thank you to that. I will not mention his name, but thank you to that to our friends.
Let's talk about journalism, Katie.
Let's do it. I love nothing more.
The reporting on this story has been like ridiculously god-awful. It's sort of everything we criticize about modern journalism: the certitude, the complete lack of any distinction between activism journalism, the confident proclamations about subjects journalism about. It's all there. So one very basic thing you'll know if you follow online harassment or online culture is that trolls constantly do false flag attacks. During Gamergate, for example, I'm going to ask you to Google that if you want to find out. You sometimes see targeted outrage campaigns get that.
Don't Google it because you'll get a bunch of wrong information.
Right. During that, you would fairly frequently see people get that stuff like, I'm with Gamergate and I will kill you. Some of the time, and probably most of the time, for being honest, those folks had nothing to do with Gamergate. They were trolls, almost always from places like 4chan or 8chan. These are sites that are very nihilistic, and they consist of the sort of person who wants to call in a bomb threat and be like, I, the person issuing this bomb threat, am Tom Smith at 54 whatever lane. The whole hope is that in addition to the chaos caused by bomb threat, police will show up at that portion of my house. So trolls love to stir up trouble. And one of the biggest ways to stir up trouble at 0 or low risk to oneself is to threaten someone with death and to attribute that death threat to some third party. For example, while I was poking around, I had to do a lot of searches on the Kiwi Farms archives. One snapshot of the site has this message from Josh Moon. Ongoing DDoS attack again. P.S. Attacking a specific Wotlk threat isn't going to make me assume it's that person and start up a crusade against them. You fucking moron. You know what he's saying there?
Yes, but please parse it for me.
He's saying like Josh Moon, who is whatever else he is, he's savvy about the internet. He's saying if you do basically a hacker attack against a thread about a Wotlk, I'm not going to be like, oh, it must have been the Wotlk who launched this. I'm going to retaliate because that's how trolls work. They try to cause that kind of trouble. Okay. So watching this unfold, I was a little bit gobsmacked by these journalists who just weeks ago had reported on a false flag swatting that targeted Keffels, and then suddenly they're saying, well, if an anonymous post says it comes from an online community, the threat comes from an online community. It's just very ridiculously credulous. Am I missing something here?
No, I think you're right. And I think again, this gets to the fact that a lot of online reporters do not understand the communities that they're covering.
Once the snowball effect started, a bunch of journalists learned about Kiwi Farms for the first time and decided to write about it. Reporting got like worse and worse. So I'm reading this coverage and I'm pulling my hair out at how off base it is. So like the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation includes this account from Liz Fong Jones. She's a former Google employee who's been targeted by Kiwi Farms and has been encouraging Cloudflare and others to take it down. Here's a quote from the article involving Trans Lifeline, which is a suicide hotline for trans people. Liz Fong Jones said they tried, they meaning Kiwi Farms, tried to slander Trans Lifeline's character, and when she pushed back online on their accusations, they published her personal information in the forum, including her home address, her biological parents' names, and photocopy of her gender name change. I was minding my own business. I was trying to support a crisis hotline for trans people, and now I was in the crosshairs of these people, etc. So the doxing and harassment she experiences is awful, and it's something Kiwi Farms does all the time. But this whole account of the story involving Trans Lifeline is just a fucking lie. Kiwi Farms thought the people who ran the Trans Lifeline were grifters. Kiwi Farms think Liz Fong Jones is friends with them. I had looked into that, but it turned out that lo and behold, they were grifters. If you go to the suicide hotline 2017 tax filing, they say our founder stole, I think it's $375,000 from us. Wow. So there was a major scandal at the Trans Lifeline with a famous suicide hotline, and all that gets translated into the Canadian Broadcasting Corp saying she was just defending the innocent suicide hotline against slander. So it's just bad journalism. The only way you can write that story that poorly and be that credulous for Liz Fong Jones account is if you don't know anything about this.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Trans Lifeline story was not reported. Did anybody report that?
No, I don't think anyone covered it except that the grifty scammers were. And I should be clear, as they've cleaned up, I think now they're a genuinely vital resource. But yeah, they got puff piece covered for running it. They appear to have been criminals. According to the people who now run Trans Lifeline, line, this money was stolen. And no one paid attention to it except Kiwi Farms. And there's this crazy backstory involving Corinne Cohn trying to raise awareness of their lack of safeguarding, like background checks. And supposedly one of the grifters running Trans Lifeline showed up at Joshua Moon's house to confront it. That's how he got.
Did she get his address for Kiwi Farms?
So yeah, that's just an example of like just really brainless coverage of this that just isn't tuned into the history of the site and the many controversies. Okay, that brings us to CNN. Sorrenti, better known by her online username Battles, became the target of a harassment campaign organized on Kiwi Farms, a notorious online forum where users are openly transphobic, after she began speaking about trans rights on Twitch, a live video streaming platform popular with video games. Katie, based on what you know about how journalism has performed in these sorts of situations, do you think the scrap between Kiwi Farms and Templeton really explains solely by the fact that she was speaking about trans rights?
No.
Alright, so there is a thing called victim blaming, and it's real. If a woman gets raped and you ask what she's wearing, you're victim blaming. But the concept has sort of ballooned outward, and is now just an excuse for people to turn off the rape. So someone can both be a victim, but also be a figure of genuine controversy, and those can both be important parts of the story. Like, only toddlers think the world is divided into good and evil, and there's a tendency, and there's a tendency in a lot of reporting about online harassment to assume that as soon as someone is established as a capital V victim, they should be treated as a saint, and everything they claim about everything should be taken at face value. That's just not how the world works. I feel like we see a lot of examples of this, right?
Oh yeah.
This lesson is really important in the case of Keffals because it's led to some really off-base and confused reporting. Keffals is a complicated figure. She's done some obviously good stuff. At one point, she raised, I think, $250,000 for this LGBT organization Texas. That seems legit. There's also a kernel of truth to the idea that anyone who's an outspoken advocate for a political cause on Twitter or Twitch and who gets a big enough platform is going to come in for some level of abuse. I would argue that's true whether you're on the left or right, to be fair. But Keffals is a very aggressive flamethrower of a figure. She seeks out conflict with just about everyone. It's part of her brand. She's been engaged in a long, brutal by internet standard conflict with Destiny. He's an influential Twitch streamer who has 700,000 followers on meaning he can make a very good living. In March, he got booted off from the platform under questionable circumstances. Apparently, in part because he questioned whether the U-Pen trans woman Leah Thomas should be able to swim on the women's team. Keffals tweeted the following. This is Destiny's Twitch channel right now. That's with a screenshot of how he was kicked off. Hey, Steven, I just took away your primary source of income. Please leave me alone and stop bullying trans people for content.
Is Steven Destiny?
That's me.
Steven Destiny. Then she follows up. His followers are going to get mad, so I'm going to clarify now that I didn't report anything. He did this to himself.
Wait, all he did was question whether Leah Thomas should be allowed to swim on Pen's team, which she shouldn't.
That was the precipitating moment. I think there'd been one other time when during like an actual riot after George Floyd, he made a remark about like you should send rednecks to shoot the rioters.
Okay, that's
not good. That was a while ago. But I think what got kicked off was Leah Thomas.
Isn't he a leftist?
He's overall on the left, yeah, but he has a point of heterodox politics. So that's probably the only example of Keffals like seeking out drama and just consistently throwing rock if you want. And again, I'm not going to go in. I'll explain why this matters in a minute. Keffals delights in the destruction of her opponents, and that includes threats to boxing. Like she's straightforwardly pro-boxing as long as the target is a bad person. There's no bad tactics, just bad targets. At one point she tweeted, "I found out who the Kiwi Farms user was who doxed my mother and sent him a photo of him with his mother and dressed in my name and he deleted his account. Unlike him, I'm not posting online, but if he comes back and know where he works and will forward his entire post history to his boss."
Right, so she's into revenge?
Obviously, the problem with that sort of vigilante justice is you're trusting the person, Keffals in this case, to make the right decisions, like they're doxing the right person, and the person deserves it. More recently, Frederick Brennan, who deserved a whole episode of his own, he was a guy running 8chan, which is one of the most toxic sites on the internet, but he's since reformed, and he's now fighting against online harassment, including on Kiwi Farms. He tweeted that Keffals bragged in a Discord chat about telling someone to kill himself. Someone also posted a Discord chat in which Keffals clearly appears to be threatening to dox someone else. This is someone who goes by Winter on Kiwi Farms. So Winter posted video of this Discord chat with Keffals. Keffals says, "I have your face and name. I know what schools you went to. I know every member of your family." Excited to see how they all react when the information gets sent to them. Keffals also claims they hired a private investigator to look into this person's background, and Keffals drops the name of many of Winter's friends and family members. Though it's unclear whether Keffals has accurate information. They also have this exchange. Winter, how much did you pay for this info, by the way? Need the info from the private investigator. Did it come out of your GoFundMe money? Keffals, Winter, I don't know how much money you think I make, but I was going to make 6 figures this year before the GoFundMe happened.
And when did this happen, this conversation with Winter?
This was just in the last few days.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So she seems to be saying like she has plenty of money and is just putting this GoFundMe money into savings. We'll get back to that, but that wasn't really the tone of the YouTube video, which says like, "Help me, my life is at risk."
Wait, how much did she get for the GoFundMe?
$100,000. So Keffals just in general isn't really concerned about doxing or protecting other people's private information. At one point, Liz Vaughn Jones posted an address and phone number in Ukraine, supposedly connected to a company hosting Kiwi Farms. Keffals quote retweeted it and told her followers to do your thing. In any other context, everyone would be like, that's targeted harassment. To tweet out an address and say do your thing, whatever the context.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, Keffals is always involved in drama. Again, I'll explain why that matters in a minute. Also, her security habits suck. She just seems completely incapable of taking the most basic precautions to keep herself safe online, to the point where her own fans have been like, "Why do you keep revealing where you are? Just film in front of a green screen," stuff like that. Another wrinkle here is that she has sometimes at least arguably been dishonest. This includes in her fundraising efforts, as I just alluded to. So when she first went public about her swatting, the first thing she said in that video is she woke up with a gun in her face. Here's a clip of the two ways she described the incident.
August 5th, I was woken up by London Police Services, pointing an assault rifle in my face. I went into the hallway and then saw that assault rifle. I screamed and I thought I was going to die.
Okay, so these are two different versions of the incident.
Yeah, and even that
Those cannot have happened.
We know the first one didn't happen. She's watched it back. Even the latter one is arguably misleading. The chief of police of London, Ontario, on August 11th issued a statement. He said that the cops knocked on the door midday, so maybe she woke up by nap, and that there were armed officers there, but it wasn't a dynamic entry. They didn't barge the door. They knocked on the door. So,
okay, so they knocked on the door. She opens the door. The cops are there. Did they like swarm the apartment, or did they say, "Miss Keffals, can we come in," or whatever?
They just said that she was polite and they just arrested her because at the time they were investigating her. But there's no sign of the scary situation with an assault rifle.
I mean, yeah, still like getting arrested for something you didn't.
So it is possible, given what Alex described now on Keffals' stream, that maybe they were in the hallway and they went into an assault rifle, which came out of a room. Unfortunately, we don't have body cam footage of that, but.
Yeah, that's
incredibly scary, of course. But she was not woken up to an assault rifle.
Yeah. And how long was she held?
That's a good question. I don't know. Not that long. It was resolved fairly quickly. There are some other red flags in her fundraising efforts. So, like I said, she raised around $100,000. The GoFundMe link was in the video description. In the video, Keffals makes certain claims about the uphill battle she and her fiancé will face to get their stuff back and the precarity of their situation. I did quick cut a lot of claims. We just listen to that.
We seized my fiancé's cell phones and laptop, as well as their external drive, which contained the only copy of their PhD thesis and other important university documents. Because of the negligence of the police, we were both left functionally unemployed, and I spent thousands of dollars replacing our computers and cell phones, so our lives are completely.
Did she really buy new computer cell phones in one fucking day? Is that like, Jesus, like, got released from the fucking cell, time to go to fucking Best Buy? I'm so confused about that part. I'm confused about every part. This is when she was still in full live mode, I guess so.
Destroyed by what happened to us. Even after acquiring a new phone, I still cannot log into some of my accounts because the London Police Service holds the phone that my two-factor authentication goes to. I need your help because I can't do this alone. I started a GoFundMe to move immediately, recoup my losses, and build a legal fund to protect my rights. I do not yet know when I'm going to be returning broadcasting on Twitch. When I was woken up by police officers and saw the assault rifle pointed at me, I thought I was going to die. I feel traumatized. I just want everyone to know what happened and ask for help so I can seek justice for what happened to me.
That's quite a monotone. I like the voice. This sounds like a terrible situation. It sounds like Keffals. It costs Keffals a lot of money. I mean, her fiancé sounds fucked. It sounds terrible, right?
Yeah, it sounds terrible, and I think it really gave the impression they were in some degree of financial need. Do you think that's fair to say?
Totally. Yeah.
So
we need money to get back on.
Yeah. So they need somebody to make a living. So that video went up on August 9th. And included the claim that they wouldn't get that hard drive back for months. The very next day, August 10th, she did a Twitch stream that's now titled, "I got my stuff back." She tells her fans she got her stuff back, and her fiancé got their stuff back too. So it turned out to take one day, not many months. And at the start of that video, she repeats the claim that she was assault rifled in the face. So there were also the leaked chat logs posted earlier this week. The ones with Winter that Pierce saying the GoFundMe is going to go to her savings account until she needs it. She just hasn't really been clear what the fundraising is for. She talks vaguely about how her rights were violated, but it's not clear what's going on. I don't expect someone who goes through something this traumatic to recall every detail with perfect accuracy. But the story she told allowed her to raise about $100,000 to save up for something, and it's not really clear what that is.
And did she have when you have a GoFundMe, right? You set like a target. What was that?
Oh no!
The goal is $100,000. I don't know if it can boost it. If you can boost it along the
way. Oh no! Jesse didn't know this. Oh no! Wait, did you not know?
I mean, her fiancé sounds fucked.
I don't think it's for months. The very next day, August 10th,
he corrected part too. Okay.
I got my stuff back. She tells her fans she got her stuff back, and her fiancé got their stuff back too. So it turned out to take one day, not many months. And at the start of that video, she repeats the claim that she was assault rifled in the face. So, there were also the leaked chat logs posted earlier this week. One with Winter that Pure Shore saying GoFundMe is ignored her savings account until she needs it. She just hasn't really been clear what the fundraising is for. She talks vaguely about how her rights were violated, but it's not clear what's going on. I don't expect someone who goes through something this traumatic to recall every detail of perfect accuracy. But the story she told allowed her to raise about $100,000 to save up for something, and it's not really clear what that is.
And did she have when you have a GoFundMe, right, you set like a target? What was the actual target?
It just lists the goal as $100,000. I don't know if it gets boosted, if you can boost along the way.
Okay, so her goal was $100,000. So she told people she needed $100,000.
Yeah, unless there's something where you can start at 20 minutes.
Oh, there are some
Okay. Yeah. So I don't think it's unfair to point these things out. Also, it's never really been clear why she had to flee to Europe, which is like this little thing just sitting here, right?
How much does it cost to fly to Europe these days?
So journalists have...
Did she need a private plane?
Journalists have used her intercontinental travel to add a dash of mystique and danger to the story. The headline of a Ben Collins article in NBC News goes, anti-trans stalkers at Kiwi Farms are chasing one victim around the world.
Oh my god.
Well, explain that reaction.
She says that they're not chasing her around the world. She's telling them, she's telling them where she's going, and B, she made the choice to leave.
Yeah.
Like she could have gone to like London from London, Ontario. Couldn't she just gone down the street?
Ottawa. This what's been so weird about the coverage is like no one's come close to explaining why anything that happened actually required her going to Europe. Like if she wants to go to Europe, by all means. I bet Northern Ireland's a cool place to hang out, especially if you're not going to take any security precautions and you're going with this storyline where your life is at risk and you have to raise money. Like, people are going to ask questions about that.
They're not going to ask questions about that.
It's a little weird. Also, like, if it were just a couple discrepancies, it would be one thing, but it's not hard to find other instances of couples just being dishonest. So, like, Keppels has a long-running beef with Lauren Southern, who has a history of just like grotesque alt-right bullshit. For reasons we'll get in a moment, Lauren Southern accused Keppels of grooming. Keppels responded by saying that Southern was on the Jeffrey Epstein flight logs and justified it as follows. Katie,
To start off this discussion, I think I need to show you all something. Lauren Southern blocked me. After all the shit she said, after all the fights we got into, she finally blocked me. And do you know why she blocked me? Because I asked her why she was on the Epstein flight logs. That's why. Really seems like she has something to hide, doesn't it? But
what is the implication there? Is Lauren a child rapist? Damn, I didn't even know this. We're getting into the deep lore. Oh my god.
I think it's quite funny. It seems like people really do not like being accused of being a pedophile on the internet. It's too bad she would never do the same thing to me. Oh wait, yeah, she did. She did exactly that. So when I did it back, no, blocked. She can't take it.
Okay, so Lauren Southern was not on the Epstein flight logs. I take it.
She
didn't hang out with Jeffrey Epstein. He doesn't hang out with Canadian reporters from Rebel Media.
No. But you can see how...
Unless was she like one of the massage therapists?
But you can see how Keppels is explicitly saying this person lied about me, so I'm gonna lie about that, right?
Yeah.
And she tweeted the flight logs thing in a way where people, without knowing the full context, were going to believe it and spread it. She also, her thing with Destiny got really ugly. I'm not going to include the clip here, but I watched a scene from her stream where she accused Destiny of stealthing, which is secretly removing a condom during sex, which is rape. Then there's a very long pause as her stream freaks out in the chat, and then eventually she wants it back. So it just, she has like a little bit of history of stubbornness about facts and a willingness to use whatever tactics it takes, as long as it's targeted. Okay, so on top of all this controversy, there are two other issues that are prominent in her Kiwi Farms entry and in the sort of dark legend of Keppels. These are rumors about Keppels that have spread far and wide. One is the claim that she groomed minors. Now, online, and you'll notice if you've listened to this podcast before, any accusation that ex groomed wives should be met with extreme caution. People throw this shit around constantly, right?
Absolutely, and they use grooming. The term grooming has really stretched. Yeah. Now it also means like ideological indoctrination.
Kiwi Farms is gleefully confident that Keppels groomed people, and they claim they have screenshots to support it. Long story mercifully short, they don't. I have not seen any evidence to suggest Keppels actually groomed a minor. Keppels did run a Discord server called Catboy Ranch.
No.
Catboy Ranch had minors on it. The rumor she's a groomer, that rhymes, stems from screenshots supposedly leaked from there. Except a source that seems to know what they're talking about told me that those screenshots might actually have been from another Discord server called Femboy Hangout. That would be a good entry. You could grow with Femboy Hangout.
I'm already in it. I'm in it right now.
So yes, Keppels ran just Catboy Ranch. She did not run Femboy Hangout, but she hung out there. There's some weird and questionable stuff that went on in these places, including with minors, but none of it involves Keppels directly. There's no proof that Keppels groomed someone, and that's a horrible rumor to spread if you don't have evidence. There's one instance in which someone posts a photo of themselves and Keppels does a little bit like hababa and like says their ass is fat and that's what their pronouns are, and then everyone's like, this person was underage, but she didn't know that. It's the most marginal case ever. It's nothing. The other true rumor about Keppels is that she helps to supply hormones to trans kids without their parents' permission.
Is that legal, Jesse?
Setting aside the legality question, I think the answer is no. She runs something called the DIY HRT directory, or she sponsors it. This is a resource to help trans people get hormones, including minors. Keppels is tied with a person named Chloe, aka @Bob Posting, who is even more outspoken about these efforts. For example, Bob Posting once said on Twitter, I got like 500 plus minors on HRT. Destiny responded by calling an actual pedophile, which I don't think it doesn't make a pedophile, it might be a criminal. If you follow the million links flying around in the Keppelsverse, you will likely get to some dark places. There's at least one company that produces estrogen in this like these cutesy sort of anime style boxes. And whatever your views on minors and hormones and puberty blockers, this is just like a really incredibly controversial thing to do or to talk about online openly. People do not respond well to the idea of adults helping kids get medication behind their parents' backs. I think that is like a good faith concern, whatever your views on trans issues, right?
Yeah, probably not something that you should attach your name to.
None of what I just said a lot about Keppels. I just criticized Keppels a lot. None of that is to justify her getting harassed and doxxed or to deny the role a site like Kiwi Farms undoubtedly plays in exacerbating everything. That's not my point. Here's my point. My point is Keppels is an internet famous person who has made a ton of enemies. Destiny's fans on Twitch alone before he got booted constituted 700,000 people who were probably mostly young and very online. She also has some sort of whole other fight that I had no time to understand with Decodering, a YouTuber with 1.3 million subscribers. So if the goal is to figure out who is responsible for violent threats or swatting her, I just don't know why you would start with Kiwi Farms. Kiwi Farms wasn't even the only site to dox her. There's this other notorious doxing site that is basically just doxing. This is a site where when you go there, you're literally greeted with a drawing of Satan's head.
Gotcha. Okay, so we don't know for sure that all of this came from Kiwi Farms or any of it came from Kiwi Farms.
This is a site where if you mention it, or you ask about it, I permaband you from everything.
With this sort of online fuckery, there's genuinely no way to know. And anytime you assume about the identity or motives of anonymous online trolls, you're likely to regret it later on because these stories are very confusing and difficult to report on.
This kind of reminds me of the January 6th stuff where there was this giant campaign to deplatform the site Parler because people were saying that the January 6th riots were organized on Parler. And in subsequent reporting, I believe found that much of it was organized on Facebook. But Parler is a right-wing site, and so instead of calling for Facebook, pick Facebook out off of the internet, people just focus on fucking Parler.
Yeah, a lot of this is just about Kiwi Farms is a bad place that has made a lot of enemies because people have been personally affected by it. But the reporting that we know that the folks doxing her or swatting her are from there, there's just not necessarily great evidence to support that.
Okay, well what about this photo in Ireland? I mean, that seems pretty clear that it came from Kiwi Farms, right?
That's a great question, Katie. And guess what?
What?
I found the kid who said he did it, and I talked to him, and I know the answer.
All right.
Oh my god.
Okay.
As always, we're produced with help from Tracy Woodgrants. I'm Jesse Single, and remember, we'll be back soon.
And I'm Katie Herzog. And also remember, even if you don't care who threatened Keppels, don't you want to come back and find out why we had that dumb moment of silence for the Queen?
Wow. Aren't you guys excited when we come? To be clear, earlier when I asked you, can two people, I'll repeat the question to you. Two people try to resolve a moral point. Two people have a moral question, and they come to the answer, and totally they have two different answers for it. But they both say that they've received revelation through God. How do you resolve the disagreement and figure out who's right and who's wrong? This is the problem with grounding your meta ethics with divine revelation. It's why presuppositionalism sucks. It's ultimately
No,
circular at a
you're
foundation
right.
that is
You're
inaccessible to external parties. Do you understand? Yeah, we discriminate all the time against all sorts of people for a variety of reasons, yeah. For instance, when I go to McDonald's, I'm discriminated against trying to go to the play place. They won't let me because I'm too old.
But not black people. And God was not a homosexual or a coomer. Destiny, you're a stupid fat. Therefore,
Tonight we're bringing you a special event between Destiny and Tristan Haggard. They're going to be debating the Great Reset. It's a debate we've all been kind of looking forward to. I'm going to bring each one out individually. There's going to be between 7 and 10 minute opening statement from Tristan Haggard. He's been wanting to make sure that he can get his position across. I'm going to start with Tristan. How you doing tonight, Tristan?
So guys?
So should I just refer to you as Tristan PhD, 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 PhD?
Well, that's the 7 PhDs. But I mean, you can for whatever. I mean, I'm not really deciding my pronouns today. I mean, my pronouns might not even be YouTube friendly, so I'm not going to make you call me by my actual pronouns.
Okay.
You can just call me Tristan.
And of course we have Destiny. How you doing tonight, Destiny? It's good to
Hey,
see
I'm
you.
doing great. I'm excited for tonight.
Yeah, me too. Hello, Destiny's chat. You might remember me, BPF. We've gone a couple of rounds ourselves. We're going to let Tristan go ahead and open. Tristan, if you want to do that, the floor is yours.
Cool. Just to clarify, is there going to be like a specific format for the debate? We have like timed responses.
Guys, we'll essentially open the floor up after you get through your opening. Destiny will have his own opening, and we'll open the floor up for some back and forth for a little while. We may guide conversation at some points if it starts to get a little too loose. We'll kind of tighten it up, but we'd like to see a good back and forth if we could.
Cool, for sure. Yeah, so there's not going to be like a formal debate where you have an opening statement and then
just the opening and then a back and forth.
Tristan's like me. He was expecting something very much more professional. He didn't know he was going to go read it today.
I mean, it's fine. It's like, I'm being paid by the minute. At least that's what people tell me. So, I mean, I will drag this on as long as possible and we'll milk this cow. All right, I'm joking. Cool. Shall I begin?
Yeah, begin.
Yes, sir. All right, so the proposed topic today is the Great Reset. Now, as I understand my opponent's position, his stated position is that there is no global Great Reset, and reorganizing after a crisis is a good thing. My position is clearly that there is a Great Reset. This is easily documented and very easily demonstrated, and the Great Reset is a PR term for a complete overhaul of our social, economic, political, and even biological realities. The 50th annual meeting of the World Economic Forum in June 2020, hosted and convened by Prince Charles of the British royal family, was named Great Reset. Excuse me. The World Economic Forum is an international NGO started by Klaus Schwab in 1971. They promote the idea of public-private partnerships, main which was actually developed by the Rockefeller Foundation to normalize the fusion of corporations and industry with government, with the stated goal of, quote, engaging business, political, academic, and other leaders to shape global, regional, and industry agendas. So this is the World Economic Forum's about page right here, where you can get the information about who the World Economic Forum is, what their mission is, and what they do. So, Klaus Schwab's book, COVID-19, The Great Reset, was published in 2020. Klaus Schwab, the leader of the World Economic Forum, the guy who started the World Economic Forum, says the virus gives us a, quote, great opportunity, and the world must act jointly and swiftly to revamp all aspects of our societies and economies, from education to social contracts and working conditions. The Great Reset is an open agenda of revolutionary, utopian, technocratic internationalism proposed by transnational stakeholders of global mega corporations, international banking, NGOs, big foundations, and billionaire philanthropists. Vague, loaded PR terms are used by mass media to market this emergent technocratic overhaul that is utopian and revolutionary in its nature. Those PR terms include the new normal. These are all terms that are used by these people. These are terms that are just making up the Fourth Industrial Revolution, the term the green recovery, the green economy, based on stakeholder capitalism, or a, quote, circular economy, and the sharing economy within a smart society of smart cities will be the new normal. Right, so the World Economic Forum on their website publishes much of this stuff. There are thousands of articles on the website from the World Economic Forum. They represent essentially a global conglomerate of corporations that promote this idea of public-private partnerships. Prince Charles actually framed this global Great Reset as a wartime, quote, military-style campaign and Marshall-like plan, end quote, for the transformation of all aspects of our lives steamrolled in under the excuse of the COVID-19 crisis into a permanent wartime global response to the climate crisis. Right, so the use of COVID-19 to usher this in, and then the pivot to using all these same measures to fight the climate crisis, is essentially what the openly stated goal of the Great Reset is, according to the World Economic Forum. So the complete overhaul of the social, economic, political, and biological realms being enacted openly and internationally as a response to the COVID-19 pandemic and so-called climate crisis by the WEF, who entered a, quote, strategic partnership with the UN in 2019. Right, so they entered a strategic partnership with the UN. This is all open public knowledge. This is a global partnership moving towards global governance. Right, the IMF, the World Bank, politicians, international corporations, and even religious leaders, including Pope, publicly advocate for the sweeping global reform agenda of utopian technocratic management of people and resources. So the Pope, in a 43,000-word-long encyclical published in September 2020, Pope Francis, this is a quote from the World Economic Forum, put his stamp on efforts to shape what's been termed a great reset of the global economy in response to the devastation of COVID-19. So this is not just a social movement, it's not just a political movement, it's actually even a religious movement. So this global revolution, what Klaus Schwab calls the Fourth Industrial Revolution, he wrote a book, it was published in 2016, got it right here, the Fourth Industrial Revolution. This Fourth Industrial Revolution is not just social, it's not just economic, it's not just political, but it's also biological in nature. It's total revolution. Just like Huxley's final revolution, Aldous Huxley, who wrote extensively about such a revolution. And this is why the third section of Klaus Schwab's book, COVID-19, The Great Reset, which I copy right here, Klaus Schwab's book entitled COVID-19, The Great Reset, the third section of this, the third section of this book says that this revolutionary overhaul will be a, quote, redefining of our humanness, end quote. Klaus's 2016 book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution, expanded on this concept and how this reset is ultimately a transhumanist transformation of man. Klaus said, quote, this revolution will lead to a fusion of our physical, digital, and biological identity. Okay, this is a religious movement. It's not just a movement of the economy. It's not just a change in the way we see the response to pandemics. This is essentially a revolutionary movement seeking to redefine humanity, as Klaus Schwab says. So it's a religious movement, and it's based on faith and scientism. Right? The faith that has a creation myth, Darwinism. The faith with a priesthood, an exalted expert of technocracy. It's a faith with an eschatology about the perfected secular technocratic order emerging from the great transformative crisis opportunity that is COVID-19 and the climate crisis. It's a new covenant, a new social contract that seeks to redefine humanity and bring about a new smart transhuman. So I got a clip here from Klaus Schwab. Just gonna real quickly play a quick snippet here. I think you'll be able to hear this. It'll go through my microphone.
The fourth industrial revolution will impact our lives completely. It will not only change how we communicate, how we produce, how we consume, it will change actually us, our own identity, and of course gives life to such policies and developments like smart traffic, smart government, smart cities. What it will
Again, this revolution, the Great Reset, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, that Klaus Schwab and company say that needs to be ushered in response to this, is about the redefining of humanity. Smart humans, smart cities, smart grid. This revolution is a push for a new, redefined, transformed man, as proposed and explored in Stanford Research Institute's 1974 research project and book entitled The Changing Images of Man, which begins with a quote from Yu Fan, a Burmese diplomat and the third Secretary General of the United Nations, giving a Malthusian call for global government response to several crises. The quote is this: "I do not wish to seem overdramatic, but I can only conclude from the information that is available to me as Secretary General that the members of the United Nations have perhaps 10 years left in which to subordinate their ancient quarrels and launch a global partnership to curb the arms race, to improve the human environment and diffuse the population explosion, and supply the required momentum to development efforts. If such a global partnership is not forced within the next decade, then I very much fear that the problems I have mentioned will have reached such staggering proportions that they will be beyond our capacity to control. The Changing Images of Man calls for a new global mythos to unite humanity and transform culture and man himself. The new man, the Great Reset, is sold to us as a Superman, a Nietzschean Uberman to evolve beyond good and evil, transcending and evolving past his mythological, less evolved monkey and mouse ancestors, to build a revolutionary technocratic utopia where a digitally interconnected techno-biological fusion of humanity forms an internet of bodies." Right, that's a term from them, the internet of bodies. This type of superorganism in a platonic republic was theorized by 18th century utopian revolutionary Henry Saint-Simon, who said humanity should be ruled by a priesthood of industrial chiefs, much like Plato's philosopher kings, with men of science as the new priesthood directing spiritual vision of man who's no longer made in the image and likeness of God, but remade in the image and likeness of a machine. Bertrand Russell, heralded by many as a great philosopher and logician, articulated the worldview that justifies and drives this revolutionary fervor of scientism that the Great Reset is a result of. Russell assumed, like the technocrats of the Great Reset, that the problems of society stem from overpopulation. The climate crisis of the present day elite is, of course, a rebranding of the Malthusian overpopulation mythos that Russell put his faith in. Man is viewed as an environmental toxin whose existence is detrimental to a deified nature. Right? Nature becomes deified. And the prescription to fix the problem of man was, just like today, world government and the scientific management of man at every level. In his 1952 book, The Impact of Science on Society, Russell wrote that that we should see the crisis of man requiring a total overhaul, the Great Reset of global order. He said, this is a quote from Bertrand Russell from The Impact of Science on Society: "A clear choice must be made within 50 years. The choice between, excuse me, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. I had to cut in a little bit just to let you know you're at the 1 minute mark.
Yeah, I'm gonna finish my opening statement because I'm not even halfway through. So.
Okay.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
I know we're doing book review today. Okay.
I'm gonna finish my opening statement at least. Like, I don't know what's gonna happen after this. So I was told I could make an opening statement. No, so in 1952 book, The Impact of Science on Society, Russell wrote, "A clear choice must be made within 50 years. The choice between reason," he capitalizes reason, "and death." He also capitalizes death. And by reason, I mean willingness to submit to law as declared by an international authority. Russell claimed that, quote, "The need for a world government, if the population problem is to be solved in any humane manner, is completely evident on Darwinian principles." Russell's 1931 book, The Scientific Outlook, defines man as purely material. It says that distinguishing mind and matter is a mistake. That's a quote from him. And he exalts the discoveries of Pavlov, along with Darwin, another one of the saints of Russell's religion and scientism, because his experiments provided a framework for subjecting the scientific law, what has hitherto been called voluntary behavior. Right? So Russell believed that human voluntary behavior is just subject to scientific law. Man is just a machine to be modified. Right? So the smart city grid, social carbon credits, and the contact tracing initiated as COVID-19 crisis management are pure cybernetic Pavlovian behaviorism. His scientific outlook is openly religious in scope. Russell waxes poetic by the scientific worldview and says that the value of science as metaphysics belongs in another sphere. It belongs with religion and art and love, with the pursuit of a beatific vision, with the Promethean madness that leads the greatest men to strive to become gods. Right? So Bertrand Russell's worldview embodies this drive, this Promethean view, as he called it, to become gods. H.G. Wells, read by T.H. Huxley, also known as Darwin's bulldog, the grandfather of eugenics, and depopulation advocate Julian Huxley, who co-founded UNESCO and the World Wildlife Fund, and the famed writer Aldous Huxley. Wells wrote several nonfiction books on the desire for a global technocratic government and the desire for a proper global crisis to initiate such a system. His 1928 manifesto, H.G. Wells called for a world commonwealth to, quote, "be a world religion." Wells claimed that man's soul is no longer his own. It is, he discovers, a part of a greater being which lived before he was born and will survive him. So this idea of man as being just part of this greater organism of the great brotherhood of man that needs to be scientifically controlled, also proposed by H.G. Wells and many of the other modern thinkers of this revolutionary ideology that we see manifesting today in the Great Reset. So James H. Billington, who's the 13th Librarian of Congress, he taught history at both Harvard and Princeton. He wrote the history and nature of the revolutionary spirit of the West that we're seeing now manifesting as the Great Reset and the so-called Fourth Industrial Revolution. Billington's book is a profound exploration of the faith of the revolutionaries, this Promethean journey of will to power, as H.G. Wells and Bertrand Russell just spoke about. Billington's 1980 book is called Fire in the Minds of Men. Highly recommend that anybody interested in the history of revolutionary thought read that book. It's a very academic approach. James H. Billington was the 13th Librarian of Congress. He's a history professor at Harvard and Princeton. So in this book, he says that this faith of the revolutionaries is a religion. Now, here's a quote from his book, from the introduction to Fire in the Minds of Men. "The origin of a faith, perhaps the faith of our time," is what he's talking about here. "Modern revolutionaries are believers, no less committed and intense than were the Christians or Muslims of an earlier era. What is new is the belief that a perfect secular order will emerge from the forcible overthrow of traditional authority. This inherently implausible idea gave dynamism to Europe in the 19th century and has become the most successful ideological export of the West to the world in the 20th century." Right, so there are hundreds, maybe even thousands of hours of publicly available discussions, presentations, and even advertisement for the International Great Reset, as they called it, and so-called Fourth Industrial Revolution. These are world leaders openly advocating for this. It's not hidden. It's not a secret conspiracy. It's an open agenda. There are thousands of articles from the very people implementing this to overhaul our lives. They want to essentially bring in a new economic, social order, and this is not just an economic and social and political revolution. It's also biological. It calls for a new social contract. That's what Klaus Schwab, the direct quote from Klaus Schwab, "We need a new social contract. It's a new covenant." Okay, so it's being brought in under the excuse of the coronavirus pandemic. It's essentially what Prince Charles called, quote, "military-style campaign and a Marshall-like plan," end quote, to restructure our social, economic, political, and biological lives in response to a crisis that is framed to the masses in a way that makes it perpetual and even unwinnable. The war against an invisible, ill-defined, and constantly transforming enemy like global health and climate change is what's ushering in this Great Reset. There's no endpoint, there's no victory proposed, just a constant need for more control over and more transformation of man. The Great Reset is to be implemented through private-public partnerships, a PR term for basically global corporate governance. This technocratic reset includes, but isn't limited to, a rapid wartime mobilization towards a global government, a centrally planned global economy, and a new social contract. Okay, so I'll go ahead and just summarize this last section here. Almost done, don't worry. The centrally planned global economy that Klaus Schwab calls for, a new economic system of stakeholder capitalism. Okay, this is a new economic system sold to us using terms like zero growth, net zero, the circular economy, the sharing economy, and it's a global economy built around digital identity and social credits, carbon credits. It's being proposed and it's being marketed to save the planet and to save us and to bring about equality and all these things that sound good. When you actually look at what these people are looking to implement, we have no say in this. We have no real rights under the system, and this is being endorsed by global leaders, including the Pope. The Pope Francis, endorses this economic overhaul and the Great Reset by blessing Council for Inclusive Capitalism, an initiative founded by Lady Lynn Forster of the Rothschild. This council includes Bank of America, BP, Johnson & Johnson, Salesforce, Visa, and tons of other partners, including the Rockefeller Foundation, Ford Foundation, and the UN Special Envoy for Climate Finance. Okay, global governance includes a standardized international digital ID as proposed by the ID 2020 organization, which Klaus Schwab saw as a cornerstone of his fourth industrial revolution that would bring a, quote, fusion of our physical, digital, and biological identity. So your DNA will be your data. The Internet of Things, Internet of Bodies, Smart City Grid are all built upon this concept of global digital ID. Okay, the centrally planned economy, global digital ID, this is all a redesigned social contract, the new redesigned social contract that the World Economic Forum called for long before the COVID crisis catalyzing event. It's designed to function within a framework of the fourth industrial revolution of digital identity and global citizenship in a new economy. Humanity is just expected to embrace this complete totalitarian reset of every aspect of our lives and what Klaus Schwab calls a redefinition of our humanness, a redefining of our fundamental beliefs of who we are, how we should live, and the meaning of our lives. This new normal is revolutionary, technocratic, and utopian in vision. It's actually a global biosecurity surveillance state that defines humanity and humans as environmental toxins, as bioweapons, to be treated like cattle that can and should be tracked, traced, and controlled via digital behaviorism through the Internet of Things and the Internet of Bodies. It's a new normal of behavior modification through global corporate governance and digitized Pavlovian training. Right? You're basically Pavlov's dogs. It's a new normal of biological and brain modification even through big pharma and big tech. Klaus Schwab told Time magazine that, quote, the fourth industrial revolution is that it's not a revolution. It's a system. I'm sorry, it's not a product revolution. It's a system revolution. It's a revolution of all the systems that we live in. Right? The product of that new system is a new man, actually a transhuman. The Great Reset is openly touted as social, economic, political, biological, and even a religious revolution. This Great Reset is not only undesirable, it's inherently dehumanizing. This revolutionary faith assumes man is an automaton, a beast to be controlled. It transforms man, who from the Orthodox Christian perspective is made in the image and likeness of God, transforms him into an animal that's inherently bad for a deified and mythologized nature. An animal that must be controlled, tracked, traced, and reduced in number for the greater good. A materialist good, defined by a self-proclaimed elite, the stakeholders who will eat the steaks, while the masses eat bugs and GMO soy kibble rations. It's based on false premises of a dehumanizing religion of revolution, faith in materialism and humanism that exalts man as the measure of all things, who can, through his will to power, create a perfected global society. St. Eugene Popovich, his critique on European humanism, described this evolutionary so-called Superman and said, quote, in all respects, this is a man without God and without a soul. In other words, a godless and soulless man, a robot. A robot is a robot by its non-recognition of either God or the soul. After killing God and the soul within himself, the European man has been gradually committing suicide over the last several decades. For suicide inescapably accompanies deicide. The Great Reset is undeniably real. It's an open agenda, publicly declared, that intends to restructure all of human culture, human behavior, and human biology. We should reject this revolution and the fundamental assumptions that it's built on. There you go. Sorry, wait, a few seconds over there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, definitely, I'm going to give you equal time to respond to that.
Yeah, and just so he knows, you have like 25 minutes. So,
Right.
and Destiny, take your time.
Yeah, I just want to get to the back and forth. But I guess I got a lot of time just to lay this out. So typically when people lay out what would be referred to as a conspiracy theory, what we typically do is we lay out like a collection of vague or imprecise statements or a collection of facts that are indeed true. But then what we do is we do a lot of work behind the scenes to kind of weave this web that brings it all together into some sort of like malicious, horrible thing. Similar to like a teenager that might think that his parents are, plotting against him to destroy his life. Why do my parents tell me that I can't go out late because they don't want me to have a social life? Why do my parents take my computer games or my Switch from me because they don't want me to hang out with my friends online? I want to be a loser. Why do my parents, like make me do all these stupid things at school? Like I just want to go out and do like these more fun things. You take this collection of facts and then based upon your kind of like preconceived notions of how the world works, you're able to spin a story of these aren't a group of people that are concerned with your well-being. These are a group of people that want to destroy your entire life. So typically the way I tend to approach the breakdown of these types of ideas is we have to go through the particular examples of what it is you're saying is being done during the Great Reset to see if we can find some of these more nefarious or treacherous ideas or things or policies or proposals at least or ideas at least, and then see are these actually as bad as we say they are. I notice there's a lot of buzzwords being used here. We've got stakeholder capitalism. The concept of stakeholder capitalism, to my understanding, is not really that bad. The idea is that all of us have a stake in the well-being of our big corporations and our countries that these corporations inhabit. Therefore, those corporations ought to be beholden to the people that power them, namely the citizens of the countries that have these corporations. I don't think that those things are necessarily. You literally just read a book for like 25 minutes ago. You can do this for like 2 minutes ago. Don't worry. Okay. I don't think that these concepts are necessarily bad. I think that using buzzwords like this to try to say like, oh my god, like there's some eugenics program or Darwinian evolution of capitalism, blah 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 blah. It's all boring at the end of the day. I'm kind of looking for as we go through this because I didn't hear a single proposal that was actually bad. I just heard what amounted to basically like a 4-star Amazon review of a book. So yeah, if you want to get into it, I'm really curious. Like, what is we visited these 3 words a lot: a socioeconomic, a political, and a biological change or reorganization of people going forward into the future. I'm curious, like, what is an example of like a policy that is being proposed by the Great Reset proponents or something that we think is a bad idea or is going to harm society going forward?
Oh, is that supposed to be a question?
Yeah, I can write down with a question. Right?
Oh, cool. Yeah. Well, first of all, you made a lot of false equivalent statements there. Characterizing what I just laid out as some sort of conspiracy theory, that's a straw man. You're tearing down a straw man of a conspiracy theory, which I'm not proposing. What I'm saying is that the global Great Reset is an open agenda that anybody can read about. You can read Klaus Schwab's book, COVID-19, The Great Reset, which actually proposes that we redefine our very humanity. So you think it's a good idea to redefine our humanity? Or you're not even here? My argument's like, we're listening to you, just walk away. Destiny has left the room.
Coming back. Give him a second.
Yeah, so...
Okay, I'm sorry. Hold on, wait. So my question was, I just wanted one policy, but I know you're about to ramble for like 20 minutes about. I just want policy. I don't need like all of this. You just did this for like 20 minutes. I'm just curious, like, what's
no, you didn't even listen to what I just said.
I listened to like half of it, and I can guess the other half. Like
you walked away from. Oh, you can guess the other half. Yeah. All right. So Destiny, you think that all the policies promoted by the Great Reset are good ideas? Yeah.
Probably not. There's probably a great deal that I disagree with.
So you think stakeholder capitalism is a good idea? Can you go ahead and tell me what's good about stakeholder capitalism?
When I hear people talk about stakeholder
capitalism, let me speak.
You just asked me a question. I'm sorry. My bad.
You have to respond.
No, he didn't finish.
Destiny does get to respond. Tristan,
I haven't asked the question yet. Okay. Let me ask the question. All right, so Destiny claims that stakeholder capitalism is a good idea, and that's basically giving Destiny a say in what major global corporations do. How do you think you're going to have a say in what stakeholders are doing with these global mega corporations? We're going to set policy for you and how you live. How will you have a say in that?
What is a stakeholder? What do you mean when you say that?
You're the one who said it's a good idea.
I just asked you. Oh my god, hold on. I deal with a lot of like schizophrenic people in my community, so it's like this is going crazy. I'm just asking you a question. I don't need you to give me a speech or ask me 20 questions when I ask you a question. I'm just asking you like, what is a stakeholder?
What is a stakeholder? Is an ill-defined concept that Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum proposed for this new global economic system. Okay. Stakeholders, they say, are the planet. And shut up, let me finish. They say that the stakeholders are the planet, you, the people, right, as well as these global corporations, heads of corporations, and the shareholders. So stakeholders are the planet as well as the global population. Right? How are you going to be a stakeholder in this? These are ill-defined terms.
You just said, yeah, so you keep saying, how am I going to be a stakeholder in this? I'm a member of the planet, right? So I am a stakeholder.
You're a member of the planet. And what is the planet?
Are we doing flat Earth as well as debate? I don't know how
you're
much
a member
that
of the planet.
I mean, I'm a human being. I live on. Okay, so okay, let me. Okay, fuck. I have to do
What
this.
is the
Wait, hold on.
planet?
So let me.
You're a member of the planet.
Because I'm a human being. I live on the planet. So let me just talk for a second. Okay.
We have to give him a chance.
Okay.
Yeah, let me
Yeah, it's
finish.
fine. Do you want to add anything more to this? So just so you know where I'm going, because I'm not trying to ambush you. It seems like you don't know what a stakeholder is versus like a shareholder. Now I'm about to explain that. I'll give you one more opportunity.
The World Economic Forum itself is not going to explain what a stakeholder is. It's a loosely defined term that they can redefine as they choose.
Okay.
Just like a green economy. What is a green economy? What is a green recovery? These are ill-defined terms that can always be shifted.
Well, to help put us back on track,
Well,
answer this
yeah,
question
no,
gives us the regular definition of what a stakeholder is.
I'll explain this. So the concept is that you have shareholders and you have stakeholders. Now, traditionally, the fiduciary responsibility of a company is to the shareholders. A shareholder is somebody that owns equity in a business, or maybe has someone, but generally, like a shareholder is somebody that owns a part of a business. Now, the problem though is that businesses that are only responsible to shareholders have negative impact sometimes on other people that are impacted by that business. So, for instance, let's say that we have a business that handles, I'll use an example of toxic waste or something, right? Now, you might be a shareholder in that company. However, it might be the case that there is a town that you dump that waste in. Well, in a way, these guys are kind of stakeholders in the company. So, a stakeholder, you might understand what a stakeholder is. Stakeholders are typically people that are impacted by the activities of a business. So like the stakeholders are typically much larger than the shareholders of a company. And a company doesn't have to be concerned about the stakeholders of a company, but only the shareholders of a company. You have problems where the incentives are misaligned such that a company can do things that dramatically enriches the shareholders, but ends up fucking over a lot of the stakeholders. That's the problem. So we can talk about like internal shareholders for a company. Like an employee, for instance, is going to be a stakeholder. I think I'm not misrepresenting. An employee might be a stakeholder because you work at a company, but you don't really have shares in the company, right? And an external stakeholder might be maybe somebody that is like a customer to a business, or it might be like a town that a business operates in. So when somebody says that we need stakeholder capitalism, my understanding is that rather than having these mega large corporations fucking over the entire planet and burning everything down and taking things themselves and enriching just the people that are rich enough to have a share of the company, stakeholder capitalism says, well, hold on, these companies need to act in a way that benefits all of the different groups that they impact as well.
Yeah, and who defines what's good? Who defines what's good for the planet? You think you're gonna have a say in that? How are you gonna have a say in that?
How am I gonna have a say in that? Well, so when the government,
you're
you're not gonna let me answer. You're just gonna keep riddling. Is that?
I'm trying to finish the question.
No, you're not finishing a question. You're asking a question. You're steaming after to give the impression that you have more authority in the conversation than you do. Actually, I'm just gonna talk over you. Okay? So you're asking me how you have any impact on a corporation.
Tristan, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry I had to do that. I had to use the mic. There's too much chaos. You have to chill out for just a second. If you ask a question, you've got to give him a chance to respond to it, man. Just give him a chance to respond to it.
Finish formulating the question.
Okay, finish formulating.
In your stakeholder capitalism, which you say is so great, how will you have a say in what is good for the planet, and what is good for society, and what is good for the stakeholders, which you obviously identify with? You think you're a stakeholder. So how are you going to be putting in your 2 cents on how this is to be implemented, on how we determine what's good for the planet?
Gotcha. So the way that we do this is legislatively. Oftentimes, Congress will write legislation that will have an impact on the way that businesses operate. As a stakeholder and how these businesses operate, you have some input when you elect people to Congress or to your state or local governments for how you want these types of things negotiated. So an example of this might be as part of the negotiations for large multilateral trade agreements.
Might you? Okay. So you're going to speculate on how you might, in a hypothetical situation, have a say.
Okay, I'll tell you how you have a say in this then. When you, so through, it can be through protesting, for instance. So all
protesting. Okay, yeah, you're protesting.
Can you tell me what happened to the Keystone? Can you tell me what happened to the Keystone pipeline or the Dakota pipeline? I didn't think so. Shut the fuck up, right? You can have impacts over what goes on in your environment. There have been massive projects that have been canceled. Can I finish a single thing? There have been massive projects that have been canceled because of either protest or because of people directly influencing their leaders, their elected leaders.
And Soyceberg out.
I'm not Soyceberging, dude. You've talked like 10 times as much as me.
He's trying to answer the question for outsiders watching. Let him finish the answer, and then you
guys answer the question.
I just gave you. Stop using debate bro terms, bro. We're not like it's a false claim. You've engaged in a level 4 straw man. Like, dude, chill. Be a human being, okay?
You don't believe in logical fallacies?
I believe in logical fallacies, but when I'm talking to another human being, I'm not trying to win a debate on Reddit. I usually just say like, hey, bro, you said this thing. I think it's not right. That's usually how I talk. But if you want, we can employ like the language of fucking like philosophy and try to say like, oh, actually, you've engaged in a level 3 false equivalency. And propositional logic doesn't necessarily follow deductively. If you actually analyze it, like.
I would much prefer that we had perhaps timed responses. So
that's why we can do 2 minutes.
Yeah, we can do that. But when you ask a question, Tristan, at least give your opponent 15 seconds to lay
Okay, let's do. I vote for this. This is, by the way, now I'm a stakeholder in the show. Now I'm going to vote on the show to have input. Okay, for example, I vote that we move the time response because this guy can't handle back and forth.
Okay, we're going to do 1 minute time responses starting now. We'll start with you, Destiny.
I don't even know what. Oh, this example was how do we have input on what? Who's? Is your Destiny too?
Yeah, no, it's time.
My bad. I got my fight. My turn here. Okay, so the way that we have input is through either protesting. So, for instance, there have been 3 major pipeline things that have been canceled in the United States, or it might be through our elected officials. For instance, the TPP largely died under Obama because it didn't have very much support legislatively because people weren't too keen on being involved in the TPP. But even as an example of the TPP, if it would have passed, part of the provisions of the TPP was that while you were negotiating certain types of provisions, like what did labor have to look like overseas, part of the people that had a seat at that conversation were local labor unions. For instance, like the AFL-CIO had direct input on this legislation saying, hey, if we're going to have people in Vietnam manufacturing stuff for us, they need to have these rules and restrictions to make sure that we're competitive. That's an example of being a stakeholder in other businesses, and it's an example of how we achieve something like that legislatively.
All right.
Okay, cool. So that was a non-answer and completely ancillary to what we're actually talking about here. This has nothing to do with AFL-CIO. This has nothing to do with TPP. We're talking about the model of stakeholder capitalism as proposed by the World Economic Forum and this new system, the systemic overhaul of our lives that is encompassed by the Great Reset. So the Great Reset, as Klaus Schwab says, is a fusion of our digital and biological identities, right? So this means that your data is going to be your DNA. You're going to be redefined. Your humanity will be redefined. Do you think that's a good idea to redefine humanity? And do you think you're going to have a stake in this redefinition of humanity that Klaus Schwab proposes in COVID-19, the Great Reset?
Okay, right. So do you think it's a good idea to redefine humanity? I mean, I guess we redefine humanity all the time. I don't know what the question. I don't know how to respond to that. Can I finish? Yeah, Jesus fucking Christ. So when you say, do you think it's a good idea to redefine humanity? I need like an example of like, here's a way that we redefine humanity that would probably be bad. So for instance, historically, it was assumed that once your heart stopped, you were dead, right? Well, now we found ways to restart people's hearts. Now you're considered dead when your brain activity ceases. Does that count as redefining humanity? If that's the case, I would consider that to be a good redefinition of humanity. I don't want to bring up like slavery and black people being considered humans because I don't know where you stand on that. I don't know all the words. But in general, I don't think redefining humanity is always a bad idea. We're doing it right now in the United States as we wrestle over what the abortion law should be. That's an example of redefining humanity. When you say, will you have a stake in this? Yeah, I have a vote. I vote for people that I believe in, and hopefully I have a voice on a platform that I can talk to people, and hopefully I share my beliefs, and hopefully that has some influence at the end of the day of how these play out legislatively. And then I will ask you a question because you keep saying this. You keep using this term fusing our digital and biological identities. What do you mean when you say that?
So this is not my quote, this is a quote from Klaus Schwab. You believe that the Fourth Industrial Revolution and the Great Reset are inherently good, right? You believe that they're good, you think they're all swell ideas. It's funny because I came in here to actually have like a discussion and a debate. Right now a debate is going to assume that both parties are willing to change their mind, both parties are going to actually bring arguments, and both parties actually have a perspective. Now it seems to me like you come into this debate just to debate. It doesn't seem like you actually care about the position, doesn't seem like you actually care about my position at all, which is why you completely tune out several of my responses. So you say that this is all great, this is all a good idea, right? You ask me what is the fusion of the digital and biological, and we get the exact quote from Klaus Schwab.
Fusing our
here.
digital and biological identities. What does that mean? That's my question.
What is the? Let me find the full quote from Mr. Klaus Schwab here. And again, this isn't my worldview. This is Klaus Schwab's worldview.
But it's the one that you're attacking. How do you not know the worldview that you just spent like 25 minutes laying out as horrible? You said this. You uttered this phrase like 5 times. Fusing our digital and biological identities.
No, I didn't say I don't understand the worldview. I gave a 25-minute exposition of what this worldview is, the revolutionary worldview, and the revolutionary faith that it's based upon materialism, humanism, and this revolutionary guiding spirit that we see pushing the Great Reset. I just gave a 25-minute presentation on exactly that. So to say I don't understand the worldview here, here's the quote, Klaus Schwab talking about the fusion of our digital, of our physical, digital, and biological identity. So let me just pull this up here.
To be clear, you don't know what this is. You have to go find the quote, right? Okay.
Excuse me?
To be clear, you don't know what that means. Fusing our digital and biological identities. You think it's bad, but you don't know what it is.
No, I didn't say I don't know what it means.
Well, then why do you need to go and find the quote? Why can't you just tell me your own words what it means?
Why don't you? All right, listen. Can you slow down for a second?
Go play. You've talked 4 times as much as me, my dude. I'm sorry, I'm moving too quickly for you.
Okay. Just listen. You listen to Klaus Schwab tell you exactly what he's talking about here, and tell me what you think he means, because you think this is just a swell idea.
I'm not here to debate Klaus Schwab. I'm
here to debate.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm not here to debate Klaus Schwab. I'm here to talk to you, dude.
You're here debating for Klaus Schwab's ideas that you don't even understand. So you think this is all great, but you don't even understand the ideas. You're clearly not actually here to debate. You don't actually understand the topic.
So you can't. Okay, so
and you're not even here debating in good faith. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, and I'll let you hear Klaus Schwab himself give you the exact quote that you were asking about. So here it is. Okay, ready to listen? You gonna keep your headphones on this time? You gonna stay and listen?
Yeah, I hope we get this other guy. The Klaus Schwab guy sounds like an interesting dude. Maybe I should just talk to him next time instead of like this proselytizer or whatever.
Okay, so
you're actually playing a video. Holy shit. I'm sorry.
You want to hear the quote, right?
I'm just getting the quote from the video.
That's my bad. I understand. That's my bad.
What's the Fourth Industrial Revolution is a fusion of our physical, our literal, and our biological identities. When I wrote the book, I started to write it 4 years ago. It was published 2 years ago. It was so very interesting, overwhelming times and so on. And what is interesting is that 800,000 copies, more than 800,000 copies of those 2 million were sold in 3 countries alone: China, Japan, and South Korea. It would be interesting who was the biggest buyer with 16,000 copies at the same time. It was the Korean military.
So again, the idea of transhumanism has been used, has been proposed by militaries. You have DARPA, very interested in transhumanism, in the fusion of the digital, biological, physical, digital, and biological identities. Right. So the idea of transhumanism, human augmentation. You have the Ministry of Defense from the UK with a recent white paper, human augmentation. Look, if you're just going to
you're like playing videos and rambling. I just want to be like really concise.
No, I'm not playing videos and rambling. First of all, that's not what I'm doing. I'm actually making an argument.
So you're not, I'm not asking you for an argument. I just want a definition.
No, this is a debate, and we're here to make arguments. I know you're not actually here to debate. I know you're not actually here in good faith. You actually want to
Tristan, he's asking for a point of clarification.
Yeah, I'm literally just asking. Because I don't. You're right. Okay, I don't know what the fuck we're debating right now. I'm lost, and so I'm asking you.
So why would you come to a debate?
Because I didn't realize how out of my league I was. This class guy is hitting me with some big thoughts. So I'm asking you for guidance. Okay. Now you're telling me that this guy's saying he wants to fuse our digital and biological identities. I don't know if I should be scared of that or not. So I'm asking you, Tristan. Can you tell me what the fuck does that mean?
Should we be scared of that? You think that's a good idea?
Well, you're telling me that it's not. So I'm asking you, why is it not? What is it? That's all I'm asking.
Right, well, he's pointing to this transhumanist reality where we will be essentially using biosurveillance devices ubiquitously in what they call the Internet of Things and the Internet of Bodies. Right. So in the introduction, I'm sure you caught those terms. I used those about 4 times. So the Internet of Things and the Internet of Bodies are frameworks to connect all human organisms to the Internet via surveillance devices that will be on us as well as inside of us, which is why Klaus Schwab says that the Fourth Industrial Revolution will transform us. So it's an idea of transforming ourselves, human augmentation, transhumanism.
Okay.
So I mean, this is essentially something that the military has been talking about for a long time. DARPA, Ministry of Defense, also like these ideas.
Okay. So like, would cell phones count as this, as surveillance devices, because they're devices that we keep on us at all times that like can keep track of our location, or?
Klaus Schwab's talking about like implantable medical devices, stuff like that.
Can you give me an example? Do these things exist?
Yeah.
Can you give me an example of like an organization that's implanting these, or people that have gotten these that didn't opt in for them, or like is there any example of this happening?
What are you asking? That didn't opt in for them?
No, yeah, like yeah. Has this happened to people? Are they, like,
is that would it would have to be forced? I mean, nobody's being forced to have these implanted in them.
Well, if people are opting for if people are opting into something, then it doesn't seem like it's very conspiratorial. Then it just seems like people choose to do.
You're the one who keeps saying that this is conspiratorial. Nobody said anything about conspiracy. This is open.
Okay.
Right? This is not conspiracy.
Sorry, when I say conspiratorial, I just mean like there's a giant plan for something, not like fake. Okay. So
this is open. It's being planned. It's being promoted by the World Economic Forum.
Okay. Yeah. So can you give me an example of like one of these biosurveillance devices that you don't think should exist?
Did I say they shouldn't exist? See, again, you're trying to straw man my arguments.
I'm not. Can you please stop using debate bro terms? I'm just asking questions. I don't know what the fuck you believe. Wait, so you think these are good things?
You're playing a sneaky little game here. You're not letting me actually explain my position, which I explained my position at the very beginning. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have technology. My position is not that we shouldn't use cell phones, which you just try to straw man, right? These are not debate real terms. These are actual logical fallacies. Do you believe that you could use logical fallacies in a debate? You came here to debate.
Okay, yes, hold on. Let's back up for a second. Okay.
You believe that you can use logical fallacies in a debate?
Absolutely. Okay. Let's just wait.
Let's just
wait.
Here's one example.
You got your minute. You got your minute. Let me respond to some of what
you asked me a question. I was going to answer the question.
Okay, we'll get back to it. I promise. Go ahead, Dustin.
Okay. I just want to pull back for a second. Just chill. Okay. I'm just curious, Tristan. Like, what's like your favorite TV show? Like, do you like Game of Thrones or? I'm
here to debate the Great Reset. I'm not here to play pretend friend. I'm not here
to right now. This is so.
Okay, yeah. So I'm here to actually debate.
Okay.
So you want to completely derail? You want to talk about Game of Thrones?
Okay. One of two things.
You just want to admit that you're completely out of your element, like you said earlier, and that you didn't even come here to debate.
Okay. So usually I do this analysis post-debate. So right now, one of two things is happening. Okay. Either one. So either one, you are actually like experiencing psychosis right now, and you've completely broken from reality. In which case, nothing I say is going to get through you. Nothing you say is going to get through me. Or two, you're just somehow this got off on the wrong foot. You're very emotionally invested in this argument, or I'm too emotionally invested, and we're literally not connecting on anything.
I'm here to actually debate. I'm here to actually debate. You're describing.
You're not debating. No, we're not debating right now. Okay. I don't even know what your position is on anything.
I stated my position for 25 minutes.
You say this Klaus guy's position. Which one you disagree with?
You want me to state it again?
Okay, so I'm asking you for a very simple, just a simple question, okay? So you now
You're going to shift to change to something else.
No, I'm not changing. I'm going back to the question I asked earlier.
Why don't you just call me psychotic again and ask me which
I didn't. I said the second option is maybe we're just like too heated.
Why don't you just call me some names and then tell me that you don't want to debate again?
Let him talk. All I'm asking is, okay, so the biosurveillance thing. I'm not shifting. No, we haven't even gotten to the field. There are no goalposts yet. Okay, I don't even know how to score in this conversation. All right. So,
yeah, because you want to let the conversation actually get started.
Conversations are two-way streets. We have to be able to understand each other's points and then respond to those points. Okay.
Dude, if this was a formal debate, you lost 3 minutes into it, man. This is so you're throwing out ad hominems, make false equivalent statements. You're using every logical fallacy you can get your hands on, and you're refusing to actually debate. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I keep trying to ask it, and you keep interjecting. Right, can I ask it?
Ask a question.
Okay. So my question is a short two-parter. Is what is biosurveillance? Like, or you kind of answer that. But like, what is an example of like a biosurveillance device that you're opposed to? And then two, do you think that biosurveillance is even a good or bad thing?
We'll do one at a time, right? We'll do one at a time. Yeah, what is a biosurveillance device? Did I say that I'm inherently opposed to biosurveillance devices? No.
Okay.
So again, you're trying to strawman an argument.
How am I strawmanning you when I'm asking? Okay, I'm gonna just keep it. How am I strawmanning you when I'm asking a question? How am I strawmanning you when I'm asking a question?
You tried to claim that I said that these shouldn't exist.
I'm sorry, but when you mention these as a bunch of like kind of bad things, it sounds like you said they shouldn't exist. But that's why I'm asking you a clarifying question. I'm not here to strawman you. I can just shut the stream off and just strawman you, or I can shut this off and strawman you. I'm not trying to strawman you. That's why I'm asking a question.
I'm not trying to debate either.
No, because we haven't gotten to the debate yet.
To clarify.
I don't even know what the fuck you believe about any of these things. Okay, so
I just gave you a 25-minute introduction. Did you not hear my introduction?
I heard it, but you didn't say. Yeah, because you didn't say anything. That's why I'm trying to get.
I just you want to do my introduction again, and then we just close this out.
Holy Christ, no! Please, God, no. Okay. All I'm asking you is like.
All right, listen. Here's one example: implantable living pharmacy could control body sleep-wake cycles. Project receives DARPA contract. That's the military, worth up to $33 million over 4.5 years. Northwestern University-led team of researchers has signed a cooperative agreement with the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency to develop a wireless, fully implantable device that will control the body's circadian clock. Right. So wireless, so it's controlled externally, your circadian clock. So I'm sure you think you'll be a stakeholder in DARPA's wireless security, wireless implantable device that can control the body's circadian clock and the wake-sleep cycles. This is one example. There's a myriad of these. There are implantable microchip, what's it called? Contraception. Implantable microchip contraception. Let me just pull. So
okay, can we just focus on this one thing instead of like?
No, you asked. I'm answering your question, dude.
No, here,
the Washington Post.
You guys both did say you have one back and forth. It's fair to let him probe. He's just trying to flesh the position out. So
he doesn't want to do the position.
But I think he does. I think just give him a minute to flesh it out. Let him flesh it out so he understands it better. Go ahead, Destiny. You can flesh the position out. It's totally legitimate to do.
So in talking about this device, do you think this device is a good thing or a bad thing?
Do I think this is inherently good or bad that this exists? That's not my argument.
No, but he's just asking for
Tristan,
you're the professional. Tristan, you're the professional in the room on this. You studied it. We're trying to figure out what your position is on it since you know so much about it. Take a position on whether it's good or bad. It's not a bad thing. If you think it's bad, it's not a bad thing. If you think it's good.
The argument is not that an implantable microchip is a good or bad idea. This is one small aspect of the Great Reset, which is what we're here to debate. Right now, you want to zoom in on one aspect? That's fine. We can talk about this. A microchip that is a remote control contraceptive device that's implanted under skins. Do I think this is a good or bad thing? From my position, right? I believe that morality is objective. Right, so contraception, reproductive health services, abortion, we inherently think that this is a bad idea, right? That we shouldn't be killing babies, we shouldn't be using contraception. Man is made in the image and likeness of God, and we are actually commanded to be fruitful and multiply. So this specific device, that is not my argument though in this debate, and that is not actually important to this debate. The debate is about the comprehensive Great Reset, right? So if you actually rewind and listen to my initial opening statement.
Can I go a little bit?
Really quick. Let me just try and help. So Destiny, this is what he's saying.
Oh no, wait. Yeah, so I'm gonna broaden this and then I'll ask for him.
Okay, cool.
So Tristan, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm not trying to strawman, escalate, whatever. Okay. So this is my assumption of this conversation. Now maybe I wasn't paying attention to what okay. So it sounded to me like what you were saying is that there is a large force moving, both in large corporations and in government and in these intergovernmental agencies and everything that are trying to enact or enforce on us this Great Reset. And in this Great Reset, they're trying to move humanity in a certain direction, socioeconomically, politically, biologically. They're trying to move us all in a certain direction. And it sounded like when you were talking about this, is that this is probably not a good thing. So for instance, earlier when you mentioned about redefining humanity, you made it sound like that was a bad thing. You don't want to redefine humanity. So my assumption is that you have this large migration of us into some area, and in order to migrate us, socioeconomically, politically, biologically, transhumanly, whatever, in order to migrate us there, there's going to be a whole subset of actions taken that are moving us in that direction. And my understanding is that you would be opposed to all of those minor actions because all of them lead to what would essentially be the Great Reset. So what I'm trying to ask is, what are some examples of these smaller actions that are being taken where you see that and you're like, that thing right there, that's a bad thing. It doesn't serve humans, it doesn't serve any of the greater good. It's just something that's being put in place to move us towards the Great Reset. That's an example of something malicious that's being undertaken by the government or by some large corporation we should fight against. That's what I'm probing you to try to figure out. What are those things?
You're just trying to say my position for me again. Now I'm not here for you to make up a position for me and then tear down that position. That's called a straw man, right? So you didn't actually listen to my introduction, which is very clear here. I believe that the Great Reset is not a good idea. I believe that the Great Reset is inherently not a good thing, right? Now you are arguing for the affirmative or for the negative.
Normally I would like do the analysis. I don't know how to get through this guy. I have no idea. I don't know what I can say. I feel like it's crazy. Like he's psychotic. I have no idea. I don't know how to get through it.
Right. So this is what I came here to debate. We're debating the Great Reset. I'm not here for you to make up a position for me and then tear that down. Okay.
Can I ask just real quick? Can I ask like, do Andrew or Pedro? Do you guys feel like I'm trying to strawman this guy, or am I fucking crazy?
Well, here. I just read a good comment. Okay. And it's saying the debate was over the existence of factual evidence leading to the Great Reset and whether it will happen or not. What Tristan, I think, while I agree, very, very complicated, was laying out pieces of evidence, like you did identify, Destiny, that will lead to that, right? So it's a matter of fact that it's happening.
Well,
right?
so the thing, so here's the interesting conversation about the Great Reset isn't like, are we changing as we move forward as a species or whatever? Because that's a process that's constantly happening, right? Like even calling it the fourth industrial revolution, are you like, is that implying you're opposed to the third or second industrial revolution? Like, I don't understand the implication of that. If somebody's going to say, for instance, like I'm not gonna sit here and say that like, oh yeah, like nothing in the planet is changing. Of course we constantly are, and especially during great times of crises, things will shift around more than normal. That's not only normal on a governmental level, it's normal on a corporate level. For instance, if you file for bankruptcy or reorganize your company, it's normal on a familial level. If something dramatic happens in a household, family members might move out, somebody might be committed to an institution, and it's normal on an individual level. If you hit rock bottom, you might make a dramatic change in your life. So we can argue that there is some form of change happening, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that it's more important to look at the changes that are happening to make sure that people aren't taking advantage of a situation to pass something they might not be okay with. For instance, like the Patriot Act versus somebody taking advantage of a situation to pass something we do want to happen. For instance, like Elizabeth Warren strengthening the Consumer Protection Bureau to make sure that people aren't like committing financial fraud or something after the 2007 crisis. That's like what the conversation I want it to be at. It's like, okay, well, if you think that some things are changing in bad ways, what are those things that are changing? Let's talk about that. You know, is Soros behind the scenes, pulling the trigger on some projects that are going to fuck us later on, or is it just like naturally economies and governments and people's like reorganize as like crises happen because that's always what happens. That's the conversation I would hope would be about.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this is what the conversation should be about, right? And when we're talking about fundamental changes to culture, fundamental changes to humanity as are being proposed here, I mean, these people are proposing a redefinition of what it is to be human, right? Now, when I asked you that earlier, you said you think that's a good thing. I mean, that would
I didn't say that. Now you're a strong enemy. Okay.
No, you did say. Okay, so you don't think you think it could be a good idea?
Hey, there, I said it could be, but I don't know what you mean by redefine humanity. I need you to clarify. I didn't want to just talk about things.
Well, this is you see Klaus Schwab in the World Economic Forum. When he talks about this in his book COVID-19: The Great Reset, he doesn't actually define what we believe humanity to be initially. He just says we can redefine humanity and gives a vague statement that this is a good thing, right? This idea of a new social contract that they're proposing. I mean, they have articles where they talk about we need a new social contract.
Sure, so what are they proposing that's bad? What are they proposing you don't agree with?
So do you think that this is a good idea to have a new social contract?
Why are you answering my question as a question? I'm just asking you. I don't know what the fuck you think is bad about this. I have no idea. Like, where
they don't even clearly state what they want this new social contract.
Okay, if they don't even have a clear statement for what it is, then why the fuck do you care about it? These guys sound clueless, like clueless hippies.
Because when you actually look at the worldview that they hold, when you look at the power that they wield, we're talking about the biggest corporations in the world. We're talking about like the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. This includes Monsanto,
yes,
Shell.
Okay, I need an example. So this is my question. How are they wielding that power in a negative way then? That's what I'm asking.
You want to keep cutting off. You want to keep cutting off. And now let me define these things. They want to redefine humanity. What do you believe humanity is? Now, from my perspective, man is made in the image and likeness of God. From my perspective, morality exists. There actually is morality. There is right and wrong. So we're going to talk about is this good? Is this bad? Is this a desirable thing? Right? We're going to have to talk about how we define what's good, what's bad. We're going to talk about redefining humanity. We're going to have a definition of what humanity is. Right? So when you say something, listen. You say
stop cutting him off. Jesus fucking Christ. What's wrong with you? I'm sorry, Tristan. Go ahead.
So
chill, guy. I just wanted to try and put it back on track. So you both, it seems like here you both agree.
Yeah. So we're talking about fundamental aspects of reality being changed, being rearranged. Is this good or is this bad? Destiny. Do you believe that there is objective good and objective bad? Is there right and wrong? And are these objective or subjective?
I would say that these are subjective.
So right and wrong is subjective.
Yeah, so I would say more anti-realist, yeah.
Yeah, is truth objective or subjective?
It depends on how deep you want to get into that. I don't know. I think we're going to this
level. So you don't believe that morality is objective?
If I'm giving you the most fleshed out answer possible, right? I would say that obviously I think that as humans we need some epistemic foundation to have meaningful conversations. But I would say that if universal truths exist, it would be foolish to assume that humans have the capability to access that universal truths. I don't know how deep of a meta epistemic argument to get into. I don't know how it's relevant to this conversation though. So,
this has everything to do with this conversation.
I don't think it does. I don't think we need to get into like crazy like.
Right and wrong, good or bad. This is a conversation.
I think that we don't need to have a meta-ethical discussion to talk about the Great Reset. I think it's like most people
probably. If we're talking about destiny, if we're going to talk about what's good or bad, right or wrong, and you don't believe that there is any inherently good or bad, right or wrong, anything. If you don't believe that there's a standard for good, bad, right or wrong, or truth, then how can we even have an argument? Do you believe there's objective truth?
I think we act as though there's objective truth. Otherwise, everything devolves into absurdity. Of course, that's why I literally said we have to have some epistemic grounding for what we say, whether we can access universal truth or not.
You don't think we have access to universal truth?
No. Why do you think we do?
You think that's universally true that we don't have access to universal truth?
I don't think that we can know whether we have access to it. So you tell me, how do you know that you have access
to it? You just made a universal truth claim.
No, I didn't. Don't.
Yes, hang on. Let's go back to you just made a universal truth claim.
Are you a presuppositionalist too? Is that where we're at now? Jesus Christ.
This is what you just said.
No, my question to you then is, how do you know that we have access to universal truth? Can you answer this without using God?
That's the only thing that we can ground universal truth in.
How do you know?
Right. The only way we can have universal truth, right or wrong, is God.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
What? So you deny the existence of universal truth?
Like, are we gonna do presuppositionalism now? Like, fuck, this is like an AIDS conversation. I'll bring like dark dog. You guys go back and forth.
It's presuppositionalism. He's actually bringing up a good argument. It's called examining the worldviews.
No, so this is a presuppositionalist approach to epistemics, because basically what he's saying is that the only way that you can know that you have access to this truth because it's granted to you divinely through God, and through God granting you this ability to have access to truth, you know you have access to it because God's granted. It's ultimately circular, like everything is. But it's a presuppositionalist argument instead of like moral questions and epistemic questions. But it's like, fuck, this is like a whole philosophical like bullshit that we have to go through. I don't know why.
But the problem was at the beginning of this whole line of argumentation is you asked the good or bad destiny. That was you.
Yeah, so
you said that, and now what's happening is you both agree on a change is occurring, and now you have to examine each person's worldviews to see if that thing is actually good or bad.
Sure, but
that's what he's doing.
So when we have a conversation of like what is good or bad, right? You're typically not asking this on the highest level of ethics. You're not asking like on a meta-ethical level. So for instance, let's say I get into a car crash out on the street, and like a cop walks by where the person I hit is like, oh my god, like was this good or bad? And you're like, well, what do you define as the goodness, right? We all typically in society work on these shared ideas of like what goodness and badness is. We don't have to have meta-ethical debates with every single person we talk to that uses the term good or bad. This is like purely debate bro, like semantics. Like nobody in the real world actually engages in conversation. The only people that argue about meta-ethics are philosophy people going after the PhDs and masters of nothing else they want to write about. They speak way too much German. Okay, nobody cares about this shit.
Destiny, we're talking about philosophy. I care about this. You're here to debate the morality of the Great Reset.
No, I'm not here to have a meta-ethical debate. I was here having an applied ethics discussion. We're three levels beneath it. I'm not here to talk meta-ethics with you. Okay, I'm here to have an applied ethics. We're talking about the actual policies as they are applied, and the Great Reset is what we generally agree they're good or bad.
You want me to grant you and assume all your metaphysical presuppositions so that you can make an argument when you don't even believe that there's objective truth. You want me to pretend like there is objective truth in your worldview so that you can ground that worldview.
The beauty of normative and applied ethics is that most of us agree on most meta-ethical things anyway, even if we don't come from
the same place.
It's not. Please stop using debate bro terms. Holy shit, it is so fucking crazy. You are, okay? Two people. I can have a conversation with a Christian. I can have a conversation with a Muslim. If they're asking me something like, hey, is me chopping your arm off good or bad? We don't have to come from the same meta-ethical position to have an agreement that this is a bad thing. That's the beauty of society. A lot of people can come together with totally different meta-ethical foundations and all function and operate perfectly fine under the same legal framework that is laid out legislatively in whatever country you're in. You don't have to share meta-ethical assumptions or agreements with other people to have the same applied ethic levels. You're being fallacious there. Boom.
No, there's so many logical fallacies that you just use. And when I call out your logical fallacies, you interrupt and you scream these are debate bro tactics. Dude, this is how a debate works. If this was a formal debate, you lost it about 15 times over, dude.
But it wasn't. It's an informal debate that has back and forth. I do understand your point. Don't get me wrong. But how can we move the conversation forward in your view?
How can we move the conversation forward about ethics? How can we move the conversation forward about ethics?
Well, this is a conversation about ethics. I'll help you do it right now. I'll help you do it right now. Just listen. I'll help you do it right now. Instead of calling out it as just a fallacy and just throwing that out there, and I totally get what you're saying, Tristan. Why not ask a question that probes, that leads onto another question that ultimately leads to, yes, that is why this is not right, because that is what you just described a fallacy.
He doesn't believe that right or wrong exists. This is the thing. How can we have an actual discussion? He doesn't even believe right or wrong exists, that good or bad are objectively real. This guy doesn't even believe that there are fundamental objective truths. He thinks that truth is just relative.
Tristan, you're using my same jam. I'm on the same jam. I gotta say, right? What you have to do, your job as a debater, is to breadcrumb him into the cave of knowledge.
No, my job as a debater is to end the debate when he admits defeat. This dude has done nothing but throw out logical fallacies.
Okay, you know what? Okay, how about this? I'll be Catholic.
He can't even ground morality and ethics.
I'm Catholic for this conversation. That's my meta position. Okay, where do you want to go from here?
That's your, see, now you're clearly debating in bad faith.
I'm not debating bad. I went to Catholic school for 12 years, okay? We studied catechism, we did all of our shit. I went to a Jesuit fucking all-boys high school, okay? I'll debate from a Catholic perspective.
You argue just like a Jesuit. So, anyways, this is the debate is actually over, Destiny. You lost the debate, dude. This is done. You're clearly not even debating in good faith. Like, there's no point in proceeding. You don't believe that objective right and wrong exists, yet you want to debate the ins and outs and the rights of wrong and wrongs of the Great Reset, which I objectively proved is real, is global in nature, right? So if you want to debate someone else in the future about the Great Reset and play these stupid little games and pretend like you can actually ground ethics and morality in your worldview and make objective moral statements and objective moral claims while denying objective morality, then you can do that. But why would I allow you to continue this? Why would I allow you? You've lost the debate. It's over, dude.
So do you think that two people can only have a conversation about policy if they have the same meta-ethical grounding?
We're having a conversation about ethics and morality. That's where
Wait, did you hear my question? Can you repeat my question to me?
This is not how you debate, dude. You don't ask me to repeat.
You didn't answer my question. This is insane, dude. Holy shit. Dude, I know a girl that you two would be perfect for each other. Okay, so I'll ask again. Do you think that two people with a different meta-ethical position can have a conversation about ethics? Or policies, or
we're having a conversation about ethics and policies. And in order to have this conversation about ethics and policies, about morality, we're going to have to talk about the fundamental measures that we use to determine something's good or bad, right or wrong.
Okay, so so you're saying that if two people have different meta-ethical foundations, they cannot have any meaningful conversation.
That's not what I said. I said this conversation right now. I asked you, how are you going to determine what's good or bad, right or wrong?
This conversation is not. This conversation, to be clear, was about the Great Reset. It wasn't about meta-ethics. So my conversation is: can two people with different meta-ethical foundations have a conversation about the Great Reset? Or is it impossible?
Yeah, we're having a conversation.
We're not having a conversation about the Great Reset. You brought it back to meta-ethics. So my question is, again, for the third time, we're not having a no, we're not talking about the Great Reset. We're talking about meta-ethics. Okay, that's what we're talking about right now. My question is:
you're all over the place, man. I don't know. It seems you keep like moving your jaw all around. It kind of seems like you might be on some sort of drugs. It's kind of strange.
Come on. You don't have to, it doesn't have to. I feel like some drugs would help you a great deal. You should check out some great antipsychotics that are available in the United States. It's going to bridge you back to the real world, maybe. But,
you cannot ground your reality. You cannot ground your morality, rather. In your worldview, you've admitted that. You want to have a conversation about morality and ethics, but you don't believe that morality and ethics.
So in the future, you should say, like, I don't want to debate you about the Great Reset because I don't even know my own shit. You should say, I want to have debates about meta-ethics. That's what you say in the future. Just say that. Just say that.
Again,
just say that. And that way, because then I'll skip this shit. Why the fuck wants to argue meta-ethics? What a pointless fucking conversation. Or epistemic truth or whatever. Like, Jesus fuck. Like, I have philosophy friends I can talk about this shit. I'm gonna talk to fucking random bald dudes on the internet about fucking meta-ethics. Like, what a waste of time. Holy shit.
Yeah, swearing a lot makes you right.
I'm sorry, is God judging me for that?
Can we get to the evidence with the Great Reset?
No, we're not talking. We can't talk about that. I don't even believe in objective universal truth. How can I understand anything about the Great Reset? Right?
I've already laid out.
Right. Can we get back to that? Can we get back to those facts? What do you think about, for instance, what this guy Schwab said? What are your, what's your feedback on that?
Well, I'm still trying to figure out, like, when he says redefine humanity, what the fuck does that mean? What is his definition of humanity?
They want to move us towards a transhumanist future. I told you. This includes an internet of bodies, an internet of things, where everything is tracked and traced by a central global authority run by corporations and governments in public-private partnerships, as I said in the introduction.
Yeah. So my question to you is that you just described cell phones. So you don't think cell phones are evil or bad?
We're talking about as well. We're talking about.
Can you tell me what you just said that doesn't apply? Wait, what did you just say?
No,
I'm not steamrolling. What did you just say that didn't apply to cell phones? What part of that doesn't apply to cell phones?
And cell phone is an implantable medical device.
You didn't say implantable when you just gave that definition. You didn't.
Look, dude, this is you're not debating in good faith. You're not even debating.
I'm the one in bad faith.
Well, he can probe the evidence. No, this is ridiculous. This guy's lost about 5 times over. I've given examples of the implantable medical devices, incling implantable birth control chips.
Yeah, and then I'm asking you if these things are bad or not, or if you think they're bad or.
Do you think implantable remote control birth control chip funded by Bill Gates is a good idea?
It could be, sure. I'm asking you. If you think it's a bad idea, now we found something we have a debate about. Now we can actually talk. But you won't take a position on anything. You just have the Santa Claus guy.
I already told you, birth control is inherently bad.
Okay, so but your problem there doesn't have anything to do with the Great Reset or any of the technological technobabble or transhumanist bullshit. You're anti-abortion.
This is the silliest, ridiculous.
No, this is like me. This is like you making the argument that like I think that Mustangs. You're saying this is your argument. You're saying Mustangs are horrible cars and evil. You should never make them. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Wait, why do you hate Mustangs? You're like, well, because wheels are bad. And it's like, wait, so then you're probably with cars with wheels. So you're giving me examples like some implantable fucking birth control. And I'm asking, okay, well, why is this bad? Like, well, I'm opposed to abortion or birth control. Like, well, so
you use logical fallacies. You just
strawman false equivalency. Fallacy.
This is ridiculous, dude. You clearly come in bad faith.
Absolutely.
So you believe that? Hold on. I answered your question. I told you that I think the implantable microchips are a bad idea. You think that Bill Gates developing implantable microchips that can be remote controlled are a good idea?
If you're talking about something for birth control, depending on the application, I think that'd be good. I don't know what remote control means. You understand? You know what
remote control means? Okay, great.
Do you want me to give you an example of why that statement might be a little bit more complicated? I don't know what your background in tech is, right? I don't know if remote control.
It's a moral question.
Hey, first of all, if something is implanted in your body, it's probably always going to have to be somewhat remote control, unless you're going to have to dig into it every time to fucking do something.
Screaming a high-pitched voice without making an argument and trying to steamroll and displaying really exaggerated emotional states physically does not win a debate. That's not actually that's not a debate, dude. So you think that implantable microchips to remote control microchips for birth control could be a good idea? Yeah. Then the question becomes, all right, how do you determine what a good idea is and a bad idea? What's the standard for these objective moral claims that you're trying to make about the ethics behind some of these devices that you want to zoom in on and pretend like is the entire argument when it's just one little piece of what the
I can answer that question without the extra rambling.
Yeah, how do you determine what's good or bad, right?
So typically in a liberal society, we give people the autonomy to make decisions over their own bodies. As long as they're making these decisions over their bodies and it's not causing a bunch of harm to other people, I think generally those are good ideas. So if somebody decides that their choice of reproductive control wants to be some implantable birth control thing, and I see no problems with having birth control, then I say, okay, well that's probably an okay thing.
Yeah. So how do you determine what's good or bad, right or wrong?
Now we're back to meta-ethics. Do you want to say like
where any ethical conversation has to go, dude?
Okay, so to be clear, earlier when I asked you, can two people of different ethical foundations have a conversation? You wouldn't answer. So you're saying the answer is no, they can't. Okay.
No, look, why do you get so uncomfortable when I ask you to
I'm not uncomfortable. I'm just incredibly bored because I don't debate meta-ethics. Okay.
Why not? You won't debate ethics. Why won't you debate ethics?
I'll debate ethics. I just won't debate meta-ethics. Do you want me to explain what that means?
Why will you not debate meta-ethics?
I don't want to debate meta-ethics because I don't believe that there can be any truthful statements made about meta-ethics. I think it's all just.
You don't believe that there can be any truthful statements made at all?
Okay, let me ask you a question. Okay, if you see somebody doing something that is bad, how do you know that thing is bad?
How do we determine what is right or wrong, good or bad? In my world, we can actually ground ethics, we can actually ground morality, right? What is good and what is bad are determined by God, right?
So here's my question. Okay, that's
you don't let me answer. You won't let me answer.
Jesus, dude.
You don't actually let me answer.
Fuck, brevity, dude. Come on.
Oh, brevity. Oh, bro. You want to actually answer the question?
You're not answering the question. You already answered. You told me that it's God. So I have a follow-up. Now you're about to say a whole bunch of relevant shit that isn't going to impact the next question. Go for it, dude. You want to keep rambling?
Come on. You're rambling, dude. So I ask you a question and when you answer, you're just rambling, bro. Look, in my worldview, we can actually ground and actually justify good, bad, right, wrong, logic, reason. In your worldview, you have no justification for logic for reason.
Why are you talking about my world? This is part of your answer now. You're just rambling.
You actually denied objective truth.
So Tristan, here's my question. Tristan, I have just one question for you, okay? Let's say somebody somebody else, let's say somebody comes up to you and they say murder is good, and then you say murder is bad, and then he says, well, how do you know murder is bad? And you go, because God told me. And then you ask him, why do you think murder is good? And he says, because God told me. How do you resolve that disagreement?
This is the stupidest hypothetical. That's not an argument at all. Dude, can you do that again? That was really
Sure, I'll repeat the question to you. Two people try to resolve a moral point. Two people have a moral question, and they come to the answer, and totally they have two different answers for it. But they both say that they've received revelation through God. How do you resolve that disagreement, figure out who's right and who's wrong? This is the problem with grounding your meta-ethics with divine revelation. It's why presuppositionalism sucks. It's ultimately circular at a foundation that is inaccessible to external parties. You understand? I can tell you that God has revealed anything to me, and I automatically win the argument. Do you understand the problem with that?
That's not the idea. You're strong man in the argument.
Then can you tell me the answer to the question? Two people that both believe in God, have a different answer to a moral question. How do you figure out which one is right and which one is wrong?
Truth isn't given to us simply intellectually. You try to intellectualize truth. You try to intellectualize morality, right? Morality is something that is metaphysical. It's something that is transcendental. We require something that is transcendental to ground objective truth and objective
Just so
morality.
you know, when you're done with this ramble, I'm gonna ask the same question. So go ahead. Ramble go ahead.
This is ridiculous. So you're not actually letting me answer the questions.
I'm letting you answer right now. Go answer. I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna ask the question. You're not answering because you don't have an answer to that. And this is the problem. Fundamentally, this is the problem with people like you that try to. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, you're just steamrolled. The debate was over 15 different times in this conversation.
So I just want to draw everybody's attention to the fact that this is the final question. Tristan will be done. He's shut down now. This is where all presuppositionalists come. Because guess what, guys? Moral fact is unobservable. And when somebody tells you that they can know moral fact through an internal experience, and when by definition your internal experience is inaccessible, the content of your mind is inaccessible to any other party, then we can never verify those contents. So if two people have a disagreement over what they both perceive to be as divine revelation, that disagreement can never be resolved, which is why meta-ethics is a garbage fuck waste of time, especially with the presuppositionalists that thinks that God is giving them the fucking answers. There's been a number of terrorists and cult leaders and people that have raped and murdered and shot and whatever people who all say they got divine revelation from God, and every single one of them was just as right as the other person. So I will repeat the question once more to you, Tristan. How do two people that disagree on a moral question resolve their disagreement when both of them say that God directly revealed the answers to them?
See again. You accuse me of rambling. I start to give you an answer. You immediately interrupt and go on a long, methy ramble while nodding your head around like you're freaking.
This is the dodge that I told you guys about. He's not going to engage with this question because this is what shuts down the precept arguments.
No, you keep rambling about precept arguments. You don't even let me make an argument.
Still not answering. You're spending a lot of time talking about why you want to answer, but you're not going to answer this.
Let me answer to it. Answer to it, Chris. Oh, am I allowed to speak now, or is Mr. Methy Mouth going to be able to steamroll me again and go on an incoherent ramble while telling me that I'm rambling? Okay, so when you're talking about ethics, when you're talking about morality, when you get to the meta level, right, you can observe the systems, the systemic, the systems that one grounds their morality in, right, to see if it actually allows for the possibility of things like knowledge or ethics or metaphysics, right? So if you inherently deny that there is objective truth, if you deny that there's objective truth, you're actually making an objective truth statement by saying that, which when Destiny lost the debate earlier, he claimed that there is no objective truth. That's an objective truth statement, right? His worldview has been shown to be incoherent. He came here to debate the Great Reset. We're getting to the question of are these ideas that are proposing the Great Reset good or bad, and he can't give me an answer to what his objective standard for good or bad is. Right now, from my worldview, coming from my perspective, right, we believe that morality is objective. We believe that human beings are made in the image and likeness of God, which is why you're redefining humanity, right? Human beings redefining humanity when we are inherently fallen, right? We're inherently fallen. We were created in the image and likeness of God, and through the fall and through the noetic effects of sin, we can't just make claims about what we believe humanity is just from simply observing humanity without revelation, right? So you can't. He's not even listening. So you cannot ground ethics, you can't ground morality in your worldview. In my worldview, we believe that morality comes from God. We believe that good and bad, right and wrong come from God. We're coming from a Christian, from an Orthodox Christian worldview that is grounded in history, that is grounded in revelation. And good and bad, right and wrong come from God. Without God, you can't have good, bad, right, or wrong, which is why Destiny does not want to have a conversation about how he can define what is good, bad, right, or wrong. He wants to talk about broad generalities and make statements like, well, a lot of people believe that you can just talk about applied ethics in this frame or in that frame. And he wants me to grant him his worldview. I'm not going to do that, right? Objective truth exists, objective right and wrong exists. We're talking about fundamentally restructuring our very reality and our definition on what it is to be human, right? So we're going to redefine what it is to be human through this Great Reset, as proposed by Klaus Schwab, and which Destiny says is just a great idea. We're going to have to define what humanity is, right? We're going to have to define what right or wrong. We're going to have to be able to determine what is good or bad, right or wrong, if we're going to make objective truth statements. So he doesn't believe in objective.
Now
let's give him a chance to respond to that. Go ahead.
Yeah, so my question was, two people have a disagreement on whether or not something is morally right or wrong, and they both claim that they know those things are right or wrong because God tells them. How do you resolve that disagreement?
That has nothing to do with the argument that I just made.
So you told me, you tried to answer this in a very roundabout way by saying you can observe systems, but earlier you uttered the phrase, you can't intellectualize it. Now, observing things with your senses and then trying to put together answers based on those observations sounds like intellectualizing me. So I'm asking you, as somebody that has a solid meta-ethical foundation of the world where God grants you moral truth through divine revelation, how do you resolve a disagreement between two people that say that they're both inspired by God? How do you resolve that disagreement?
It doesn't matter.
Tristan,
wait. Don't just respond. Take a second, because there is an answer here. I think you both are just very heated and going back and
I'm not
forth.
heated at all. I just a simple question.
Oh, cool. I'm just saying, take a second, think about the question.
He's chill. It's all right.
Yeah. So two Christians in a room claiming something. One has to say what in order to actually prove their impact, the one with the objective truth.
Yes, it doesn't ultimately matter what a single man says is true or is false. What matters is what is objectively true. Truth is revealed by God. So we're given truth in Holy Tradition, in the Holy Scriptures, right? And from the Orthodox perspective, we have the Holy Scriptures and we have Holy Tradition, we have divine revelation that is given to man's heart, right? So how can two people argue and determine what is true within that framework? It doesn't matter what two people will argue in a hypothetical situation of two people in the street trying to say this is bad, this is good, this is right, this is wrong. What matters is what is objectively true, and that's not determined by us. What do you think about that, Pedro?
Oh, so you're putting me in the seat?
No,
Well, Pedro, you made it sound like you knew that there was
You can take me in.
You said you think there's a great answer, so like.
So the moderator has off, right?
No, you stay out of it.
Okay.
Well, I want to hear what you think. You said you think there's a way that you can figure that out.
Oh, he's trying to get you to bail him out. Nice. You do what you want. He needs the help.
Well, actually, you know, I want to engage Destiny. I want you to hold this line of questioning for after debate and run me through the same drill, and I'll show you the start difference.
He wants the answer.
No.
I want to hear Pedro's.
You can say
about what's objectively true. To Destiny, this is about winning a debate. To me, it's about what's actually true.
So to be clear, we're not debating yet. Like I don't even know what you believe about anything. We haven't gotten to a debate. None of this right now is on our debate.
Hear this?
Yeah, you want to, Pedro? Yeah,
Pedro.
Jesus Christ, holy fuck.
Tristan, just take a back seat. All right, Destiny. So what I would do if I was in face-to-face with another Christian and they asked
no, not with a Christian. That's easy because you can appeal to like so let's say you're like with a Muslim, right? You're trying to figure out like I believe in the deeds, blah blah blah. You're like, okay, what do the scripture? How do you resolve these different divine revelations when two people feel like they've been divinely inspired?
We've taken to the tenacity of the scriptures. We have 5,400 Greek manuscripts. We have over 140 pieces of excavated, preserved papyri. We can go back and look at the original languages and see who, in fact, is actually talking about the real God and who really with Muslims, it's who Jesus was, who can actually more accurately describe him. For Mormons, I would go to the Bible in the Old Testament and actually define that there's only one God because they believe there's going to be like multiple gods, so like a pantheon. For Jehovah's Witnesses, I would just go down to basic the identity of Jesus Christ once again because we believe he's Michael the Archangel. I'll take it to the scriptures. Each and every one isn't a tenacity of history. I don't need tradition by the way to do this. I could just go to what we have excavated.
So what if somebody comes and they say, well, I'm actually a believer in a religion and I think that a demon has revealed these things to you to mislead you, and I've been
so scriptures say talk about that. So I actually definitely believe that what's his name, Joseph Smith, definitely saw an angel in the forest. I think it was a demon, a fallen angel. So what happens there is whenever you come into contact with an angelic being who gives you another gospel, the scriptures automatically say this is a demon before you.
But what if somebody says that the scripture itself, the original scripture, was right? And by the way, the scriptures of which there were more of, right? There are multiple books that don't make the current scripture, right? That have been gone through councils, that have been voted on the past for whether or not they're included or not, right? There are gospels that show Jesus with Mary Magdalene. There's, the different councils that determine which books are in.
I know what you're talking about, the longer ending and the short ending of Mark, all this good stuff. This has all been fleshed out within Christian debates.
So, but what do you say somebody?
What we have to do is actually look at the original languages. Go back to the Greek Septuagint and the Hebrew languages, and we can find out who's actually telling the truth. Our history goes back into 10,000 years. We have the most tenacity of any kind of written religion available to us. So very easy. So we have history on our side.
Yeah. So, but what I'm saying is, this is the problem with divine revelation, though, right? So Jews are going to disagree with you, and they're going to say that like the coming of Jesus, he was not the divine prophet that was God, right?
Right.
And other people could come out and say like it could be as radical as these languages are implanted by aliens.
The whole Jewish thing. Okay. So what I would do is go with the Jews and go once again back into the Torah, the law, because that's what we actually agree on. That's the Pentateuch, the first 5 books given down to Moses, and from that we can actually derive the prophecy that would give us the description of the Messiah. And then if I go just into the New Testament and then I start referencing all those passages that describe Jesus, oh look, we have Jesus who matches perfectly what happened in the Old Testament that was prophesied. This is the Messiah, Jewish people. You're waiting for. If I had to talk to the Jewish people right now, I would say you're waiting on something that's already happened. It was Jesus Christ.
What would you do if another? What would you do if another Messiah came and somebody claimed that this was the new Messiah? How would you resolve disagreements over whether it was or wasn't?
I would do exactly what the Apostle Paul had an interaction with a people group called the Bereans. The Bereans took him to the scriptures and they said, hey, we need to check all this. And Paul, the apostle, who is one of the people carried along by the Holy Spirit of God, he pretty much said, good on you. You did right by testing me by the scriptures. So every single time, what we do is go back to what the objective truth, which is in the scriptures. Not my tradition, because traditions change. And not to say that I don't have any traditions. I do have traditions. I'm a fallible man. But that's where we go. No. So let me get this line. I'm trying to get you to the other end here, brother. Because what's going to happen here is I'm going to hand you back the cake. I'm going to hand you back the cake. And we're going to
So let's
Yeah. So step out.
Yeah. So anyways, if we're talking about ethics, we're talking about morality, we're talking about how we determine what's good, bad, right, or wrong, right? The debate is about the Great Reset. What is the Great Reset? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it right? Is it wrong? Right? So you wanted to zoom in on the microchip thing, you wanted to zoom in on the Internet of Things, Internet of Bodies, right? Determining if these are good, bad, right, or wrong. Where do you want to go with this now? I mean, you don't want to talk about meta ethics because you can't ground your ethics in your morality. You believe they're objective, right? Where do you want to go with this now, Destiny?
It sounds like I think you're legitimately psychotic. I don't know what to say. Anytime I try to push you on a particular thing where I can't finish answering the question,
what is the topic of the debate, dude? You want to debate
the topic was supposed to be about the Great Reset. So I was trying to ask you.
We got into ethics. We got into morals and ethics. How do you determine what's good, bad, right, or wrong? You said you don't believe that good, bad, right, and wrong objectively exist. Then you call me psychotic. So I mean, that's you're ad hominems. You're I guess that's your argument, or that I'm psychotic. But do you want to debate the Great Reset? Do you want to debate the morality of the Great Reset? What do you even want to debate?
I wanted to go into parts of the Great Reset, like actual examples of things that you think are bad. That's what I wanted to talk about. But then you wanted to talk about meta ethics, so I don't know.
Because when we're going to talk about what's good, bad, right, or wrong, that naturally is where it goes.
So then stop saying this is a conversation about the Great Reset. This is a conversation about meta ethics.
Is it? Do you want it to be that? You said you won't go there. You said you won't do that.
No, I said I want to talk about the Great Reset. That's what I came here to talk about.
Okay. So, anyways, do you have any more questions about my initial statement, my opening statement, which was comprehensive, which proved the nature of the
Do you think the Great Reset is good or bad?
Yeah, I think the Great Reset is inherently undesirable, right? I don't even think you should desire this, even if you're coming from an atheist materialist standpoint. It's not going to benefit your.
I'm not asking you if I desire it, dude.
Again, you don't let me finish any statements. You consistently interrupt. You steamroll. You use ad hominem attacks. You make that your argument. You think that you use that.
Well, do you have questions about his evidence? That's right.
Yeah, we're never gonna get to that. Yeah, I want to know about some of these horrible Great Reset things to see if he thinks they're good or bad or right or wrong, what they are. That's
right. So I see what's so disingenuous. It's so disingenuous. The way you go about this is ridiculous, man.
So the problem is that, like, so what Tristan's done. So what I laid out at the very beginning of this debate is actually like my 30-second statement. So the problem is that people build these grand narratives around this collection of facts, but when you start to analyze these facts one after another, they just fall over like dominoes, and then the entire.
You haven't analyzed any of the facts.
I know because you won't let me because you want to talk about fucking meta ethics. Okay?
Oh man. So again, you strongman position. You call it conspiracy theory.
Strongman.
Look, you wanted to talk about remote control contraception. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, and I asked you if you thought this was a good or bad thing. You said,
well, I told you it's objectively bad. You say
yeah, but it's not bad because of the Great Reset, because of technology. You think it's bad because you disagree with birth control. Do you understand how that's not relevant to this conversation?
Absolutely. Just like I disagree with redefining humanity.
What? What do you disagree with redefining humanity? What?
You won't let me finish the sentence. Just like I disagree with the idea of fundamentally redefining humanity, because I believe that it's not man's place to define humanity. Right? It's not your place to define humanity. I don't care if you believe you're a stakeholder. I don't care if you think that sitting in your coon pod and eating freaking bugs all day is going to make you a stakeholder. That using your social credits to purchase free outside time, the behaviorist control grid that the Great Reset wants to implement. If you think that's a good thing, how does that make it actually good? Right? Like, I mean, you think that contraception is good. I think that it's bad. Right? Like, we can just sit here and compare. Oh, I think this is good. Or I think this is bad. And if it all comes down to an appeal to hedonism, right? If it's all just, oh, well, this makes me feel good, so I think it's good. That's ridiculous. Right? So I think that the utilitarian perspective, the hedonistic perspective on how to determine what's good, bad, right, or wrong is silly. I don't think that it's a viable framework, and I fundamentally reject that that foundation for determining what's good, bad, right, or wrong. So, does that answer your question?
Can you give me an example of technology by the Great Reset you think is bad because it's related to like this redefining, not because it's against something you already think is bad, whether it's part of the Great Reset or not?
Can you restate that question, please?
So you're not opposed to remote control birth control because it's part of the Great Reset. You're opposed to it because you're opposed to contraception. So can you give me something that's part of the Great Reset that you're opposed to because it's
redefining humanity.
Okay,
redefining.
Can you explain to me who's trying to redefine humanity and what part of that redefinition you disagree with?
Well, the Great Reset represents a group of people, global in scale, right? These are a lot of world leaders. You have Prince Charles talking about a new covenant for nature, right? A new deal for nature is another one of these terms that's often used. You have Klaus Schwab. You have the Rockefeller Foundation. The let me just interrupt. I can't let you finish.
Okay, my bad, keep going.
You can't finish your actual argument. I'm not going to let you actually make a statement. You can finish, man. So again, he's not even listening now. But he asked me to tell him who is trying to redefine humanity. I just gave him a list, right? So this new digital identity system that they need to bring in, I'm also opposed to that. I think that not only is objectively wrong. I think not only is it objectively wrong to track, trace, and control people's animals, but I don't want to give Bill Gates and Gavi access and control over the global standardized digital identification system as proposed by the ID 2020 group in Gavi. So I mean that's another thing right there.
Okay, do you want to talk about that identification system then or something, or? Every time I ask you a question,
you're asking me for a specific.
Yeah, just one. No, you're not. You're saying the Rockefellers did this, and this guy Prince Charles did that, and this guy. I don't want to.
Who's trying to redefine humanity? And I just gave you a list of the people involved in pushing this idea of the redefinition of humanity under the Great Reset. And then you're like, oh, I just can't hear all this. It's like you lose memory of what I'm actually answering. Like you lose the memory of what the question actually was halfway through my answer, and then you start trying to deflect and make me jump through new hoops as you move the goalposts of your questions. So like this is not even a debate, dude. I've got like about 5 more minutes of patience.
Can you stick around to answer some questions from the?
Yeah, from the audience or from you guys, I will most definitely stay as long as possible. But maybe I know Destiny doesn't really have a position. I know he has no idea, has done zero research on the Great Reset. He hasn't even read Klaus Schwab's book, dude. You haven't even read Klaus Schwab's book, COVID-19, the Great Reset. Your initial position in this debate is that there is no global Great Reset, right? There clearly is. So like your position is ridiculous, and you're debating just to debate. You're not debating because you have opinions.
Okay, can I ask you a different question? Do you think that do you think evolution is like a thing, or do you think that's not a thing? Do you think it's all fake?
This has nothing to do with.
I'm just curious because it's kind of part of the Great Reset, right? First we make
evolution is a theory. I think evolution is a theory and one of the foundational theories of the Great Reset.
Okay.
Do I think it's a thing? Yeah, I think it's.
Do you think it's accurate? Do you think it describes things accurately?
Do you think that it is? Do you think that it's true?
Yeah.
Objectively? It's objectively.
I didn't say objectively. I think it's a good description of the world. So you're not gonna answer that question. Hold on. Do you think dinosaurs existed on the planet at the same time as humans did?
I think dinosaurs exist on. This is a debate about the Great Reset.
I'm just curious. I'm just bro. I lost the debate. I'm just trying to see what else. I'm just curious what else you got.
Oh wait, bro. Let's go back to talking about Game of Thrones, bro. Like, let's just slow it down. Talk about like your favorite. Like, what's your favorite movie, bro?
I'm just curious. Do you think that dinosaurs and humans were on the planet at the same time? I'm just asking.
Bro, do you think that like dinosaurs and humans were? Do you think people hated dinosaurs? That'd be so.
I'm just curious. Do you think that humans and dinosaurs were on the planet at the same time?
This is ridiculous. It has nothing to do with the debate.
That seems like a pretty easy question to answer. I'm just asking. Do you think humans and dinosaurs were on the planet?
This is ridiculous.
So one of the questions that I have is for Destiny, and the question states, Destiny, can you clearly define what you think the Great Reset is? I don't think we need to review. I think we fleshed out pretty good.
Yeah, I feel like everybody has different. So I don't even know how many like mainstream politicians use this term Great Reset. I haven't heard it. I know that there are people who write books and whatever. Like my understanding of like what a Great Reset would be is that in a time of great crisis, there's going to be a lot of money spent on different projects, and it gives us the opportunity to reset something in society in a way that might be better. So for instance, one example, in the United States, some people say that our current like healthcare infrastructure is really shit. Maybe as we reorganize and as we kind of get our economy rolling again, maybe there's a way to get rid of, to deintegrate healthcare away from the place of employment and find a way for the government to give us like a public option or something like universal healthcare. That would be an example of like a Great Reset. Or maybe we have like different ways to roll out like new labor laws or something to help workers. Or maybe we have different ways for companies to operate that is like part of like the Great Reset. That's my understanding when people talk about like a reset. It's like the concept of like the Green New Deal. As much as I'm opposed to it, like the concept of the Green New Deal is that we make a whole bunch of jobs and infrastructure, but we do it in a green way, so we're moving in a different direction going forward. That's like the Great Reset. It's just reorganizing things in times of great crisis, namely the coronavirus crisis.
Tristan, did this debate go like you thought it would go?
I really had no idea how this guy would debate. I thought he actually came to debate in good faith. I mean, he conceded in the very beginning, I'm not prepared for this, I'm out of my depth, I don't know anything about the Great Reset. I mean, he steamrolled the whole time. He obsessively used logical fallacies. And when I brought up his logical fallacies, he goes, debate bro tactics. I don't even know what that means. Debate bro tactics. I mean, this guy has been the snakiest debater that I've ever seen. But, you know, I mean, it is what it is. He doesn't like letting me actually get my points across. As soon as I start making a point and explaining my position, he derails and goes off the rails with some new points, tries to shift the goalpost. It's been ridiculous. I had no idea how this would go. Obviously, I prepared for this. My opening statement was comprehensive. Anybody who wants to understand my position on this and what the Great Reset is, listen again to the beginning of this so-called debate, which wasn't actually a debate, with my opponent, who I thought would actually prepare, but he conceded the debate about 10 times. Doesn't believe that morality is objectively real, but is going to argue for these objective moral positions, said that truth is not objectively real. There is no objective truth, right? Which is an objective truth claim, which refutes his own position. The dude he doesn't even believe in truth. So like, it's been bad faith the whole time for him. This is sad, but it is what it is.
Wait, I'm actually genuinely curious. Who do you think has talked more in this conversation? Tristan.
Who I think is talking more? I don't know the time. I don't know the time, but it feels like when you speak, it feels like incredibly excruciatingly long periods of time.
So do you genuinely think we're close to 50-50 in terms of who's been speaking like more? What we spoke about? So you think I've spoken more than you? I'm just curious.
That has nothing to do with the debate.
I said I did. I'm just asking. Everything has to do with the debate, right? I'm just asking a question.
We're here today.
So I'm just asking a question. Who do you think spoke more?
I'm just asking a question. Who do you think spoke more? Why do you think that's important?
I'm just seeing how keen you are to reality. I'm just curious.
What's your favorite Game of Thrones character, dude? Like, let's talk about Game of Thrones. Do you like French fries? I like hot dogs, dude. Is that cool? Yeah. Okay.
What was you had a couple there, Pedro? What did you have?
You want me to chime in?
No, the question. I didn't see the question. Sorry.
Okay, my bad. Let me just bring it back up here for everybody. Okay, so we actually had a few super chats come in, and I'll apologize right now because of me picking a red font. They just came in all blurred, so I'm just going to read it here. For $3, Dan Zemet, he says, Destiny, we see global organizations and people in power saying the world is overpopulated, but in reality, the birth rates are steadily dropping beyond replacement rates. Do you find this concerning?
I don't know who's saying overpopulated. My understanding is that, so I'm 32 now. In the early 2000s, in the late 90s, we talked about overpopulation a lot. It was like a huge thing that the world was going to be crowded. But my understanding is that as people have seen birth rates slope off all over the world, now the mainstream thought is that I think it's the 9 billionth person will never be born. Like, I think it's 9 billion. They will never reach that number because as countries industrialize, that might be higher, maybe 10 or 11 billion. But as countries industrialize, birth rates slope off. I don't think anybody's saying that we're like overpopulated. And if they are saying overpopulated, my guess is going to be that if you dig into those statements, it's more like we're causing environmental harm in certain areas because of consumption. It's not this idea that we're overpopulated and we need to depopulate the planet.
All right. And our next super chat, I'm just going to...
Okay, can I ask Destiny a question?
Oh, yeah, you get to interact. Go for it.
Yeah, so you don't think that overpopulation is a good thing? I mean, people like Bill Gates who are proposing this global identification system are also developing remote control, microchip, implantable technologies for birth control, right? People who... What's funny about that? I mean, I've proven that...
You pretended to ask me a question and you used it to monologue again. You're like a soliloquy machine. It's just funny. Okay. Don't worry about me laughing.
Yeah, you just... Okay. So Bill Gates openly says we need to depopulate. There are too many people. Develops contraceptive implant microchips that can be remote controlled, and is heavily invested in this ID 2020 global identification infrastructure. Do you think that's a good idea to all be put on a global identification system by this ID 2020 group that's manned by like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation through Gavi, the Rockefeller Foundation, big corporations like Microsoft? Do you think that's a good idea? Do you think that's something you would sign on to?
Am I gonna be able to answer this without interrupting? Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, so
Isn't it funny how he
Let him
answer. Everything that he spent his whole debate doing.
let him answer. Let him answer. Hang on, let him answer. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, Destiny. You can answer.
So it's very hard for me to answer a question when you ask me something like, are you okay or not okay with this incredibly complicated technology that exists on a very macro level? I don't have a way.
Let him finish.
I don't have a way to answer whether or not a global ID system is good or bad. A global ID system might be something like passports, or a global ID system might be something like you are being injected with microchips while you sleep so that the government can keep tabs on you. This is why I wanted to get into more specific applications of these technologies to talk about whether or not these things are good or bad, because I can't look at a broad meta or a broad macro level description of some technology and answer if it's good or bad. I need to know the application of it. I need to know something more specific about what it is.
Okay, so
all right. Oh, you're gonna interact?
Yeah, you can interact with it. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. So you mentioned like passports. The ID 2020 group, funded by Bill Gates, Rockefeller Foundation, they actually are promoting global vaccine passports. Do you think that's a good idea?
A global vaccine passport.
Standardized internationally, yeah.
Well, my understanding is that passports are already standardized internationally. Whether or not a global vaccine passport is good or bad, that's a really rough one. The thing is that if I think it's probably okay. Countries should probably have a right to determine who they let in and out of their country, unless you would attack the country's sovereignty and ability to decide how they control their borders.
So I mean, this is happening right now. The global vaccine passport rollout. I mean, this isn't like hypothetical. I mean, this is being rolled out now under the excuse of COVID-19, and this is something that was planned long before that. ID 2020 was promoting these ideas back in like 2018 at least. So I mean, yeah, this is something that's not just in response to COVID. It's something that was desired even before that.
But I mean, I don't see it, like, depending upon where you're coming from. So I've done a lot of international travel. Depending on where you're coming from, where you're going, you already have to do like certain vaccines or medical examinations based on the risk of where you're coming from. I mean, if the country wants to determine that, like, hey, in order for you to come to this country, you need to meet like this medical requirement. We already do it for immigration. I don't think that's necessarily the worst thing in the world.
Well, it's not just for that though. I mean, it's for going to restaurants as well. I mean, this is for going to sporting events, going to sporting venues, possibly for interstate travel has been proposed by the Biden administration.
I have never heard of the Biden administration proposing for interstate travel. You need a vaccine passport. I don't believe that is true.
They're talking about that as a possibility of something that may be needed in response to this.
That's impossible. That doesn't work in the United States. We don't check.
I think it's ridiculous too. I don't think.
No, I'm not saying it's, we don't have the infrastructure to check. We don't have any type of passport in the U.S. So
this is what the fourth industrial revolution enables.
You walked out of all of that because you just made a bunch of shit up. Okay.
I just made a bunch of shit up. So again, this is what the fourth industrial revolution and the Great Reset will enable through the smart city grid, right, which is actually based on a global centralized standardized identification card, not card, but identification system that is digital, right? Digital identification that's universal and worldwide. Everybody has a digital ID. Right, so this is what this.
I've never heard of a digital. The only thing I've heard that's even remotely comparable is a passport, like an actual. But I'm sorry, when you talk about passport, I'm talking about passports, like actual passports, not like.
Yeah, well, even the passport could be international passport, international travel is good. That could be implemented there, and it already is in some countries that you need certain vaccines. I mean, I don't think that's a good idea. But
wait, why not? Wait, what do you mean? You don't think a country has a right to say?
But I'm talking about like venues, restaurants, stuff like that. With the vaccine passport, they already have this in many countries.
Do you think a restaurant has a right to refuse certain customers if they want to?
Do you think a restaurant has a right to refuse black people if they want to?
No, because black people are a protected class in the United States. Whether or not you're vaccinated, it's not a protected class.
Why should black people be a protected class?
I mean, do you want like the legal theory? Do you want the moral theory? Or I don't know what you want.
You don't believe in morality, so I guess the legal theory.
God, you have to go back to metaethics.
What's the next question, Adrian?
So just real quick, the legal answer I think is the Civil Rights Act is what gave us like protected classes. And you can't discriminate against moral argument is that like there are certain classes of people you probably shouldn't be able to discriminate against society because it like causes like the destruction of society. If you discriminate against like veterans or like women or black people or whatever, like it causes like large fuck ups in society that the market can't correct for.
Do you think that it's okay to discriminate against some people in society?
Yeah, we discriminate all the time against all sorts of people for a variety of reasons. Yeah. For instance, when I go to McDonald's, I'm discriminated against trying to go to the play place. They won't let me because I'm too old.
But not black people, right?
I think black people are allowed at McDonald's. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's okay to deny unvaccinated people, perhaps.
If a business, assuming that my understanding is that like whether or not you're vaccinated is not a protected class in the United States, so a private business has the right to choose whether or not they want a vaccinated or unvaccinated person. I think. Now I don't know if they can demand a card to see it. I don't know. Maybe that's something they challenge the court. We'll see how that goes.
So you think it's okay to discriminate against some classes of people, but not others, but it's strictly from a legal standpoint?
Yeah, okay, so you're using this word discriminate. I don't know what it means, right? So for instance, like somebody consents for naked, you can discriminate against naked people, right? You're using the sign no shoes, no shirt, no service.
Discriminate is to discern between different things. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about denying services.
Yeah, for certain people, yeah. So some types of discrimination are, of course, we discriminate all the time in terms of like we discriminate against people who can drive. If you're 4 years old, you can't drive. There's some level of age discrimination, right? But when it comes to like renting places to people, when it comes to hiring people or letting people in place of business, there are like sexual identities are protected, or racial identities are protected, veteran status, I think familial status, like these are things we decided. Now maybe in the future, maybe somebody will say, hey, I don't think somebody should be able to ask your vaccine, so we'll amend some part of the Constitution or amend some part of the legal code, I guess, to say like, oh, well, these are protected classes too. That could be a thing in the future. I don't know.
Okay, so if all corporations decided, the stakeholders decided that it's okay.
Shareholders, not stakeholders. Go ahead.
If the stakeholders determined, meaning I guess you're part of that because you believe you're a stakeholder.
But the stakeholders don't make decisions. Shareholders, corporations do. You're using the word because you don't know what it means. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I did. I
did. I asked you to define it. You couldn't. But go ahead.
Shareholders are included in the stakeholders in the stakeholder capitalism model. Okay. You actually admitted earlier you had no idea what stakeholder capitalism is. You know what the Gregor said is when you conceded the debate in the very beginning. But you think that it's okay to discriminate against some people, right, but not other people. And how do we determine who it's okay to discriminate against? How do you determine that?
Well, legally or morally?
Morally.
Yeah, we're going in a circle, gentlemen. I gotta move us
forward.
forward.
How do you determine that morally?
I mean, morally, you see, like, does it serve the interests of society or not? So, for instance, in some cases, age discrimination is good. 4-year-olds probably shouldn't be allowed to drink. In other cases, age discrimination might be bad. I don't want to rent this apartment to somebody that's 60 years old. I don't like old people. That's probably bad, right? And then whatever our moral code is there, we agree on that societally, and then we codify it into law.
Okay. When the Nazis decided to discriminate against the Jews, that was okay because the Nazi society agreed together. That was.
I mean, clearly in the Nazi society it was because it's codified as part of the legislation. I'm not a Nazi though. I'm not talking to you about Nazi law.
I'm not saying you are. I'm not saying you are. But
I never said you said I was. But I'm saying, like, you're asking from a Nazi's perspective. Clearly they thought it was okay. It was part of the legislative system. It was part of their like whole military complex. Yeah.
But you say that you believe that's how you determine what's morally right and wrong. It's just who the great.
No, I'm just telling you where laws come from. I'm just.
When I asked you how you determine what's good or bad, you said, well, society determines that.
Oh, if you're asking me on like a meta-ethical level, then we're gonna go all the way back to our earlier conversation about how like I don't really answer those questions. I'm better about a meta-ethical level. I think those
you can't go there because you know your whole worldview falls apart if you go there.
Fuck, you got me.
All right. Moving forward. Yeah, let's move forward. I need to pivot away from this one fast. Go. All right, so Salokin donated $5. We appreciate that, sir. And his question is to Tristan: did dinosaurs and humans exist at the same time, how old do you think the Earth is?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what you mean about dinosaurs.
You doesn't know that question means? Really? Alrighty. Okay.
No, he's got to answer. That was a wait, hold on. That guy donated. He's a stakeholder. He's a stakeholder in the stream.
What you mean by dinosaurs? I mean, you're talking about, what are you even talking about?
Have you ever seen the movie Jurassic Park? Those guys. Was Jurassic Park non-fiction or fiction? That's the question.
Yeah, that's a very cool atheist question. Is Jurassic Park
Joe 41.
The atheist literally lives in a fantasy world, right? Created by Hollywood of a mythologized reality with this made up.
It's like fucking Matrix.
Yeah, so that's a very atheist perspective.
Fucking A, bro. You know what? It was scientism, I think. That's where science comes from. These fucking atheists. I think they can use science to determine what's right and wrong in the world. It's fucked up. Same guys are.
You can't use science. You actually believe that you can use science to determine what's right and wrong?
Well, I do. I'm an atheist, and I believe in scientism.
Do you believe that science can determine what's right and wrong?
Oh, yeah. Fucking right.
Do you actually believe that? I mean, see, you're not even here to have a good faith conversation. That's like what a strange way.
You know who's prophet? I believe in the prophet of Sam Harris. He's my god. Okay.
Well, that's a false god. You should come to the real living Jesus Christ who died for your sins. My friend, Destiny, let's have a talk after this, okay? Let's have a nice talk. I swear I'll answer you directly. We have a donation from OrthoDog for $5 to Destiny. Are you willing to have a debate or discussion with Jay Dyer about the subject of the Great Reset?
Wait, fuck. Was that addressed to me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll talk to literally any other person besides this guy about the Great Reset.
All right, we would love to host that Crucible. Yeah. All right, and then we have our next one to Tristan from Good Grief, who donated $5. We very much appreciate that, sir. Tristan, is this God in the room with you right now?
Yeah, we believe that God is everywhere, filling all things, right? So in the creed, we affirm that God actually upholds everything. Do you believe that science is in the room with you right now?
He's asking you, Pedro, or the super chat.
Oh, me?
The super chat.
Okay, tag me answer at any moment. Okay, so we're gonna. I think we need to. If Destiny wants to, we can have a close discussion about this. But I'll put up the next one. It comes from Peacecraft, who donated $3.
Can I ask one question real quick about that?
Go for it, sir.
Yeah. Tristan, do you believe that God knows all things?
Yeah, absolutely. God is omniscient.
Does God know what it feels like to take a dick in the ass?
I mean, just again proving how demonic. And
I'm just curious because you said God is knowledge of all things, right?
I mean, again, complete disgusting blasphemy coming, and it's not surprising, you know. And then these are the types of things you would think about and speak, and it's just sad. I mean, it's just absolutely sad. But God was incarnate, and God was not a homosexual or a coomer, and God was without sin, so no, did not engage in sodomy. When God became incarnate and became man for us, men for our salvation, right? He did not engage in sodomy, degeneracy, and any of that.
But he is omniscient, so he knows what it's like. He doesn't have to engage in it. He doesn't need the experience to figure it out. He should know.
Yeah, he's giving it to you, Tristan. Just you gotta find the delineation point.
No, I mean, there's no answer to that.
The answer is yes. God is omniscient, therefore he knows what it's like to take a big juicy cock right up the ass. Absolutely.
It sounds like you do, doesn't it? I mean, the fact that you think about these things, and you think about them so much that you actually speak of them, right? So I mean,
when I say that God is omniscient, that's very interesting, you know.
All right, so let's moving on. Peacecraft donated $3. We very much appreciate that, sir. I'm very curious to know what Tristan's thoughts on the protocol of the Elders of Zion. Also, if he's worried about microchips, I wonder how he lives life without a cell phone.
Okay, nobody said that microchips aren't inherently bad, and you can't live life without a cell phone. Yeah, I don't have any thoughts on the protocols of the Elders of Zion. Yeah, Destiny, you got some really highbrow, highly intelligent fans there, dude.
Yeah,
I love it. You got
okay, can I elucidate? Can I elucidate for that question?
Can I interact with you for a second?
Just one second. I can elucidate that question.
Pedro, let him go.
Yeah, I'm just curious to make it much more clear. Okay, so it's about microchips, right? For being self-censored. So my question is, does God also know what it's like to fuck somebody in the ass? Because you would know both parts of it, right? If he's omniscient.
Yeah, Destiny. I have to ask.
What actually runs this guy? What actually runs this guy's life? What actually runs this guy's mind? Right? I mean, this is so sad. Like, what a sickened soul you have to speak these things and to think these things. I mean, thank God you probably don't have children. And you know, I mean, it is what it is, man. I mean, this is sad. Like the fact that you would say that. You know, it is what it is, man. I ain't mad though. God have mercy on us all. God have mercy on us all for even sitting here and listening to this insanity. Right? And of course, you know, you've shown yourself to be completely disingenuous, to be unable to actually have actual debate or conversation throughout this whole chat. So, what a great way to finish it. What a winner, man. What a winner.
I'm sorry. It was a degenerate question. That's my idea. My bad. Okay.
What's next question,
we got another $5 from our friend Salakin. Sorry we missed it the first time, but he wanted to say sorry. I didn't get my second question answered. To Tristan, how old is the Earth? How old do you think the Earth is, Tristan?
That doesn't matter what I think. What matters is what is true. We believe that the Earth is created. I'm not sure the exact age of the Earth. How you want that in days or hours?
I think in like thousands of years would be good.
According to science, how old is the Earth and how do we know that?
Damn, he's just dodging all the questions, man.
But you want me to tell you how old the Earth is? You want me to tell you how God created the Earth?
Well, the question was how old the Earth was. So I imagine that's probably what they wanted.
How old is the Earth, Destiny? I don't know how you because I answered the question. How old
my understanding is the Earth is around like 4.5 billion years old.
How do you know that?
There's a whole bunch of I think radioisometric techniques they use to study like carbon decay and shit to try to make estimates on. And then there's
how do you know that carbon dating is accurate?
How do you know the Bible's accurate? Do you speak Hebrew?
How do you know that carbon
dating is accurate? So, all right, what's next?
Alrighty, so we have a.
Can't answer the question again. Can't answer the question.
You can't even read scripture in its original writing. So you're relying on man who is faulty by definition, right? To translate these.
We don't base our interpretation on. I'm Orthodox, coming from the Orthodox perspective.
Yeah.
So we don't believe in sola scriptura. But again, like.
Do you have a book? Do you have a holy book that you read?
We don't believe in sola scriptura.
I don't know what that means. I don't know.
Yes, Destiny, I believe in sola scriptura.
No, but hold on, Pedro. Whoa. Tristan's the boat's filling up with him. Don't help him empty the water. Yeah.
No, we don't believe in the doctrine of sola scriptura, which is the Protestant assumption that man gets to read the Bible and interpret the Bible. Man becomes this infallible interpreter of the Holy Scriptures. We believe that that's inherently fallible. That man is not an infallible interpreter of Scripture, and we don't actually hold to sola scriptura. Although we do believe the Scriptures. The Orthodox Church is the church that is Scriptures, and the Scriptures are part of Holy Tradition.
How do you know they weren't just
because of Holy Tradition. And we have manuscripts going all the way back to the early church.
Well, you don't, because you can't read those. So you don't
know. No, we do. I'm a member of the body of Christ.
Yeah, but you can't read any of that scripture, so you have no fucking idea, right?
No, I can read that.
Literally, those scriptures could talk about Jesus Christ deep throating and getting spit roasted all day long. You have no idea. You can't read that.
This is just the most Wait,
those scriptures, are any of those scriptures older than like 6,000 years?
Wait, if I just interrupt you and people castly, and then say blasphemous stuff.
Excuse me, sir, you're engaged in an ad hominem straw man fallacy right now.
All right, gentlemen, moving forward, we have Salakin with another. Oh, no, sorry. It's a Good Grief with $5. Thank you, sir, for that donation. We appreciate it. Tristan, do you prefer frogs or dinosaurs? If you had to choose.
I like frogs. I can touch them. I can hold them in my hand. I can pick them up. I like frogs. You can eat a frog.
All right. Okay, so Destiny, do you want to interact with that?
I'm good to go. Wait, can you answer this? Does God know what it's like to touch a frog? Just to touch him. Not like inappropriately.
Moving forward. Okay, we have, did we live at the same time as humans? And that was a donation from dinosaurs for $5. So you can see why I read it that way.
You're gonna have to tell me that.
We appreciate your $5 donation. We
Answer
very much
that question
appreciate that.
for us. We want to know, did dinosaurs live with humans? Answer it, dinosaurs.
Okay, moving along. Just post it. All right, spicy question. So if it's against TOS, don't bother. To both Destiny and Tristan, though more to later. Did around 6 million? Oh, crud.
Off.
Yep, off.
Not dealing with that shit.
Answer it, dinosaurs.
Just post it. Did around 6 million?
No.
Crud.
No. Off.
Yep, off.
Not dealing with that shit.
Gosh, why, guys? Why? We disavow any kind of Jewish hate on this channel. We are not on that energy level.
Yeah, but hatred of God and blasphemy, that's okay here, I guess. When Destiny's going to say disgusting, blasphemous things, no pushback, that's fine.
No, that's not the case. And it doesn't reflect what our personal opinions are of that, but we have to try to be neutral moderators. And as tough as that can be sometimes to hear, you'll play back this video and see me cringing every single time that happens.
I hope so.
We try to be neutral. We try to be neutral in our application of how this goes. There are some things that you were wrong about. There are some things he was wrong about. There's no two ways about that. But
no, there's nothing I was wrong about. I clearly won the debate. So.
I'm not talking about who won or lost. What I'm talking about specifically is that well, we can get into it another time. But what I'm saying is that no, we don't condone blasphemy at all. But we're neutral arbiters. We have to allow people to speak their mind.
Okay, so from Synth for $1, thank you for your donation, sir, to the channel. Can Tristan quickly define ad hominem for us? Feel free to press Control W and look it up on Wikipedia.
Ad hominem is when an insult is used as an argument. So if I were to say something like, let's do a physique check and take off your shirt, Destiny. Your physique is inferior to mine, therefore your argument is moot. Or Destiny, you're a stupid fat. Therefore, your argument is
Whoa!
Within TOS.
That is not okay. Damn.
We gotta keep it within TOS.
Yeah, I didn't know that was not.
To be fair, I understand why you did that because you literally.
I'm not saying that that's inherently the case. I'm just like, if someone were to say like Destiny's a degenerate.
Oh, okay, I love you guys. It's been fun. I gotta dip on out. All right, I'm sorry, but I can't risk. Yeah, I can't risk that shit.
Oh, he's gone.
Well, he had to. There's too many.
Of course he has to, dude.
Too many violations of TOS.
This guy's actually, I think he's actually crazy. I don't know how to talk to people that are like I don't know how to talk to people that are like that. I don't know how to talk to people that are like that. I just don't know. Holy shit. You only said because you lost 20 times. Yeah, there might be like I don't know actually. I tried really hard, like because I saw it was happening like pretty quickly. I think I almost realized I was speech. But after I started going back and forth for like 5 or 10 minutes, I started to realize, okay, this is like we're never gonna connect. So maybe there's a way to research. So I tried to be friendly. I tried to say like, hey, we're not having a productive conversation, but it didn't seem like there was anything I could do to actually have a conversation. I feel like I tried. I gave like a macro explanation of like, this is what I'm doing, this is how the conversation. I'm trying to figure out like blah blah blah. Like that's literally all I was trying to do. But it seemed like there was no way, and they kept accusing me of all the things that you're just steamrolling rambling. The fact that I asked him like, hey, do you think that do you believe that wait, fuck, my brain just got zapped. I just my phone. Oh, I asked him, do you think that we've spoken for about, is it spoke or spoken? Spoken a word. We spoke for the same amount of time. I think it spoke, right? And we spoke for the same amount of time. And he was like, I don't know, maybe not. And he had like no idea. Yeah, I don't know, like Jesus. Holy shit. If he seriously couldn't tell. If somebody engages in like a TOS or like hateful manner, I think your obligation as a streamer is you're supposed to like get rid of that content in a responsible manner. So we don't approve of it, and then I leave the call because if he does it a second time, then I can get in trouble. Like if somebody does something that is like hateful or violates TOS, you're supposed to make an effort to remove the content from the stream, like you're getting rid of it, then you just leave, right? I think so we left, it's whatever. I'm not gonna sit around and see if he does it like a second or third time. Thank you, Steven. What is your answer to the you can't make claims about if there is or isn't morals if you believe there's no objective truth? You can, it's like a complicated, like you have to get into like moral anti-realism, and then like you gotta talk about like either this like fucking like moral error theory or non-cognitivism, and how can we like say that moral statements can't like have any factual, like you can't make fact claim about whether it's true or false. It's a whole complicated bullshit conversation. I don't wanna have it. You can, it can be fun to explore and jerk off, like you can totally skip meta ethics because here's the reality, okay? If there are any philosophers in chat that get ass mad, okay, get ass mad. Here's the reality, okay? Most people agree with like 98% of like all of meta ethics can be boiled down to like in general, like reduce human suffering, ensure human flourishing, okay? We can all roughly think that each other's gonna agree with that, and then we can have conversations on like the normative level or the applied level, right? Now there are going to be some rare things that might go back all the way to that, so things like abortion really test the limits of that. But when it comes to like, should we have universal healthcare? Should we take in refugees? Like on these things, these are all gonna come down to factual grounds of like, do they help us or do they hurt us? And we're all gonna generally agree on what helps or hurt us. So no, I don't. Meta ethics is just a cancerous route to go down to have arguments there because you don't really need to. Because that, like, you have no idea. Like the real life example of this is you've argued with thousands of people over what's right and wrong. You've never gone all the way back to meta ethics to do it, right? When you're on Reddit, somebody's like, oh, I think minimum wage is good. You're like, good? You think minimum wage is good? Can you even define to me what is the goodness? Okay, good luck. Hope you know German. Okay, otherwise, like, come on, dude, fuck off.
A punishment. A punishment. Shut up!
You just make one point. You don't have to expand on it 50 million times. Dude. This is what you have.
You made your stupid
Listen, let me hear you. Listen, okay. Jesus, now you're doing it again. Okay, all you had to say. Listen.
When you make a stupid statement about a racist person, I immediately want to counter that, and you need to repeat that, and I recognize you're right.
Holy shit. Okay. All I'm saying. You're still going. Holy shit. I know what your point is. You said it like 4 times.
Let me finish. Let me try to get my word in, and then I will stop going. When you make a stupid racist statement about Topic 1. In the US, the problem providing healthcare has been hotly debated. But since socialism is still politically toxic, options like Medicare for all are sidelined. If socialized medicine isn't the answer, then what could it be? How else can we possibly provide quality care to all of our citizens? Will the liberal or conservative answers to this question always leave a certain portion of the population out? Is that an acceptable loss? Okay. So when we have these debates right on this left-leaning quick politics space, it's always focused on, well, technically the progressive answer. We are rarely debating other answers. So like, what is everyone else saying that we should be doing, right? If you know me at all, you know I'm not a fan of the other solutions that have been presented to me. But still, what are those solutions? Are they worth our time? And is the left, people like me, are we overlooking something that actually might be really great? All right, so we'll start with, for introduction to this topic, the fanatic work our way around.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. I think the problem, the reason why like a lot of like the expansion of healthcare ideas get shot down is because people are afraid to give an inch because a lot of times the left wants to go extremely far with things. I think the idea of like having good coverage for expanding Medicare and Medi-Cal for all, I think it's probably pretty good. But I think there's a lot of rhetoric that's like around the idea of abolishing the other types of healthcare once we do that. And I think that's where the problem comes into play. I would say ultimately, yes, like all these other ideas, like we see other countries like doing pretty successful models. Don't think it'll work the exact same in the United States, obviously, because our country's kind of amazing and we do all sorts of things that create the vast majority of medical advancements, technical advancements in the world. So then I think the idea of getting rid of that profit motive, I think would probably hurt that. But overall, I think more Medicare, expansion of Medicare, and things like that sound like they'd be pretty good.
Thank you. Next, Matt Latin.
So I think like the way that the question is framed is kind of like an indicator of like what the issue is. Like it's not even like socialism, right? It's not like we'd be getting like a health insurance co-op if we did like socialized Medicaid or Medicare, right? The idea here is that you've got state-managed healthcare or you have private run insurance. That's like the actual debate, and it wouldn't actually impact our medical research either. We have some forms of it, like when COVID hit, I was privileged enough to be able to take advantage of some of the programs in my state, and the result was they basically put me on a private insurance provider anyway, and instead of me paying for it from my paycheck, I was having paid for by the state. So it's not like things would be that much different in terms of like the bureaucracy. Like everything would be basically the same, and people would be still getting paid. I think the question is, will state-managed health insurance work? And I think in our country specifically, it won't work specifically because there's individuals within our system that are actively willing to sabotage whatever system we put in place, specifically to push the narrative that state-run anything will just like fail by default. Like we saw what happened with the Affordable Care Act. There's lots of harping about it, no replacement plans recommended, and then the end result was a system that's not particularly good and not being improved upon. So I think that state-managed would be totally fine in a country where there is unity, but with our divided system where we're actively trying to sabotage ourselves and shoot ourselves in the foot, I don't think it's plausible currently.
Okay. All right, Hans.
Yeah, at this point, I don't know if the final stuff you're freaking out going on. Right now, I'm sorry, I don't think anyone here
there's a lot of that is being realistic, and that's why you mostly hear online people like, overall, at this point in time, like Jimmy Dore Unbox really don't understand how the system works, and that we should just try hard to do socialism. I think while we're waiting for the awesome perfect state solution, which I am in favor of, for the most part, obviously take everything that Fnatic suggested, like lowering the age for Medicare, increasing access to Medicaid, like envelop more people, not just people who say in direct poverty, give like a public option to expand it. When we talk about say socialized medicine as like a boogeyman, I don't really understand that. We already have like a public-private system that sort of exists, and I'm happy with just shoring up the sides of the public system because again, I don't see any profit motive that would ensure say private companies wanting to insure a bunch of fucking old people. That's why we have Medicare. So we just keep lowering the age year by year. So eventually I'm 70 that we actually age get into school. So just do what we can to keep it marginally better. And honestly, like big meme, don't let the get any good. Just keep doing that. And then people who argue against that are really fucking ridiculous and kind of annoying. And then we progress.
Next, Destiny.
I agree pretty much everything Hunt said. I think that well, actually, I'll give one more notable thing. I agree that expanding the ACA and things like Medicare and Medicaid would be good, increasing the eligibility, get more people to these programs, when people see that they work, then they become more defensible, then we can expand them over and over again. Something that I think would be really good to try too, that people on the left often overlook, is more state experiments. We have Medi-Cal, we have Romney Care. If people think that these types of socialized medicine programs are good, maybe trying them on the state level first, even though there are added difficulties to doing it on the state level, maybe that would be beneficial, and then once you see the proof of concept on the state level, then you can roll it out on the federal level. But otherwise, I agree more so with the expansion of the already existing federal programs in order to get more people rolled into these, so that more people like see them in a favorable light.
Yeah, I feel like I agree with just about everything Destiny concept and Fnatic actually. Yeah, I mean, I think that the goal should be universal coverage of some sort. I think it makes more sense to have some kind of like hybrid system where you've got like some kind of public option, or like universal coverage for everybody that covers like basic necessities, and maybe some private plans available to that's what I'm looking for, to cover all the extra shit. That makes some sense to me. I think that works in countries that have it. I don't see any good reason we shouldn't have it here.
News awesome. Yeah, I don't want to be another broken record, but pretty much I agree with mostly what was said. I think the most interesting part about the question is about the possibility of leaving people behind and whether or not that's going to be an acceptable loss. I'm interested in what exactly would be an acceptable loss, or if anything is at all. Right? Does it continue progressing? Like, is it like if we go down to Medicare for all composing and we get down to D40, right? Is all the lives in the middle? Is that like the acceptable loss that we have, or if like we're only going to apply it like American citizens solely, whatever system we create, like, that's going to be an acceptable loss? I think that's an interesting question.
So, man, I speak for this. I think that the healthcare system is fine as is. I think there should be a public option. Besides that, I think that if you don't have healthcare, that you can choose to, like, I think the system is fine as is, where hospitals are forced to give you medical care, life-saving care. If you go to the hospital and need life-saving care, they're forced to give it to you whether you can pay for it or not. And I think that's where you need to draw a line. I don't think we need to start paying for optional surgeries or optional care if there's no health insurance and they can't pay. But other than that, I think there should be a public option and let the private market do what the private market does, because it's not sabotage to say the government doesn't work. It's historical evidence to show the government programs are bad. Look at the Veterans Affairs. Look at Social Security. We go on and on. This is historical evidence. It's been a pattern. It's not sabotage.
Before we get into the general Prime, just let me know, Ty got back to me, so we have another right to the panel. You can bring whatever you want. You ready?
Okay. I do have someone else already here.
Don't worry. Apparently he's not Destiny, and he doesn't like you very much for whatever reason.
Wait, which name?
Anyway, Tiberius D. I don't know. Y'all met? Like, you both see. I don't know why y'all don't like each other. Anyway, like, Prime, just bring on who you're going to bring on this.
Yeah, I already had someone.
Wait, are they right-leaning?
I'm so mad at Gambit. What the fuck?
Sorry,
what did you say, Dustin?
Are they right-leaning who you're bringing on?
Yeah, well, the person he's. You think he's right-leaning.
Oh, it's Gambit.
This guy.
This is just going to be like, this whole show is going to be us, like, all shitting on this Spartacus, is what it feels like. But...
It doesn't have to be, actually.
Well, I mean, like, I think Spartacus actually had a point a little bit in terms of, like, when I was first perceiving, like, what the ACA should have been, I really would have rather seen, like, a public option from the government competing against the regular insurance companies on the markets, because I think it would have driven prices down by default because they're competing with a government entity. So I think there's something to that argument, and I would be curious to see how that would work. And I think it does, didn't they do that in Massachusetts already? Like, that was a thing, right?
I think Massachusetts has instituted already. I think several states instituted something like that already.
Right.
There's a public option and there's a private option as well.
And it, like, drove costs down, I do believe. I have to look this up just to double check. But I think that's what happened.
Typically happens when you introduce a cheaper alternative.
Yeah, okay, I want to challenge this if we're moving on, if we're past openings. Why do we say that, like, the VA and Social Security are failed government programs?
Well, because Social Security can't survive the way it is right now, and the VA, I don't know if you've ever looked into the VA, but the VA is absolutely a horrendous program medically. Soldiers have to, sorry, not just soldiers, Marines, seamen, all the military members have to wait have to wait large amount of times before they can actually go in and see a doctor, even for something minor.
Sure, so
and sometimes it's proved to actually be very detrimental to the service member, because by the time they actually get in to see a doctor, it's much worse than it would have been if they were actually.
Yeah, so why don't all the guys in the VA just wait for insurance?
Because the guys in the VA have, well, some people in the VA can afford it, and I think that there should be extra allowances given to people who decide to risk their lives for our country and come back with PTSD and come back
sure, but
with
like,
other kinds of
so I understand, but like, wait, for the VA, because I think this is a great lens to look at. So your claim is that we have a healthcare system that works all right, but then you say you have a huge problem with the VA. So my problem is I see the VA as a form of government insurance or government healthcare. But all the people that are in the VA, if they wanted to, they could go to this private market that you say works very well. But it sounds like they opt to do the VA, even though there's a private market out there that you say works well. If the VA is not that great and the private market is there and they're not choosing it, doesn't that mean the private market might be even worse? Like you yourself said that a lot of people that have the VA or access to the VA might not have the money for private insurance. Like,
yeah, because there's a lot of homeless veterans and
get close to your mic. Be a little bit quiet.
Because I'm just miking up. That works. Is that better? Okay, so there's a lot of homeless veterans, and I think that when you're homeless, you don't have money to pay for surgeries and stuff like that. When you have service-connected injuries, which is usually what you go to the VA for, I don't think you should be paying out of pocket for service-connected injuries. And if you decide to go see a private doctor outside the VA, you are not allowed to go back to the VA because you went and saw a private doctor for your injury.
Yeah, so I understand that, but
the VA basically keeps you as like this.
Let's just focus on this, right? So there's a lot of people that might have military service that have like injuries, but what about like normal people that have injuries?
Normal people that have injuries, normal people didn't sustain injuries, fighting in Iraq, fighting in Afghanistan.
Yeah, like who cares? Like whether your arm got broken in combat or your arm got broken working in a factory, you still have to pay healthcare. You got to pay somebody to fix it, right? I'm just saying, like,
and I believe that if your arm got broken in the military, I believe that there's a much different standing point at which we should be going about it. Sure. And I think that they deserve medical care for the service-connected injuries that they've received.
Sure. So is it fair to say that you don't believe that our private medical system is good enough for veterans?
No, I think if the government decided, to basically contract out the VA to the private medical care system, I think it'd be much better. The VA system is absolutely trash, and it hasn't been until Donald Trump started allowing veterans to go see a private medical care that they were able to do that. And now that veterans are able to see private medical care, there's a huge uptick in veterans actually doing that, and a huge uptick in like how many many people, how often, sorry, there's a huge downtick in how often, the wait for veterans to actually go see doctors.
I mean, if you increase the pool of doctors by subsidizing private education and having subcontractors, obviously this could be a huge wait time. We're trying to solve the problem and see the issue is that the current free healthcare for veterans isn't enough. There's this systemic issues about them not being able to access the private system, which is apparently pretty good. So that feels like you're suggesting almost like an Obamacare thing where we're having the government send money to private doctors to expand the pool for our healthcare system for veterans, which I'm not entirely opposed to. If it's working, then that sounds cool. But then you're obviously offering the change where it's a system is fine. Did you want to rephrase that, or just I'm not trying to do a contradiction. I'm legitimately because I also like one of the VA. My cousin's in the Air Force right now. He's going to he's probably a couple of things and so he gets out one week. So
so I think that this has worked magnificently for the VA, and I think that it should be very limited in what we choose to do this with when the government provides healthcare, because unfortunately the government provides healthcare, the government also provides what healthcare you don't receive, and so I think it's a very dangerous proposition when you allow the government to say you can live and you can't. And you saw this in Great Britain when an Italian citizen was in the hospital for Great Britain. I think it was a baby, and Italy tried to take the citizen into their own hospital to try and keep him alive, and Great Britain said no, and that there was no baby that piece, which seems extremely wrong to me.
Okay, but hold on though. You're talking about letting someone decide what kind of healthcare you have, and I mean having a government decide what healthcare you're eligible for sucks, but so does having private.
He's really misciting that baby case. I don't know if I want to jump on that or not, but that is so wrong.
So it's not
that baby's brain was water.
Your preferences are that much better. I also want to add that having the government pay for private insurance for individuals has a side effect, right? So yes, you've expanded the pool of you've expanded access, but we did this with education, right? You remember government started giving out loans to people so they can get a college degree, and all of a sudden the cost of college went up because you had a guaranteed way of paying for college. So I think what my biggest concern is with a system like this would be the government causing insurance companies to up their rates overall. So I would say a public option that's competing actively with insurance companies is preferable to the government outright paying for private health care.
Just a real quick thing, that UK baby case is cited a lot. I'm pretty familiar with this because I read a lot of those ago. I think it was, I don't know if it was some form of extremely encephalitis or whatever, but that baby's brain, there were scans, that baby's brain was 90% mush. The reason why they didn't transfer the child, I think in Italy, it was either Italy or France, there was some highly experimental, they were we transfer crazy shit. The reason why they didn't is because I think the country stepped in as a guardian for the child because they thought the parents weren't active investigators of the child. That kid was fucking dead. Like I said, I'm pretty sure they scanned the kid's brain, it was 80% water. That kid was completely fucking gone. People try to cite this a lot as oh, the government was rationing healthcare. They weren't. They were stepping in to be bro, your kid is dead, it's time to let go.
So one more thing, you're saying that the internet works, you're saying that you're saying healthcare works fine. My question to you is, okay, so in the cases people are literally unable to afford their healthcare such that they're literally dying, right? Or where people are literally unable to afford their insulin, and so then they're dying in those kinds of cases. Do you think that's working fine? Do you think that's just acceptable loss?
I would consider that life-saving medicine. But I mean, to continue down this road, I think that a lot of people have issues with the government deciding to provide healthcare because the government has continuously lied. Obama said you keep your doctor, turns out you couldn't keep your doctor. Obama said you keep health insurance, turns out you couldn't keep your health insurance. The government has continuously lied about this, and at a certain point, citizens just don't know what to trust. And I think it's a huge issue that people are going to have to deal with if you're going to decide to push this narrative. Is that you're going to deal with politicians that have lied continuously about this, and no one ever trusted. So I mean,
that's not one question. You didn't answer my question literally at all.
Okay, well then ask your question again. And I'll do my best answer.
Sure, you can do so, but I actually don't want this to be on product because I want a liberal answer. I want to examine a liberal answer. It doesn't, do we have liberals here, right? Who have totally Medicare for all is fucking terrible, right? Bad idea. What's your answer? And how can we make it actually universal? Is that ever a possibility, or will people do that? So, Fanatic, ask your question. I don't want this to be on Sprout.
Yeah, sure. He's just the only person that says something so insane. Do you think it's perfectly acceptable that there are people who are dying or going bankrupt because they can't afford their healthcare, or people who can't afford things like insulin and just dying because they can't afford it? Do you think that is evidence of a working system? Do you think that's something that could be avoided through a better design system that would still function well?
Okay, and in my mind, that would be life-saving healthcare. I think the hospitals should be forced to take care of those people, and that would be life-saving.
Wait, stop really quickly. Yes, we know it's life-saving healthcare. The point is that even though the hospitals are required to provide it, that the people are still on the hook to pay for it. So in these cases, these people are going bankrupt because they can't afford it. Is that acceptable to you?
I mean, declare medical bankruptcy. I mean, if you can't afford medical bills, declare medical bankruptcy.
Sure, but do you understand that with declaring things like medical bankruptcy, that means now that your house, things like your livelihood and the livelihood of your children. But sometimes in these cases, people have dependent children, right? So in these cases, now these people are forced to live in squalor. And you think that should be acceptable? They should just declare bankruptcy, sell their house, lose their.
Just as a really quick fact interjection, if you even for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, usually you'll be allowed to keep your primary residence, non-investment properties, and 1 or 2 vehicles, depending on working adults.
Okay, sure, but even still, okay, so you keep your house, but you keep your primary residence, but that doesn't mean you're not going to be insanely impacted by all of your other possessions and things like that. Is bankruptcy is obviously not something that we just want to jump toward as a solution. That can't be, right?
I mean, I would push to take public option. I would push the people that need this care to take public option. That is already there. And I think that's something that should seriously be pushed for someone who.
What if people need a lot of healthcare, but they're spending all their money on WWE champions, guys?
Is the Eli Lilly is the company that puts out insulin. If you stop Eli Lilly, they will actually lower their prices, and sometimes they make it free. If you can prove that you cannot pay for insulin, Eli Lilly will assist, and they say that in their commercials that if you have problems paying for it, to contact them and they'll see what they can do. So I would suggest maybe taking the public option and then maybe talking to the people who make your drugs and seeing if you can get a better deal through them and possibly even free.
I mean, that's hardly a guarantee though. We'll do what we can. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a hypothetical question, right? This is what's the best healthcare you can imagine? And I'm hearing something sort of like what we have now is ideal, and I'm just kind of not feeling that. It was if I had to create my perfect healthcare system, right? Everybody would be covered in or everybody would have access to free coverage. And then if you want the Lexus of healthcare, some private insurance on top of that, you can purchase that, right? And then you would also have a public option for folks who can't afford bonuses. And I mean, I guess we have to figure out what the nuances are, what counts as extra, and what should be just a guaranteed basic right for a person to have access to. If someone dislocates their shoulder, they should be able to go to a patient first somewhere and get that thing taken care of and go home and not have to pay for it, right? If someone's about to give birth, they should be able to give birth for less than $200. Things like that. I think we should actually aspire to improve our system so that folks aren't going to go bankrupt every time something random happens, right?
I think Donald Trump was on the right road with this. I think Donald Trump was forcing these medical companies to give us the same price they were handing over in Europe, which would have greatly decreased the actual price of medicine here in the United States. So I think Donald Trump was on the right road with this. But to answer,
isn't the government affecting the market though? I thought this was something to be against.
To enforce companies to not just sell their. I mean, the government already controls price gouging, right? The government.
I'm just trying to figure out where you're at.
Okay, they're price gouging. Okay, so I'm against price gouging.
Wait, how's it price gouging to offer different rates to different markets? How's that price gouging? That's not price gouging.
So, I mean, I'm against the idea of price gouging and similar to price gouging, correct?
I don't know. I just don't understand the price gouging.
offering a lower rate to Europe than they do to the United States.
So right now, if I buy a latte in LA and I go back to Nebraska and buy a latte, those are going to be two different prices. Is that price gouging or?
I would argue yes. If you're gonna offer your latte for a price, then it's that price, and that's the price of your latte.
Well, so like if you want to run a business, theoretically, you're looking at a certain profit margin, right? Different markets are going to support different prices. That's just.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And then,
I mean, the reason Europe has cheaper drug prices is essentially because the U.S. is effectively subsidizing the prices.
It's way more complicated than just that. Like you talk about, say, like subsidization of like doctors and how like under Obamacare, like people couldn't like keep their doctors because some doctors wouldn't opt into like government insurance. You realize that because like, those rates are like either lower or subsidized. A lot of people don't like say Medicare or certain government coverage because the government pays out less per person than like, potentially like either paying out of pocket or private insurance. Like there are problems with that we accept like when we have like